In the beginning of the drama, we see the female lead, Zheng Shu. Zheng Shu is a reporter for China's top financial newspaper. Her friend is telling her, "You missed the opportunity to interview Shi Yan. What will you do now?" Zheng Shu says, "I will try to interview Shi Yan again." Then her friend says, "I don't think Shi Yan will give you an interview again." But Zheng Shu is quite motivated to do this work. Now we see the male lead Shi Yan. His assistant is telling him, "Yuling will come to interview you tonight at 7 p.m. But Shi Yan says, "I don't want to interview Yuling. I liked Zheng Shu's interview outline." His assistant says, "Okay, I will arrange the interview again for you." Then Zhen Yu's boss, Miss Yi, calls her to her office. Zheng Shu starts saying, "I know you want to talk to me about the interview with Shi Yan. I am a little disappointed because I think there is some scope for improvement in my interview outline, but next time, I will prepare better." Miss Yi tells Zheng Shu, "You are looking very good today," to which Zheng Shu says, "Today is my boyfriend's birthday, and if I had been interviewed by Shi Yan today, then I wouldn't have been able to celebrate his birthday." Miss Yi says, "I got a call from Shi Yan's staff, and Shi Yan wants you to interview him." After listening to this, Zheng Shu gets very happy and says, "I will definitely do this interview." She is going out, but Miss Yi asks her, "What happened to your boyfriend's birthday?" She says, "Birthday comes every year, but the opportunity to interview Shi Yan is very rare." After this, Zheng Shu leaves from there. On the other hand, Shi Yan's assistant is telling him about his today's schedule. Then, Shi Yan tells his driver, "Drop me here because I have to go to the company." On the other hand, Zheng Shu says to her friend, "There is no clear picture of Shi Yan on the internet. If we get an audio or video interview of Shi Yan for our magazine, then it will definitely draw the attention of our readers." But her friend says, "Our magazine doesn't have so much power that we can make it a digital magazine." But Zheng Shu says, "I will try my best to do this." When Shi Yan reaches his office, his assistant tells him, "Mr. Guan wants you to come for dinner today." Shi Yan says, "I am very busy." Then his assistant says, "Mr. Guan wants you to meet a very special person." Then Shi Yan is looking at someone's picture on his phone and tells his assistant, "Okay, I will come for dinner today." The assistant asks, "What about our interview with the financial magazine?" Then Shi Yan says, "Arrange it for another day." In the next scene, Zheng Shu calls her boyfriend and tells him, "I have an interview with Shi Yan today, so I won't be able to celebrate your birthday with you." Her boyfriend says, "It's okay, I will come to pick you up when you are free." Now Zheng Shu is going for the interview, but she gets a call from Shi Yan's assistant who tells her the interview is cancelled. It will be next week at the same time. Zheng Shu says, "Can the interview be done within 2 days? I am ready to do the interview anytime." But the assistant refuses. Then Zheng Shu messages her friend Shen and asks her to help her find out where Shi Yan is going tonight. Her friend tells her, Shi Yan was invited by his friend Guanji to his private party tonight. Then Zheng Shu reaches the hotel and asks Shi Yan's assistant, "Can Shi Yan do the interview with me for a short time?" The assistant says, "I will talk to Shi Yan about this. You wait here." Now, Zheng Shu is standing outside the hall and some men are talking here about Guan Capital hiring Mr. Yu, who is a very famous professor of finance. Then Zheng Shu sees Yu's here. On the other hand, Shi Yan's assistant goes to him and says, "Zheng Shu is waiting for you here for the interview." Shi Yan says, "I can't interview her today, but as she is here, you arrange some food and a car for her and send her back." While waiting, Zheng Shu gets a stomachache and starts taking medicine, but she doesn't have water. She goes to get water, but Yu gives her water. Zheng Shu says, "You are Professor Yu." He says, "Do you know me?" Zheng Shu says, "I read some of your papers." Zheng Shu says, "If I get a chance, I will definitely attend your lectures. Can we both add each other on WeChat?" Just then, Shi Yan enters with his assistant and sees Zheng Shu talking to Mr. Yu, who are adding each other on WeChat. Shi Yan is looking at Zheng Shu very carefully. He remembers that Zheng Shu won the magazine currency award, and he was present at that ceremony. But when Zheng Shu was called on the stage, Shi Yan got a message because of which he left from there. That's why Shi Yan is seeing her for the first time today. Shi Yan is about to go towards Zheng Shu, but his friend Guanji arrives. As soon as she sees Shi Yan, she goes to him, but he goes inside. Then the event starts. Guanji introduced Professor Yu to you all. Then he goes to Yu and says, "I have never seen Shi Yan excited to meet any girl as he was excited to meet you." Listening to this, Yu gets happy, and all three of them celebrate together to work together. It's raining outside, and Zheng Shu calls her boyfriend and asks him, "When will you come to pick me up?" He says, "It will take some time because the traffic." Zheng Shu is waiting here. Just then, assistant sees her and says, "What is Zheng Shu doing here now?" Shi-yan says, "You didn't book a ride for her." Then the assistant says, "Zheng Shu told me that someone is coming to pick her up." Now, Shi-yan tells his assistant, "Take our car to Zheng Shu." Many people have already asked Zheng Shu for a ride. So when their car stops, Zheng Shu says, "I know it is raining, but I am waiting for my boyfriend." But as soon as she sees Shi-yan, she realizes that she has said this to the wrong person. After hearing this, Shi-yan leaves from there. Shi-yan's assistant sees that Zheng Shu's boyfriend has come to pick her up and says she was actually waiting for her boyfriend. Shi-yan says, "Are you concerned whether it is her boyfriend or not?" The assistant says, "Zheng Shu is very good looking, so it's normal to have a boyfriend." Her boyfriend Xing asks Zheng Shu, "How was your interview?" She says, "I don't want to talk about this, I am very upset today." Now Xing gets a call on his phone, but he cuts the call. It seems that a girl is calling him. Then, when Zheng Shu reaches home, she wishes him a happy birthday and then goes to her house. Then Xing gets a call, and after listening to that call, he leaves from there very quickly. When Zheng Shu comes home, she says, "I have to tell the editor about this interview." But when she checks her phone in her bag, it's not there. Then she checks her phone's location through her iPad. Its location is showing the hospital. Now she gets confused. What is Xing doing in the hospital? And then she thinks maybe he had an accident. Then she rushes to the hospital. Zheng Shu sees her boyfriend coming out of the hospital with another girl, but she tells herself she could be his friend. But when she goes ahead, she sees the girl kissing her boyfriend. After seeing this, Zheng Shu is very shocked and her umbrella falls from her hand. Now she is drenched in the rain and is going back home by taxi. Shang is leaving his girlfriend and comes close his car. He sees Zheng Shu's bracelet that he gave her. On the other hand, Zheng Shu is at home, packing all the things Xing. After some time, Xing arrives at Zheng Shu's house. He pleads, "Please, let me explain." But Zheng Shu responds, "I am breaking up with you," and closes the door. But it's all her imagination. Now, Xing comes to Zheng Shu's house again. As soon as she opens the door, Xing says, "I am breaking up with you." He continues, "Before meeting you, I always thought that hard work was very meaningful. But now, I don't want to live this kind of life and I have no motivation to work hard. My new girlfriend belongs to a rich family, so I don't want to miss the chance. But if you want, I can remain your friend." Zheng Shu asks, "Did you bring my phone?" Then, Xing gives her the phone. Zheng Shu, in anger, gives him back all his things and says, "Who wants to be your friend? Get out from in front of me." She closes the door after saying this. Now her friend, Shen, arrives to meet her. Zheng Shu says, "I was very angry when he broke up with me. Can you believe that he only took back the golden brooch from all the things I returned to him?" Shen responds, "Why are you so angry over this kind of person?" Zheng Shu replies, "I want to convert my sadness into motivation for my work. Tomorrow I will interview Shi-yan." On the other hand, Shi-yan is at home reading about Zheng Shu. After learning about her, he says to himself, "This girl is quite impressive, but still her company have recommended another girl for the interview with me." Just then, Shi-yan receives a call from his niece. The next day, Zheng Shu goes to Miss Yi's office. She says, "I couldn't interview Shi-yan yesterday, but I am trying to schedule the interview again with Shi-yan. Don't worry, I will submit the interview on time." Miss Yi asks, "Why are you wearing sunglasses?" Zheng Shu takes off her sunglasses and shows her dark circles to Miss Yi. Miss Yi comments, "If you had not interviewed Shi-yan, you should have celebrated your boyfriend's birthday. What are you crying about?" Zheng Shu doesn't reply. Miss Yi probes, "Did your boyfriend cheat on you?" When she finds out, Miss Yi laughs. Zheng Shu says, "My boyfriend cheated on me, but why are you happy?" Miss Yi responds, "I told you before that you both were not suitable for each other." Zheng Shu says, "You are right. I am going back to work now." As she is about to leave, Miss Yi asks, "Do you need 2 days off? After all, you also broke up with your boyfriend." Zheng Shu replies, "These dark circles is due to working on the interview with Shi-yan, not because of a cheater." After saying this, she leaves. In the next scene, Zheng Shu goes to the bakery and remembers that she used to come here with Xing. She orders just then. Xing arrives with his new girlfriend and says to her, "When will you talk to your uncle so that he can hire me in Mingyu Group?" His girlfriend replies, "Mingyu Group has a very strict system for hiring." Zheng Shu also sees both of them. His girlfriend also sees Zheng Shu and says to him, "I am hungry and want to eat egg tarts." As soon as he sees Zheng Shu, Xing gets scared and says, "She is Chen Li." Then, Chen Li pushes Zheng Shu aside. Zheng Shu, angry at her behavior, and starts saying something to her. But then she notices the same golden brooch on her hand and says, "Some people like secondhand things very much." She shows a thumbs up to Xing and leaves. Chen Li is very angry and says, "She called you secondhand." Now, Shi Yan is standing at the signal and sees Zheng Shu venting all her anger on a tree. When Zheng Shu turns back, she sees the license plate with the repeated number and says, "It must be her uncle's car. I should complete the interview with Shi Yan first, then I will deal with him." Now, Zheng Shu knocks on the window of Shi Yan's car and says, "My phone is dead. Can I borrow your power bank?" Shi Yan responds, "I don't have a power bank." Zheng Shu then asks, "Can you give me a ride because I want to charge my phone in your car?" Shi Yan rolls down the window, and Zheng Shu looks at him carefully. Shi Yan says, "My car won't take a girl to her boyfriend." Shi Yan's assistant then calls out to Zheng Shu, "Hey!" Now she realizes it's Shi Yan and says, "Actually, I came here to talk to you about the interview. We can talk during this ride without disturbing your work schedule." But Shi Yan closes the car window. Zheng Shu says, "If I don't submit your interview this week, we won't be able to publish the cover story." Shi Yan replies, "It's my personal time, and if you want to meet me, you can take an appointment with my assistant." He closes the window after saying this. The assistant looks at Zheng Shu. Shi Yan asks him, "Do you have time to arrange a meeting with Zheng Shu?" The assistant replies, "No," and sits in his seat. In the next scene, Shi Yan asks his assistant about his schedule for the week. At the same time, he receives a message from Zheng Shu. Then assistant asks him, "What about the interview?" Shi Yan replies, "The sooner we do it, the better." Assistant replying it happily. Seeing this, Shi Yan goes to the assistant and asks, "What is Zheng Shu saying?" The assistant replies, "She is asking if you have time tomorrow." Shi Yan responds, "Tomorrow I am going horse riding with my uncle, so you can call Zheng Shu there too." Now, Zheng Shu is working in her office when she receives a message that Shi Yan is ready to interview her tomorrow. Zheng Shu is very happy after hearing this, and her colleague Yuling also hears it. After Zheng Shu leaves, Yuling goes to her desk and finds her interview outline in the drawer. Now, at home, Zheng Shu is selecting clothes for the interview. Shen tells her, "You have to look very beautiful tomorrow, because this will also help in your interview." Meanwhile, the assistant informs Shi Yan about the time of the interview. In the next scene, Yuling goes for interview with Shi Yan. Seeing her, Shi Yan, "Who are you?" She replies, "I'm Yuling. My friend couldn't take your interview, so she sent me in her place." Shi Yan asks her to sit down. Yuling says, "Then let's start our interview." Shi Yan asks, "Can I take a look at your outline?" Yuling shows him her interview outline. After seeing it, he starts the interview. Later, Zheng Shu arrives at Shi Yan's company. The guard asks her to register her name. As she does, she sees Yuling's name on the list and wonders, why is Yuling's name on the registration list? She tells the assistant, "Today's interview will be according to the schedule, right?" The assistant responds, "You were very busy today, so Yuling took your place and interviewed Shi Yan." Hearing this, Zheng Shu is shocked. And just then, Shi Yan arrives. She looks at him carefully, but he passes by her and leaves. Zheng Shu follows Shi Yan and says, "You've completed the basic part of the interview, but there are still 5 questions left. Can I take a little bit of your time?" Shi Yan asks, "What are those 5 questions?" Zheng Shu starts asking her 5 questions. Listening to her questions, Shi Yan seems impressed and tells Zheng Shu to come with him. As they head to the lift, assistant receives a call from Shi Yan's niece. He puts the phone on speaker. She angrily says to him, "Give phone to my uncle." Shi Yan tells her, "If you don't behave properly, don't come in front of me in the future." Zheng Shu comments, "If you have so much control over your niece, why don't you teach her to be a good person?" After reaching the parking lot, Shi Yan says to Zheng Shu, "My journey is for 2 hours. You can take my interview during this time." Zheng Shu replies, "I have no problem," and sits in the car. Shi Yan tells her, "I don't have much time, so start your interview quickly." Zheng Shu suggests, "Before interview, let's have a bit of normal conversation. It makes the interview easier." Shi Yan responds, "Why don't we introduce each other?" Both of them introduce themselves, and then they continue the interview during the journey. Zheng Shu asks her final question. "You left your family business and started your own. Why did you do this? Does your dad support you?" Hearing this, Shi Yan starts recalling the past. Shi Yan's dad had told him, "I'm getting old, so the future of Mingyu Group depends on you." But Shi Yan had replied, "My brother-in-law is more capable than me, and I want to do something meaningful for myself." Shi Yan then looks at his watch and says, "The 2 hours are over," and he doesn't answer her question. They arrive at the horse riding place. Shi Yan tells her, "You can leave now." Zheng Shu thinks, "How will I go back from here? I came in this car, so I'll go back in this car." Zheng Shu goes close Shi Yan and says, "I have one last question. Do you have a girlfriend?" Hearing this, Shi Yan is surprised. Zheng Shu quickly adds, "I'm asking just a curiosity of the readers." Shi Yan doesn't answer her question and leaves. At that moment, Uncle Guan arrives and asks Shi Yan, "Who is she?" Zheng Shu sees Mr. Guan and goes to him introducing herself. Mr. Guan says, "I've read many of your articles. They're very well written, but I didn't expect you to be so young." Hearing this compliment, Zheng Shu is happy. Mr. Guan adds, Shi Yan has never brought any girl here before, so I didn't prepare anything for you. Shi Yan is about to say something, but Zheng Shu sees the horses and exclaims, they're very beautiful. Mr. Guan says, the best horses are inside? Do you want to see them? Zheng Shu replies, yes. Mr. Guan then tells Shi Yan, show Zheng Shu everything. Zheng Shu follows Shi Yan. In a room, Shi Yan says, I'm going to change here. Zheng Shu replies, I'll wait for you. At that moment, Mr. Guan asks Zheng Shu, do you know how to ride a horse? Zheng Shu says, no. Mr. Guan says, my wife's riding clothes are here. You can wear them. Now that you're here, why don't you try it once? While changing clothes, Zheng Shu hears Shi Yan coming out and calls, Mr. Shi, I don't know how to wear this belt. Can you teach me? As soon as she hears Shi Yan's footsteps approaching, she quickly starts putting on her coat. Shi Yan hears the noise from inside and thinks to himself, she's trying to play tricks on me. While going out, he says, if you don't know how to wear it, then don't ride. When Zheng Shu comes out, Shi Yan is standing with his horse looking very good. Zheng Shu can't help but keep looking at him. Mr. Guan brings Shi Yan's horse for Zheng Shu. Zheng Shu asks, will you teach me to ride? Shi Yan replies, yes. Both of them get on the horse. Zheng Shu says, it's my first ride, so I'm a little nervous. Shi Yan starts teaching Zheng Shu how to ride. He makes her ride slowly at first, but then he tells her to hold on tightly and starts running the horse very fast. Zheng Shu is scared and screams. After the fast ride, Zheng Shu gets down from the horse. Shi Yan asks, what happened? You don't want to learn more? Zheng Shu replies, I was just experiencing it. Shi Yan does this intentionally. Seeing this, he smiles. Now, Zheng Shu sits on the side. Mr. Guan seeing her and says, this girl is very interesting. She seems like your type. Shi Yan responds, nothing is going on between us. Mr. Guan says, if you give it a chance, something could happen in the future. Zheng Shu overhearing and thinks, he's still glaring at me. He's just trying to embarrass me, but don't worry. You won't even think about meeting me in the future. When they are heading back, Shi Yan tells his driver, drop Zheng Shu at her house first. She looks at Shi Yan and thinks, he's very cool while working. After this, Zheng Shu falls asleep in the car. When Shi Yan sees her like this, he moves slightly forward, and Zheng Shu rests her head on his shoulder. When Zheng Shu opens her eyes, she realizes she's reached home and asks the driver, where's Shi Yan? The driver replies, Shi Yan had some work, so he told me to drop you off first. As she gets out of the car, she says to herself, how could I sleep in the interview car? This never happened before. While talking to herself, she touches her ear and realizes, my earring is still in Shi Yan's car. Later, due to the fast horse riding, Zheng Shu experiences cramps in her legs, but she continues working on her article. Meanwhile, as Shi Yan is driving back, he finds Zheng Shu's earring. The next day, Zheng Shu submits her article to Miss Yi. Miss Yi asks, do you have something to say? Zheng Shu says, I want to use the audio of Shi Yan's interview in the digital magazine. Miss Yi responds, it's a good idea, but we don't have the money right now. Zheng Shu suggests, when we upgrade the digital magazine, the readers will pay for our content. Miss Yi says, I'll talk to the editor-in-chief about this. Zheng Shu thanks her. Later, an employee, Nian, comes to Zheng Shu and says, Yuling interviewed Shi Yan and has submitted the article. I saw that she has copied your interview outline. Hearing this, Zheng Shu remembers that when she was asking Shi Yan questions, Shi Yan had stopped for a moment because he realized that she was asking the same questions again. Zheng Shu says, I didn't ask Shi Yan all the questions from the outline, but he has answered some questions again. She says, I embarrassed myself by horse riding and I slept in his car. I have made so many blunders. Nian adds, Shi Yan is a good person, because after giving the interview, he still interviewed you even though he was busy. Zheng Shu responds, he is not so good. His mood changes very quickly, and he feels good when others make mistakes in front of him, but he is not a bad person. After this, Zheng Shu is standing outside her office when Xing comes there. He says, I will give you a ride. Zheng Shu replies, it's not needed. Xing tells her, I am going to work at Mingyu Group for some days. At that time, Shen arrives and says to him, why do you have to wait for some days to work in the company? Your girlfriend's uncle can do it in just one sentence. Hearing all this, Xing gets angry and leaves. Later, Shen is telling Zheng Shu, it's difficult to decide whose headline coverage this is. Zheng Shu says, for new headline coverage, I have to meet Shi Yan again. Shen advises, you should find an opportunity to meet Shi Yan. Zheng Shu responds, he is very strange and I don't even have his WeChat. Shen says, now you have to fight for your goal. Shen is telling Zheng Shu about the tricks a girl used to meet Xian. After listening to this, Zheng Shu says, something of mine is also left with Xian. Hearing this, Shen says, this is a very good opportunity to meet him. On the other hand, when Xian is going back, he is seeing Zheng Shu's earring. Now, Zheng Shu calls Xian's assistant. The assistant gives the phone to Xian. Zheng Shu tells him, I think I dropped my earring in your car. Did you see it? Xian, seeing the earring, says, no, I didn't see it. Zheng Shu insists, this earring is very important to me, more than my life. This is because my grandmother gave it to my mother, and my mother gave it to me, and I will wear this earring on my wedding. Xian says, this important thing of yours is made of plastic. Zheng Shu explains, my grandparents were very poor, and if it is made of plastic, then even this is the most precious thing for my family. Hearing this, Xian laughs. Now, he gives the earring to his assistant and tells him, send it to Zheng Shu. Then assistant asks her, when do you need it? Zheng Shu says, I need it now. I am coming to take it. Now, after getting the location, Zheng Shu leaves to meet Xian. When Xian reaches home, he tells his niece, Siyue, stay in your room, don't come out until I call you. Then, Zheng Shu arrives at Xian's house. She says, I came to take back my thing. Xian shows her and says, your earring is lying there. When Zheng Shu goes to take her earring, she sees her favorite singer's album. She says, do you also like this single? At the same time, he gets a call from Guanji who says, you canceled your meeting and you are at home. Are you on a date with someone? Xian says, I am busy, and ends the call. Xian asks Zheng Shu, do you want to say something else? Zheng Shu starts asking him questions for her headline coverage. She says, I want to make a special series of you using your interview. Xian comes to her and asks, what would you like to drink? Zheng Shu says, lemonade. Then he goes to get it. When Xian is making lemonade for her, Zheng Shu is looking at him carefully. When Xian gives her the lemonade, she hears some footsteps from inside the room. Zheng Shu sees that there are some girls' clothes lying on the sofa. She says, maybe she is his girlfriend. She asks him, am I disturbing you and your girlfriend? He is surprised to hear the word girlfriend. Zheng Shu says, the girl in the room is not your girlfriend. Xian says, no, my niece might have a misunderstanding about us. Hearing about his niece, she takes the lemonade from Xian's hand and leaves immediately. Xian is looking at the earring and thinking that she left without taking it, but her trick was good. After reaching home, Zheng Shu thinks, I left the earring there, but how will I contact Xian now? I don't even have his number. She is very worried about what she will do now. When Xian goes to his room to sleep, he is thinking about Zheng Shu while looking at the earring. The next morning, when Zheng Shu is in the bathroom of her office, Yuling is talking to someone and says, I am very unlucky because Xian didn't answer any of my questions properly, and we just had a general conversation. Listening to this, Zheng Shu starts thinking, Xian gave me so much information. Yuling is telling someone on the phone, Zheng Shu can do something for the interview. She has ways. After hearing this, Zheng Shu goes to her, then Yuling's phone falls from her hand. While leaving, Zheng Shu tells Yuling, thank you for your compliment. Later, Zheng Shu goes to Miss Yi and tells her everything. Miss Yi says, I know, and I warned her too. Zheng Shu says, is warning her enough? She stole my headline coverage. Miss Yi responds, Yuling proved with her actions that you are better than her, and that is her failure. Zheng Shu asks, did Xian choose my interview outline? Miss Yi says, yes. When Siyue is having breakfast with Xian, she says, my uncle is not only good in business, but he also makes very good food. Xian says, eat quickly, you have to go to work. As soon as she listens to this, Siyue says, I remembered a very important task. Then Xian says, if you step out of this house, I will deactivate your card. Siyue goes back to her uncle and starts flattering him because she doesn't want to work. Xian says, a person does not work only for money, but while working, he realizes what meaningful thing he can do for society. After this, Xian goes to drop Siyue at her workplace. When Xian sees Zheng Shu there, he stops the car and keeps looking at her until she boards the lift. When Zheng Shu enters her office, Neon tells her, 2 new interns have joined our office. Miss Yi calls Zheng Shu to her office and tells her, these interns will now work with your team, and you will have to lead them. Zheng Shu says, I don't have time and energy to train a new intern. Miss Yi says, that's why I arranged a helper for you. After Miss Yi's request, Zheng Shu agrees. Now, her colleague Neon is looking at Siyue's resume. Her GPA is very bad, so she tells Zheng Shu, now, you have a new problem, you have to handle it. In the next scene, Yuling arrives for the interview with Guanji. As the interview is about to start, Guanji receives a call from Siyue. She says, please save me, My uncle has put me in jail. Guanji replies, do you know that when Shiyan makes up his mind, no one can change it? Hearing Shiyan's name, Yuling thinks, I can meet Shiyan through Guanji. After the call, Yuling starts the interview. When Yuling completes the interview, she asks Guanji, can I have your contact number? I want to confirm the draft with you. Knowing reporters often use this excuse to get contacts, Guanji says, I'm very happy to have had an interview with you, but I have some work now, so I have to go. After saying this, Guanji leaves. After this, Zheng Shu meets Siyue, who will be working in Zheng Shu's team from now on. Siyue is using her phone. When Zheng Shu sees her, she gives her a gift packet, but Zheng Shu returns it to her. Siyue goes to Zheng Shu with the gift and says, I just started working, so I don't know anything. I hope you will guide me in the future. This is a small gift for you. Zheng Shu replies, it is not needed. If you want to ask me anything, you can ask. Then she tells her, there is a recording of my interview in this recorder. You can organize the questions and answers. As Siyue is about to leave, Zheng Shu tells her to take the gift too. When Siyue listened to the interview, she realizes that Zheng Shu took this interview from her uncle. She sees that the interview is already 2 hours long and says, how can my uncle talk for so long? Then she accidentally pours water on the keyboard, causing her computer to shut down. Now, Siyue has to write the whole draft again. She leaves in anger. At that time, Yuling is introducing all the interns. Yuling asks Zheng Shu, where is your intern? Zheng Shu replies, she went home because office hours are over. Yuling tells her intern, come, we should go and work now, doing this just to tease Zheng Shu. Now, her colleague Nian tells Zheng Shu, Yuling's intern, Chung, graduated from the top media college and has also received an award for his work. Zheng Shu says, until I won't compare myself with Yuling, I won't feel bad. Later, Siyue goes to her grandpa's house for dinner. At that time, Shiyan also arrives. Siyue gets angry at her uncle, then complains about Shiyan to her grandpa. Shiyan's dad asks him, why did you choose the field of journalism for her? Shiyan replies, she can't do anything else. Shiyan's dad asks her, how was your day? She replies, I had to take a 2-hour interview myself. Shiyan's grandpa asks, who is your supervisor? She says, Zheng Shu. Shiyan says, Zheng Shu gave you this work. You should do it properly and try to learn more from her. But Siyue complains, today when I didn't understand anything, I asked Zheng Shu so many times, but she didn't even look at me once. Zheng Shu receives a message from Miss Yi that says, your interview has been reviewed. There is no issue, so we have sent it to Shiyan. Zheng Shu gets very happy after reading this message and says, it would have been nice if I could have talked directly to him about this interview. After coming home, Shiyan calls Mr. Yu and asks, do you have time in the next 2 days? Yu replies, I am going rock climbing. Will you come with me? Shiyan says, okay, send me the address. After this, Shiyan starts reading Zheng Shu's interview. The next morning, Nian and Zheng Shu discuss the interview being approved. Siyue hears this and says, the time has come when I have to tell her about my uncle. Now, Zheng Shu receives a message that her interview is not approved, with no reason mentioned. Zheng Shu doesn't understand anything, while Siyue gets very happy, thinking, my uncle loves me a lot. After the meeting ends, Miss Yi asks Zheng Shu, was there anything during the interview that might have made Shiyan angry? Zheng Shu replies, nothing happened, and if someone is angry, it should be me, because I'm about to fall from the horse that day. Miss Yi suggests, you should message Shiyan on WeChat and ask him about all this. Zheng Shu says, but I don't have Shiyan's WeChat. Miss Yi immediately sends Shiyan's number to her. On the other hand, Shiyan is going rock climbing with you. Yu says, I didn't think you were so good at rock climbing. Then Zheng Shu messages Shiyan, I want to talk to you about the interview draft. After waiting for a long time and not getting any reply, she calls Shen's assistant and asks, can you tell Shiyan that I want to discuss an important matter? The assistant tells Shiyan, Zheng Shu wants to talk to you. She said she has some important things to tell you, and also mentioned that she called you, but you didn't pick up. Shiyan checks his notifications and sees 10 missed calls. Assistant says, Zheng Shu seemed worried. Why don't you call her back? Shiyan replies, do you think I should call her back? But after a while, Zheng Shu gets a massage from him saying, I don't discuss private matters during working hours and in the working environment. Zheng Shu starts thinking, what does this mean? If it's about work, then there's a problem in my draft. I can go to Shiyan to discuss it. As for private matters, Shiyan still has my earring. She leaves the office with her bag. On the other hand, Shiyan starts thinking about Zheng Shu. Assistant comes to him and sees Shiyan about to leave. He asks, are you going to wait for Zheng Shu at your home? Meanwhile, Zheng Shu is going to Shiyan's house. She sees Shiyan's car on the way. She's about to knock on the car window when Shiyan gets out of the car and asks her, "Why did you come to meet me at this time?" Zhang Shu replies, "I felt like you want to see me, so I came here to meet you." Shi Yan asks her, "Why did you feel this?" Zhang Shu explains, "My senior editor, who is an expert in this industry, did not find any mistakes in my draft, but you rejected my draft 3 times without giving any feedback. Besides meeting, what is the reason for doing this?" Hearing this, Shi Yan looks at Zhang Shu for a while and then says, "My first reason is that I am not satisfied with your draft." Zhang Shu says, "If you are not satisfied with anything, tell me. I will rewrite it for you." But Shi Yan starts to leave. Then Zhang Shu stops him and says, "If you don't tell me what is wrong with my draft, then it means that you wanted to meet me. That's why you are doing this." Shi Yan says, "The focus of this interview should be on my work, not about my personal life." Zhang Shu says, "I accept whatever you say, but you can't ask me to rewrite the whole article just because of this one problem. It's too late now. I want to write this article perfectly, so please help me." She sits here and opens her laptop. Shi Yan is looking at her sitting like that and then says, "You can do this work after coming inside." Now Zhang Shu asks Shi Yan, "Is it okay to come to your home for so long?" Shi Yan says, "Don't worry, no one will disturb you." When they enter inside, Shi Yan quickly keeps Zhang Shu's earring in his pocket. When he is looking at her working, he is thinking that she really came here to edit the draft. Meanwhile, Guanji asks Si Yue, "Do you think this idea will work?" She says, "This gift is also very rare for my uncle." Guanji says, "This is a good plan, but if Shi Yan comes to know that you are giving him this gift because you don't want to get rid of work, then I don't know how he will react." Si Yue says, "No one is helping me, only this bottle of wine will save me." When Shi Yan sees Zhang Shu working, he makes lemonade for her and brings it to her. She thanks him, she is very happy to see him, and she keeps looking at him. Shi Yan takes a wine bottle for himself. Zhang Shu is looking at him, and she is unable to focus on her work. Then Shi Yan stands close to her. Zhang Shu is nervous because of him, and she is not able to write properly. She starts looking at him. Then Shi Yan says, "Did anything happen?" Zhang Shu says, "I want to drink this wine." Then Shi Yan brings wine for her. Shi Yan sits there and starts reading, but both of them keep looking at each other. Now, Si Yue calls Shi Yan, who is about to come there, but Shi Yan stops her. Zhang Shu hears this, then asks Shi Yan, "Is your niece coming back?" Shi Yan says, "You are quite interested in my niece." Zhang Shu laughs and says, "Why should I be interested in her? I don't even know her." Meanwhile, Si Yue tells Guanji, "My uncle refused me to come." Guanji says, "Last night also, he used the excuse of being busy. I think Shi Yan is hiding a girl at home." Listening to this, Si Yue gets very excited and says, "Finally, after 3 years, my uncle is meeting someone." Then she asks Guanji, "Did you meet that girl?" Guanji says, "Did Shi Yan has ever brought his girlfriend home?" Si Yue says, "No." Zhang Shu completes her work. She says to Shi Yan, "You read this once." But he is still not satisfied, and the Shi starts rewriting it. When Zhang Shu comes to Shi Yan to check her draft, Shi Yan says, "This is okay." Zhang Shu says, "If you are satisfied with my article, then can we move ahead?" Shi Yan says, "What do you mean by moving ahead?" Zhang Shu says, "I mean, can I do a special coverage with you now that I talked to you last time?" Shi Yan says, "If I move ahead with you, what will be my benefit?" Zhang Shu says, "I will write all the articles for your series, but I have a small request. I want all these articles to be published in the Financial Digital Magazine." Shi Yan says, "I didn't agree to your special coverage interview and you are asking me for another favor." Zhang Shu says, "I am sorry, I should have talked to you after the interview." Shi Yan doesn't reply to this. Zhang Shu says, "Can you send me the confirmation email for my draft?" Shi Yan says, "This will be done with the help of the PR department of my company. I will read it again tonight." Zhang Shu says, "I have no problem. If you find any problem later, you can tell me. I will edit it again." Shi Yan says, "You are working at a stranger's house at this time. Is your boyfriend not having a problem with this?" Zhang Shu says, "I don't have a boyfriend." Shi Yan is surprised to hear this. Zhang Shu says, "The day we met, I broke up with my boyfriend." Zhang Shu goes close to Shi Yan and says, "So can I chase you?" Shi Yan says, "If I refuse, will you stop?" Zhang Shu says, "No." Shi Yan says, "Then why are you asking me?" Zhang Shu says, "I am just following the process." Shi Yan gives Zhang Shu the laptop and says, "Your draft is complete. You can leave now." While leaving, Zhang Shu says, "I will add you on WeChat after going back. When you are bored, you can talk to me. I am very good at chatting." Shi Yan doesn't say anything, but opens the door for her. Now, Zhang Shu leaves from there. Now, Si Yue sees her uncle's girlfriend. She sees Zhang Shu coming out of the house. Guanji asks her, "Who is she?" Si Yue says, "This is my senior, I told you about her. My uncle doesn't like her because my uncle had already rejected her draft 3 times. When she enters inside, she sees a lipstick mark on the wine glass. She says, "There must be some girl here." Shiyan says, "I told you to go to your grandpa's house." Siyue says, "I came here to give you this wine." Shiyan says, "You should leave from here because you have to wake up early tomorrow." Siyue replies, "Why didn't you ask that girl to wait?" Shiyan says, "What girl are you talking about?" Siyue points towards the glass and says, "The girl with whom you were drinking. Was she not that beautiful, or did she reject you?" Now Zheng Shu is having dinner with Shen at home. She tells her, "For the first time in my life, I confessed to someone, but after listening to my confession, he threw me out of his house." Shen says, "Didn't you read novels? The more a boy loves a girl, he won't accept her that easily." Shiyan is exactly like that. Then she asks Zheng Shu, "Why did you confess to him today? Do you really have feelings for him?" Zheng Shu says, "How is that possible? I just told him that for my article." Shen says, "Something is fishy. I think you have feelings for him." Saying this, she leaves from there. On the other hand, Siyue tells Shiyan, "If you like her, then you should tell her." Shiyan replies, "Do you have time for these conversations? It seems the work that the magazine gave you is very easy. Why don't you come with me and do the work?" After listening to this, Siyue leaves from there. Now, Zheng Shu messages Shiyan, telling him about the weather and asks him to plan his travel according to the weather. On the other hand, Shiyan is reading the message. The next morning, when Zheng Shu comes to work, Siyue is looking at her very carefully and says, "Your lipstick is looking very nice." Zheng Shu takes out her lipstick and gives it to her. Siyue sees the lipstick and says, "It's not this one." On the other hand, Yu and Shiyan have come for the shooting. At that time, Yu receives a call from Zheng Shu. Shiyan is alerted after hearing Zheng Shu's name. Zheng Shu wants to interview Yu. Yu tells her, "I will check my schedule and let you know." Now, Yuling and Zheng Shu come to Miss Yi's office. Both of them want their work to be published on the front page. Miss Yi says, "If Shiyan's company doesn't reply by tonight, then we will publish Yuling's interview." Zheng Shu messages Shiyan, "Send me the confirmation email, it's urgent." But he ignores Zheng Shu's message and tells Yu, "Play another round." On the other hand, everyone in Zheng Shu's company is waiting for the interview to be published on the front page. Zheng Shu seems very worried. Shortly after, Miss Yi receives an email confirming that Zheng Shu's interview is approved. Miss Yi informs all her employees about this news, and Zheng Shu feels very happy. Zheng Shu then sends a thank you message to Shiyan, along with several other messages, which Shiyan reads and laughs at. The next day, Zheng Shu goes to meet Situmo, famous influencer. She says to Zheng Shu, "You must have become the chief editor by now." Zheng Shu replies, "No, I am still working in my previous position." Then Situmo asks Zheng Shu, "Are you still with Xing?" Zheng Shu replies, "No, we broke up." Situmo comments, "When Xing was dating you in college, he used to spend time with me when he couldn't go on dates with you." Hearing this, Shen gets angry, but Zheng Shu says, "It's all in the past." As they head back, Zheng Shu tells Shen, "Situmo is right. I shouldn't delay my plan to upgrade the digital magazine." Shen advises, "But you should focus more on Shiyan." Zheng Shu confidently says, "I'll work on the digital magazine and win Shiyan over too." Shiyan receives a message from Zheng Shu saying, "You should come to pick me up because I miss you." Just as Shiyan reads this message, he sees Zheng Shu standing on the road. Zheng Shu is looking at her phone when Shiyan arrives. Both Shen and Zheng Shu are surprised to see him. As Zheng Shu rides with Shiyan, she feels awkward and asks, "How did you come here so quickly?" Shiyan answers, "I was passing by." Zheng Shu asks, "Is your assistant not around?" Shiyan responds, "What do you need from him?" Zheng Shu says, "I was just thinking about what he is doing. I can just text him too." Shiyan doesn't seem pleased by this. When Shen gets out of the car, she asks Zheng Shu, "Why did you get out?" Zheng Shu says, "I saw you getting out, so I got out too." Shen says, "I was giving you two some space." Zheng Shu admits, "I didn't even look at his face. I don't know what I said wrong." Shen points out, "You called Shiyan here and talking to him about another boy. He must have been jealous." Zheng Shu replies, "How can Shiyan's be jealous to his assistant? That's impossible." Zheng Shu messages Shiyan, asking, "Were you jealous?" Shiyan replies, "You seem to have a lot of free time, and so do I." But Zheng Shu doesn't understand his message. Shen advises her, "If you don't understand the message, just ignore it for a few days." But Zheng Shu starts typing a reply, Shen trying to stop her, and accidentally sends a message with random letters to Shiyan instead. Shen says, "This is good. Let Shiyan guess what it means." Shen leaves after saying this. Shiyan tries to figure out the meaning of the message. Later that evening, Shiyu is out with Guanji. Shiyan sends Zheng Shu's message to Shiyu and asks, "What does this mean?" Shiyu is also puzzled by the message and shows it to Guanji, who says, "I don't know, maybe she sent it by mistake." At that moment, Shen arrives, who had invited by Guanji, but she is not pleased to see her with Shiyu. Then he steps aside to take a call. A boy comes up and sits near Shiyu asking for her number. Shiyu, uninterested, is about to leave, but the boy grabs her hand. Shen steps in and says to the boy, "Do you need a number?" She gives him her number and says, "I am free. You can call me later." The boy takes the number and leaves. Shiyu thanks Shen and asks, "Why did you give him your number? What if he bothers you later?" Shen replies, "I gave him the police's number." Shiyu laughs and says, "You are so smart." Meanwhile, Shiyan calls Guanji, worried about the strange message, and he is still thinking about her while looking at her earring. Later, Shiyu tell him about what happened. Guanji suggests, "You should have a drink with her to thank her." He asks Shiyu, "Where is Shen?" "Shen, you are leaving from there." But Guanji spots her and says, "Why didn't you join us for a drink?" Shen, looking a bit upset, tells him, "I'm tired. I'll drink with you some other time," and leaves. Shiyan is still thinking about the message. Zhengshu too waits for his reply. Later, Zhengshu meets with Yu and asks him that why he returned China from abroad. At that moment, Zhengshu gets a call from her mother, who pressures her about marriage. After the call, Yu says, "My mother is the same way, always pushing me to get married." Zhengshu says, "We should have met earlier. We have a lot in common." Yu agrees and Zhengshu asks, "I want to do a detailed interview with you." Yu replies, "I'd be happy to interview with you. Goyan Group's press conference is scheduled for next week. I invite you because it will be very informative for your interview." Zhengshu thanks him. Later, Zhengshu asks Siyue to shred the rejected drafts. When Shiyu is shredding the papers, another intern Chung arrives and says, "Let me know when you're free. I have to shred papers too." Shiyu replies, "You can leave your papers here. I'll shred them too." When Zhengshu returns to her desk, she asks, "Did you see my invitation card?" Zhengshu also asks Shiyu, who says, "I didn't see your invitation card either." Zhengshu then goes to check the papers in the shredder, discovering pieces of red paper from her invitation card. Yuling comes over and says, "Shiyu, you didn't do this on purpose, so don't blame her." Shiyu says, "I didn't do this because the invitation card wasn't in my papers." Zhengshu says, "It's okay. They invited me, and I can still find a way to attend even without the invitation card." As Yuling is about to leave, Zhengshu tells her, "Your team's drafts were attached to the invitation card." Yuling questions Chung, who explains, "I was here to shred the papers, but Shiyu shredded them for me." She realizes Yuling gave those drafts to her, along with the invitation card, and apologizes to Zhengshu. Zhengshu reassures her, "I know it's not your fault." Meanwhile, Shuyan sees that his audio interview is featured in Zhengshu's magazine. He thinks about posting it on WeChat, but realizes, "We're not friends on WeChat, so she won't see it." Back at home, Shiyu is talking to Guanji about the invitation for Zhengshu. Shiyan asks her, "Did she ask you to handle it personally?" Shiyu says, "No, I wanted to do it for her." The next day, when Zhengshu arrives at the office, she finds the invitation card on her desk. Zhengshu asks Shiyu, "Who put this on my desk?" Shiyu says, "I did. I called the PR department of Goyan Group and explained the situation, so they provided another invitation card." Zhengshu thanks her. Shiyu offers Zhengshu a gift, but Zhengshu says, "I should be the one thanking you." Seeing the gift, she, thinking to herself if Shiyu's family is from wealthy family, because she have connections with Goyan Group. Zhengshu says, "I can't accept this gift. If you want to thank me, work hard instead." After this, Zhengshu attends the press conference, where Shiyan is also present. She is impressed to see him giving a speech. Then, Yu is giving a speech at the conference, and Shiyan's eyes fall on Zhengshu. Zhengshu introduces Shen to Mr. Yu, saying, "She is my very good friend, and she is a journalist in the entertainment industry." Yu responds, "I will also introduce you to my friends." He looks towards Shiyan and adds, "One of them is gone." Then, Yu introduces both of them to Guanji. Later, Zhengshu is looking at her phone at the office and says, "Shiyan never replies to my serious messages, so I will try sending him a nonsense message." On the other hand, Shiyan is celebrating with Yu because a big investor, Bruce, has finally joined his company. At that moment, Shiyan receives a message from Zhengshu and smiles after reading it. Guanji comes to him and says, "You have been behaving strangely these days. Where did you go during the press conference today?" But Shiyan doesn't give a proper answer. Zhengshu, tired of waiting, messages Shiyan, "Why are you not replying to my messages?" After this, when Zhengshu reaches home, Shiyan messages her, asking, "You're behaving like a nonsense person." Zhengshu, surprised after reading the message. The next day, Nan tells Zhengshu, "The time of Mingyu Group's annual conference is fixed. You must have received the invitation." Zhengshu checks her phone immediately, but there is no message, so she looks upset. Just then, Zheng Shu sees that a courier has come from Mingyu Group. Seeing this, she gets very happy, thinking Xian sent her the invitation, but the courier is for Yuling. Yuling is very happy to receive the invitation from Mingyu. Zheng Shu looks disappointed. After this, Zheng Shu goes to Miss Yi's office. Miss Yi sees that she is upset and says, "There is nothing to be sad about. You have covered so many front pages this year." Zheng Shu says, "I am going to do special coverage for Mingyu, so I have to go to the conference." Miss Yi says, "If you go to the conference, you should take Shiyu with you." Zheng Shu replies, "My going is not confirmed yet. How can I take Shiyu with me? I don't think I can guide Shiyu." Miss Yi says, "I know that she doesn't know much, but I am sure she will learn from you." Zheng Shu agrees. After coming out of Miss Yi's office, Zheng Shu tells Shiyu, "You should collect information about Mingyu's press conference, and you will come with me that day." Shiyu says, "But you don't have the invitation." Zheng Shu says, "It's my work, you don't have to worry about it." On the other hand, Xian thinking about Zheng Shu. He calls his office and asks, "Did all the media houses receive the invitation?" He says yes. All Median House has accepted the invitation. Later, Yuling arrives at the conference and is surprised to see that she is given the front seat. The staff tells her, "Your media house is a very important partner, so the CEO asked us to give you the front seat." Hearing this, Yuling is very happy. Now, when Shiyan enters the conference hall, he doesn't like seeing Yuling there. At that time, the manager comes to Shiyan and says, "We have given the front row seats to our good media partners." Shiyan tells the manager, "You should work on your work skills." After saying this, Shiyan leaves. The manager tells Shiyan's assistant, "You told us to take special care of the female journalist who will come from Lin Media House." Assistant says, "Come with me." The manager goes to Yuling and says, "There was a mistake from our staff. They made you sit in the wrong seat." Shiyan is sitting in the lounge and is about to message Zheng Shu but doesn't. Now, Shen takes Shiyu and Zheng Shu inside with her. The staff tells Shen, only one staff member is allowed with one invitation card. Hearing this, Zheng Shu tells Shen, "Take Shiyu inside. I will think about something for myself." Shiyu says, "I will wait here with you." Shiyu sees her uncle coming and goes inside quickly. Zheng Shu goes to Shiyan and says, "You are very busy these days." Shiyan goes ahead without replying to her. Zheng Shu enters the conference through the VIP route. When she enters inside and sees Yuling, she asks Shiyan, "Does Yuling interview better than me?" Shiyan says, "It is not my job to send invitations." Assistant takes Zheng Shu to her seat and says, "Shiyan specifically arranged this seat for you. Due to the mistake of our PR department, the invitation went to Yuling instead of you." Zheng Shu tells assistant, "I have 2 more colleagues with me. Is there any problem if we sit together?" Assistant says, "No problem." Then Shen and Shiyu also come and sit there. The conference starts, and Shiyan makes a grand entry. Zheng Shu messages Shiyan, "You are the coolest CEO." Shiyan reads her message but doesn't react. Now, Shiyan starts his speech. Zheng Shu asks, "Shiyue, are you feeling all right?" Shiyue replies, "Mr. Xian is looking at me, so I feel scared." Zheng Shu looks at Xian and says, "You shouldn't worry, he is looking at me." The conference continues, but Shiyue feels very bored, so she says to Zheng Shu, "I'm going to use the restroom," using it as an excuse to leave the conference. However, Xian notices her leaving and announces, "The first half of the presentation is over," addressing Shiyue. During the break, a boy named Bo Ming approaches Zheng Shu and says, "I'm a journalist and I did my internship at Financial Review." They add each other on WeChat. Seeing them, Xian feels jealous and calls Zheng Shu over to his side. Zheng Shu looks pleased and says, "He's getting jealous." She walks over to Shiyan and asks, "Is there anything I can help you with?" Shiyan asks, "Where's the journalist who was sitting with you?" Zheng Shu responds, "Shiyue has gone out." Shiyan tells Zheng Shu, "Contact Shiyue for me." Zheng Shu calls Shiyue and asks, "Where are you?" Shiyue answers, "I'm in the lobby, but I'll come back if you ask me to." Zheng Shu then says, "If you're not feeling well, you don't need to come back." Shiyue doesn't understand what Zheng Shu is discussing with her. Shiyan asks, "Where did she go?" And Zheng Shu replies, "She went home because she wasn't feeling well." Shiyan inquires, "What's wrong with her?" Zheng Shu answers, "She has CEO phobia, and whenever she sees someone like you, she can't breathe. But I am very different from her because whenever I see you, I feel happy and excited." A man approaches them and announces, "The second half of the conference is about to begin." Hearing this, Shiyan leaves. Meanwhile, Shiyue is trying to get coffee, but the coffee machine isn't working properly. Yu appears and touches the machine, causing Shiyue's coffee to come out. Shiyue, finding Yu cute, says, "Thank you." Yu leaves, and when Shiyue returns to the conference, she sees Yu giving a speech. Hearing Yu, Shiyue remembers that she heard his interview while writing the draft, and she really liked him at that time. Now, seeing him, she feels very happy. After the conference ends, many reporters surround Shiyan, asking questions. Zhengshu is leaving when she gets a call from Shiyue, who asks who was giving a speech on the stage just now. Zhengshu answers, Shiyan was giving the speech. Shiyue hangs up and thinks, why these all always focused on my uncle? They doesn't notice anyone else. At that moment, Shiyan approaches Shiyue and scolds her. This was your first press conference, and you weren't even attentive, you were sleepy. Shiyue replies, I will work hard in the future and it won't happen again. Please forgive me, uncle. She holds Shiyan's arm. Later, when Zhengshu goes out with Yu, she feels jealous seeing them together. Shiyue notices Zhengshu watching them and says to her uncle, if you don't want my senior to know about our relationship, you should let me go. Shiyan signals her, and she leaves. As Shiyan is walking toward Zhengshu, she says, I have some important work, and leaves. Shiyan then asks Yu, what did she say to you? Yu replies, she invited me for dinner and interview. As Zhengshu is leaving, she notices Shiyan following her but tells herself, I won't talk to him now. She has to stop because there's no way forward. Shiyan asks, why are you standing here? What are you doing? Zhengshu answers, I'm praying. Shiyan tells Zhengshu, I'm leaving. And Zhengshu says, go, I won't stop you. Shiyan takes her hand and says, I'm taking you home. They walk back together, but Zhengshu, feeling jealous, doesn't talk to him. Shiyan says, it will rain at 8 o'clock tonight. Zhengshu asks, will you bring an umbrella for me? At that moment, Shiyan receives a call and gets busy talking, and Zhengshu falls asleep, leaning toward Shiyan. He gently puts his hand under her head and waits until she wakes up. When Zhengshu opens her eyes and sees Shiyan, she says, I need to talk to you about something important. Shiyan gets exited, but she talks about her special coverage, so he becomes displeased. He tells her, if you want to meet me, you should make an appointment through the assistant. Zhengshu thanks him for dropping her off at home and leaves. After reaching home, Zhengshu thinks, Shiyan came to drop me off, but he was flirting with Shiyue in the morning. She feels angry, thinking, Shiyan is trying to have a relationship with two girls at the same time. Shiyan, meanwhile, is feeling upset at the office. Zhengshu and Shiyan call Ganzi and Shen together, who had spent the night with each other, both of them inviting them to have drinks, but both refuse. Zhengshu and Shiyan are surprised by their refusal. The next day at the office, Shiyue wonders, how can I contact you? Zhengshu talks to her mother, who says, you should go on a blind date. Zhengshu refuses, I won't go. Her mother insists, and Zhengshu agrees reluctantly, I'll go after I finish my work. In a meeting, Ms. Yi tells everyone, Shiyan's interview received a very good response. You should all learn from Zhengshu's hard work, Yu Ling. Feeling jealous, her colleagues tell Zhengshu, everyone wants to celebrate your success with a party today. Zhengshu ignores them and focusing on her work. Yu Ling goes to her and says, we are talking to you. Then Zhengshu says, I was wearing earphones to avoid noise. That's why I couldn't hear your voice. Then Yunling says, everyone is asking treat for your success. She says, you can choose any place. I'm ready to treat you. Shiyue then realizes, so Zhengshu didn't respond to me on the first day because she was wearing special headphones. I spoke so badly about her in front of my uncle. When Shiyan goes to Shiyue, she tells him, Zhengshu didn't intentionally ignore me on the first day. Shiyan asks, what are you trying to say? Shiyue replies, there was a misunderstanding, and I want to apologize to her, but she don't know that I have said so many bad things about her in front of you. Uncle, you also don't treat Zhengshu well. Why don't you go and apologize to her? Shiyan tells her, resolve this matter as soon as possible. On the other hand, Zhengshu tells Shen, Shiyan knows Shiyue, and he cares about her a lot. Shen says, Shiyue's family is strong too. They might be a good match. Why are you upset? Are you jealous? Zhengshu denies, I'm not jealous, but I have feelings for him. Shen is surprised and advises, if both of you work together, people will gossip. You shouldn't start a relationship that has no future. Zhengshu responds, when it comes to relationships, I always follow my heart. Meanwhile, Shiyan is looking at Zhengshu's messages but hasn't replied. Zhengshu thinks, he must want to have dinner with me. Maybe I should invite him to the concert. Shiyan also likes Song Li's music. Shiyan, on the other hand, thinks about taking her to the concert. Zhengshu notices someone has added her on WeChat under the name SY. She realizes that's Shiyan's name and feels happy. She invites Shiyan to the concert, and he agrees. Zhengshu feels surprised and happy that her plan worked so quickly. Shen also invites Ganzi to the concert, and Ganzi agrees. The next day, Zheng Shu arrives at the concert and waits for Shiyan. When Shiyan appears, Zheng Shu feels overjoyed to see him, but it turns out this was all a dream. After waking up, she sends a message to Shiyan saying, "Don't forget about the concert tonight." Zheng Shu is busy getting ready, and on the other side, Shiyan is also preparing himself. A while later, Zheng Shu sets out for the concert. At a stall, she finds a hairband she really likes. Looking at it, she thinks that Zheng Shu and Shiyan will wear matching couple hairbands, and this thought makes her very happy. Zheng Shu is waiting for Shiyan when a sports car pulls up. Zheng Shu gets excited, but instead of Shiyan, Shiyue steps out of the car. Zheng Shu is surprised and asks, "What a coincidence." Shiyue replies, "It's not a coincidence, you invited me here." Zheng Shu was about to say that she didn't invite Shiyue when she remembers that there was only written SY on WeChat, and Shiyue's name also starts with those same letters. To avoid embarrassment, Zheng Shu says, "I was just kidding." Shiyue walks inside. Zheng Shu feels bad because she knows she won't be able to enjoy the concert with Shiyan due to her mistake. At the same concert, Shiyan also arrives. Shen, Gongzi, and Yu also attending the concert. Shiyue asks Zheng Shu, "What's wrong?" Zheng Shu replies, "This song is very sad." Shiyue says, "You also went through a breakup, so you are feeling emotional." Zheng Shu clarifies, "I'm not emotional about that. My ex-boyfriend cheated on me." Shiyue says, "You are so beautiful. I can't believe he cheated on you." Zheng Shu explains, "He cared more about money than me, and the girl he was having an affair with has a very wealthy uncle." Shiyue advises, "You shouldn't think too much about it." Both of them start enjoying the concert. Shiyue is leaving when she sees Yu and says, "Is he also a fan of my mom?" She sends a message to her mom, "Mom, I need your limited edition album." Just then, Yu encounters Zheng Shu. Zheng Shu says, "What a coincidence, we meet here." Yu explains, "Shiyan gave me tickets, so I came to enjoy the concert." Zheng Shu asks, "Can we do the interview this week?" Yu says, "We can do the interview this Tuesday." Zheng Shu doesn't have any problem with the date. Yu is about to offer to drop Zheng Shu home when Shiyan sees them together. Then Zheng Shu says, "Thanks, but my cab is coming." Yu leaves. Zheng Shu is waiting for her cab when Shiyan stops his car. Seeing him, Zheng Shu starts acting and says, "My ankle is twisted. This happened because of you, so you are responsible." Shiyan asks for the reason. Zheng Shu says, "Whenever I see you, I lose focus on the road." Just then, Zheng Shu receives a call and steps aside to answer it. Shiyan sees her walking and realizes she was just acting, so he leaves. Zheng Shu tries to stop Shiyan, but he doesn't stop. She runs after him to stop him, and she actually twists her ankle. Shiyan is watching Zheng Shu through his side mirror. Zheng Shu keeps yelling at Shiyan, "How can anyone be so heartless? People like him should grow old alone." Shiyan drives back to her and hears what she said. Zheng Shu says, "I will explain it all to you in the car." They are stopped at a signal when Shiyan says, "You haven't explained anything yet." Zheng Shu says, "My ankle is hurting so much." Shiyan looks at her and says, "You can still talk so much even with your injury." Shiyan takes Zheng Shu to the hospital and says, "Let's go and see the doctor." Zheng Shu says, "My ankle is hurting. I can't walk." Shiyan says, "You are exaggerating things." Zheng Shu says, "Are you made of stone?" Shiyan says, "You said yourself that I have no heart." Zheng Shu says, "Try wearing these shoes yourself. Then you will understand how much pain you feel if you sprain your ankle." Shiyan lifts her, takes her out of the car, and starts taking her to the hospital. Zheng Shu says to Shiyan, "Did your ex-girlfriend ever tell you that you look very handsome in this angel?" Shiyan says, "Did your ex-boyfriend ever tell you that you are very heavy?" Zheng Shu replies, "No one has ever lifted me like this, but you could be the first boyfriend to did it." Shiyan doesn't respond to her. When the doctor is examining Zheng Shu tells the doctor, "My ankle is hurting so much." Shiyan steps outside to answer a call. Zheng Shu immediately acts normal. The doctor understands that Zheng Shu was faking it. The doctor says, "Your boyfriend is handsome, but he seems a bit unromantic and heartless." Zheng Shu says, "Don't say that." Outside, Shiyan hears this conversation and smiles. Zheng Shu says, "He doesn't even have a heart." Hearing this, Shiyan's smile disappears and he leaves. Zheng Shu waits for Shiyan, but the nurse comes with a wheelchair. The nurse puts Zheng Shu in the wheelchair and takes her to Shiyan. Zheng Shu says to Shiyan, "I still can't walk." Shiyan is coming towards Zheng Shu when a cat passes by. Zheng Shu gets scared and runs to Shiyan. Now realizing that Shiyan has figured out her act, she says, "The doctor has treated me very well." Shiyan asks, "Can you get in the car yourself now?" Zheng Shu quickly gets in the car. On the way back, he gets a call from Gongzi and puts it on speakerphone. He asks Shi Yan, "Are you still in touch with your ex-girlfriend who was very beautiful? Because my friend wants to cast her in a movie. If you don't mind, can you introduce her?" Shi Yan replies, "I think her acting skills are average. The girl sitting with me in the car have much better acting skills." Hearing this, Gongzi hangs up the call, while Zheng Shu is extremely embarrassed. Shu Yan goes to see Shu Yue and her mom. Shu Yue's mom asks, "What's going on between you and your senior?" Shu Yue replies, "I sent my senior a WeChat request, and she accepted it immediately. After that, she also invited me to the concert." Shu Yan is surprised and asks, "She invited you to the concert?" Shu Yue says, "But she acted very strange. It seemed like she didn't invite me." Shi Yan understands the situation. He congratulates his sister for her talent. Shu Yue receives a message from Zheng Shu. Seeing this, Shu Yue says, "Mom, do you know that uncle is dating another actress? Gongzi told me about it." Shu Yue's mom asks, "Who is she?" Shi Yan says, "They are just making up stories." Shu Yue's mom says, "Uncle Shang has a family gathering tomorrow. If you are not dating anyone, take Shu Yue with you." Shu Yan says, "Okay." Zheng Shu transfers the money for the hospital bill to Shu Yan, but Shu Yan sends the money back to Zheng Shu and says, "You can keep this check as payment for your acting today." They continue talking. Zheng Shu invites Shu Yan for dinner tomorrow. Shi Yan agrees. Zheng Shu sends Shu Yan pictures of her dresses and asks, "Which one should I wear?" Shi Yan tells her, "The red one." But none of the dresses in the pictures she sent were red. The next day, Zheng Shu goes shopping for a red dress. When Zheng Shu steps out of the trial room, she sees that Xing has arrived with his girlfriend. Xing's girlfriend Chen Li is wearing the same dress as Zheng Shu. Chen Li is jealous because Zheng Shu looks prettier in the dress. Meanwhile, Shi Yan has gone horseback riding with Gongzi and Yu. Zheng Shu sends him pictures of her dress. Shi Yan is smiling while looking at his phone. Gongzi says, "If you don't have a date, I will go with you tonight." But Shi Yan says, "I am not going on a date with you," and leaves. On the other side, Chen Li and Zheng Shu are competing with each other by trying different dresses. Chen Li is buying a lot of clothes to show off to Zheng Shu. A worker comes up to Zheng Shu and says, "These clothes look great on you. Are you going to buy them all?" But Zheng Shu doesn't want to buy so many clothes. Just then, Shu Yue arrives and says to Zheng Shu, "You've already chosen your clothes, so don't think about it too much." She pays for all the clothes quickly. Zheng Shu says to Shu Yue, "You shouldn't buy all these clothes." Shu Yue says, "Don't worry, I am paying with my uncle's card." Zheng Shu says, "That's even worse, because I don't even know your uncle." Shu Yue says, "You want these clothes, so you can't change your mind now. And you have to maintain your status in front of Chen Li." Shu Yue insists, and Zheng Shu has to agree. Shu Yue says to Chen Li, "You picked the most worst clothes in the store. You saved me time by doing that." Hearing this, Chen Li gets angry, so Xing takes her away from there. Zheng Shu is coming back to home when Shi Yan is waiting for her in the car. She thinks to herself, "Maybe I overdressed a bit." Zheng Shu is going home, but Shi Yan comes to her. Shi Yan asks, "Where are you going?" Zheng Shu replies, "I am going inside to change of clothes." Zheng Shu is about to leave when Shi Yan stops her and says, "No need to change clothes, you look great in this." He takes her to the car to sit down. He takes her to a place. Zheng Shu asks, "What are you looking at?" Shi Yan says, "You look very beautiful today." Hearing this, Zheng Shu starts smiling. Shi Yan tells her that it's time to go to the family banquet. Zheng Shu says, "You were supposed to have dinner with me, weren't you?" Shi Yan says, "Isn't it also an option to have dinner with you?" Zheng Shu says, "This dinner is not what I had in mind." As they enter, everyone starts gossiping about how this is Shi Yan's new girlfriend. Zheng Shu is getting very bored at this dinner when she receives a message from Xing. He is apologizing to her and says, "I need to talk to you about something very important." When Shi Yan is about to say something, he notices her messages and she feels very embarrassed. Xing asks, "What are you doing?" She quickly types, "I am picking out a cake." Just then, a waitress arrives with a cake that Shi Yan had ordered for Zheng Shu. Zheng Shu thinks to herself, "I can't believe Shi Yan is making fun of me in front of all these people." The people around them start discussing whether Shi Yan's new girlfriend knows why his ex-girlfriend left him. One lady scoffs, "Why would she care? She must have seen more than just his looks, his family background as well." Hearing these comments, Zheng Shu gets angry. As she turns around, she suddenly sees Shi Yan standing right there. Shi Yan notices that Zheng Shu is upset and gently asks, "Do you want something to eat?" Zheng Shu snaps, "No! I'm tired. We should go back now." They leave together, but Zheng Shu is still upset because of those harsh comments she overheard. Shi Yan, of course, notices her mood. When they finally arrive at Zheng Shu's home, she thanks Shi Yan for everything and starts to walk away. Shi Yan quickly follows and calls out, "Zheng Shu, wait!" But she doesn't stop. Shi Yan grabs her arm. "Can't you hear me?" Zheng Shu replies, "Yes, I can hear you." Shi Yan asks, "Then why aren't you happy?" Zheng Shu stays silent. Shi Yan asks, "What did you get out of dinner tonight?" Zheng Shu says, "I heard a few things about you." Shi Yan steps closer and asks, "Do you believe those things?" Zheng Shu responds, "No, I only believe what you tell me." Shi Yan then asks, "Do you want to know more about me?" Zheng Shu replies, "Is it possible for me to not know?" They both get into the car, the tension still thick in the air. Shi Yan then says, "What more do you want to know? They've already talked about my personal life and work." Zheng Shu replies, "How can they know everything about you? If we can judge someone after only a few meetings, then you must be a wise and handsome businessman in my eyes." Shi Yan smirks. "If you hadn't told me this, I would have never known you think so highly of me." Zheng Shu quickly clarifies, "I was just giving an example, that's not what I meant." Just as Shi Yan is about to kiss her, a security guard suddenly knocks on the window. "You can't park here!" Zheng Shu feels embarrassed. She quickly exits the car and rushes home. Shi Yan stays behind, watching her leave. Later, Zheng Shu calls Shen and says, "Shi Yan have seen the messages from my ex-boyfriend." Shen replies, "Good. He needs to know that other guys are chasing you. Just wait and see what Shi Yan will do next." Shen hangs up because she's with Gongzi. Meanwhile, Zheng Shu is still thinking about what Shi Yan really wants. The next day, Zheng Shu is in her office when her mother calls and says, "Can you meet my friend's son this weekend? He just came back from abroad and he's very handsome. You should definitely meet him." Zheng Shu is uninterested in blind date and refuses. Her mother, not giving up, asks, "What kind of guy do you want?" Zheng Shu thinks of Shi Yan and ends up telling her mother about her idol boyfriend. Her mother, excited, says, "He fits all your requirements. I'm sending you his WeChat now." But when Zheng Shu checks, the WeChat ID belongs to Mr. Yu. Zheng Shu tells her mother, "Okay, I'll go meet him." Meanwhile, Yu is waiting for the girl his mother set him up with. When Zheng Shu arrives, she says, "I didn't expect it to be you." Yu, equally surprised, says, "If you knew about this, why didn't you message me on WeChat?" Zheng Shu replies, "If I had, my mom would have known that we already know each other." At the same time, Shi Yan is in his office thinking about Zheng Shu. He texts her, asking, "When will you come to get your things back?" Zheng Shu, on her way back from the restaurant, replies, "What did I forget to bring?" Shi Yan texts back, "You forgot your shopping bags." Zheng Shu suddenly remembers she left them at his place and replies, "Can you deliver them?" Shi Yan replies, "I'm very busy, I can't." Zheng Shu then says, "Wait, I'll come and get them myself." As soon as Shi Yan sees the message, he leaves his office. At home, Shi Yan is cooking dinner. He finishes cooking just as Zheng Shu arrives. As soon as she enters, Shi Yan invites her to eat. Zheng Shu happily sits down and enjoys the food, asking, "Where did you order this from?" Shi Yan smiles and replies, "It's from a place where you can't order food." Zheng Shu then asks about the special report. "Can we start working on it?" Shi Yan replies, "I don't talk about work during my private time." Zheng Shu quickly finishes her dinner and asks, "Where's my stuff?" Shi Yan brings her the bags. She thanks him and leaves in a hurry. Shi Yan, disappointed, watches her go, wishing he could have spent more time with her. When Zheng Shu is on her way back, Miss Shu calls her and says, "There's a big event you need to attend." Zheng Shu replies, "Okay, we'll talk about it tomorrow." Meanwhile, Shen is out with her colleagues when she spots Gongzi drinking with another girl. Shen is not happy. The next morning, Zheng Shu returns everything she took from the office and heads out to attend the event. In the office, Shu Wei is thinking about contacting Yu. She tells Nian, "Don't be lazy. I'm keeping an eye on you," instead of Zheng Shu. Shu Wei realizes she has collected a lot of information about Yu. As she reads through it, she gets an idea. She decides to go to the university where Yu teaches. During Yu's lecture, she finds herself just staring at him, thinking he looks even better in person. But soon, she starts feeling sleepy and accidentally falls asleep. When she wakes up, the lecture is over, and she rushes to Yu asking, "Can I add Yu on WeChat? I have some questions about the lecture that I didn't understand." Fu replies, "You can ask me now if there's anything you didn't understand." Shu Yue says, "Do you remember we met at the press conference?" Yu replies, "I remember, but what do you want?" Shu Yue says, "I just want to add you on WeChat." Yu replies, "Are you just coming all this way to get my WeChat?" She quickly explains, "I'm an intern in the financial introduction department, and Zheng Shu is my supervisor." Yu, interested after hearing Zheng Shu's name. Then she asks, "Can I come to your next class?" Yu responds, yes, but don't fall asleep in my class next time. Finally, Yu adds Shu Yue on WeChat. Later, Zhengzhu is talking to Shen, telling her about her last encounter with Shiyan. Shen suggests, you're on a business trip now. Post a picture of your surroundings on WeChat. Zhengzhu replies, okay, and does exactly that. On the other hand, Shiyan and Shiyue are having dinner when Shiyue receives some messages. Seeing these, Shiyan says to Shiyue, I didn't know you could get things returned as well. Shiyan shows the message to her, and she says, I didn't get this returned. It was Zhengzhu who got it returned. Shocked, Shiyan starts asking her about this. Shiyue then tells him, I bought Zhengzhu some clothes because I wanted to say sorry. Zhengzhu wanted to get the clothes back, but I didn't let her. Hearing this, Shiyan wants to message Zhengzhu but can't. So Shiyue says, Zhengzhu is very passionate about her work, and she's still on a business trip. Hearing about the business trip, Shiyan starts to think. On the other hand, Zhengzhu is working on a business trip and is also uploading posts on her WeChat, which Shiyan is watching. Zhengzhu looks at her phone and says, I've uploaded so many posts, but Shiyan hasn't liked any of them, or even tried to contact me. At that moment, Shen arrives. Zhengzhu asks her, what are you doing here? Shen replies, I came with a colleague on a business trip. Zhengzhu asks Shen, did something happen to you? Shen says no. At night, while Zhengzhu is thinking, Shen receives a call from Gongzi. Gongzi asks her to meet him. Shen says, I'm on a business trip. Gongzi asks her, when are you coming back? Shen says, I don't know. Saying this, she hangs up the call. The next morning, Zhengzhu wakes up and sees it's snowing. Seeing this, she gets very excited. Shiyan is looking at Zhengzhu's posts and says, she's having so much fun here that she doesn't even miss home. On the other hand, Shen and Zhengzhu are playing in the snow, and Shen takes some pictures of Zhengzhu and posts them quickly. Shen says, trust me, Shiyan will contact you soon. After seeing this, Shiyan is looking at Zhengzhu's post and thinks, maybe she's having so much fun here that she doesn't want to come back. Shiyan now messages Zhengzhu and asks, when are you coming back? Seeing this, Shen says, he misses you. Zhengzhu is about to reply, but Yuling stops her and says, you don't need to reply so quickly. You should give Shiyan some space so that he can realize your worth. Zhengzhu sends a question mark in the message. So Shiyan says, Uncle Gong wants to meet you. Zhengzhu asks, why does he want to meet me? Shiyan tells her, Uncle Gong wants to interview you. In reply, Zhengzhu sends Shiyan a thank you message. Shiyan says, are you coming back home now? Zhengzhu says, yes, I'll be back very soon. On the other hand, Zhengzhu is very excited because she's going to interview Uncle Gong. When Zhengzhu is coming back, she messages Shiyan, I'm back. We'll meet soon. On the other side, Shiyan has already reached Uncle Gong, and at this time, someone hits Zhengzhu's car. Now the taxi driver and the man are arguing. Zhengzhu gets a call from Shiyan, who says, Uncle Gong is waiting for you. Zhengzhu replies, I'm sorry, I'm on my way. Hearing their fight in the background, Shiyan asks, what's happening there? Zhengzhu tells him, someone hit my car. Shiyan says, send me the address. I'll send my assistant to pick you up. As soon as Shiyan's car arrives, Zhengzhu rushes to it. Shiyan comes out and asks, are you okay? Zhengzhu says, I'm fine. When she checks the time, she exclaims, I'm going to be very late for the interview. Quickly, take my bag from the car. She grabs the bag, hands it to Shiyan, and quickly gets into the car. Shiyan picks up her bag and moves ahead. Shiyan and Zhengzhu then arrive at Uncle Gong's place. Before the interview begins, Mr. Gong offers Zhengzhu some tea. Zhengzhu says, I don't usually drink tea. Shiyan interjects, you should try it. It even has snow water in it. Zhengzhu asks, what's so special about snow water? Shiyan responds, don't you like snow? Uncle Gong chimes in, how do you know that Zhengzhu likes snow? Shiyan replies, I saw her WeChat posts. Shiyan then steps outside as Zhengzhu begins the interview with Mr. Gong. Shiyan watches her from outside. When the interview ends, Shiyan tells Uncle Gong, lunch is ready. Zhengzhu tries to leave, but Uncle Gong insists, you can't leave without lunch. During lunch, Uncle Gong praises Zhengzhu's work. He says, who wouldn't want to interview an intelligent female journalist? Zhengzhu says, Shiyan likes female journalists very much too. Shiyan looks at her angrily. Zhengzhu insists, I'm not wrong. At the last press conference, my colleague who came with me, you were looking at her for a long time. Shiyan denies, I didn't do anything like that. They start arguing, and Uncle Gong quietly leaves them alone. Zhengzhu says, but you seemed very worried about her that day. Shiyan explains, I was just teasing you that day. Zhengzhu asks, are you telling the truth? Shiyan responds, what should I do to convince you? Zhengzhu replies, I want to eat these shrimp. Shiyan just looks at her. Zhengzhu continues, if you don't peel them for me, then I will. She peels one shrimp and gives it to Shiyan. Seeing this, Shiyan is very happy. Then, as they head outside, Shiyan asks Zhengshu to get in the car. Zhengshu says, "The weather is so good today. I want to walk. Will you walk with me?" Shiyan teases, "Your demands keep growing." Zhengshu smiles, "I'm not just making demands. I've also written a poem for you. It means you were jealous when I was playing with snow." Shiyan laughs and says, "You're right." Now Zhengshu wants to do special coverage on his company. She is talking to Shiyan about it, and Shiyan says, "Okay, you can do that. But I have 2 conditions. First, you will understand how my company works. And second, you will understand my philosophy of work." Zhengshu says, "I can't miss this opportunity to learn from you. I accept your conditions." Shiyan warns her, "If I find anything wrong with the report, I will stop the special coverage." Sitting in the car, Zhengshu confidently says, "I won't give you a chance to do that. I will work very hard." As Zhengshu leaves, Shiyan watches her go and says to himself, "Zhengshu doesn't know me well yet. I'll wait for the day when she does. After that, I'll make my decision." Now Shen also returns from Wucheng. At the airport, Gongzi is there to pick her up. He says, "I missed you so much." Shen hands him her bag and walks ahead. Miss Xu calls Yuling to her office. Yuling demands, "Why hasn't my interview been published on the front page this month?" Miss Xu responds, "The editor-in-chief and I know you've worked hard, but this morning, Zhengshu interviewed Mr. Gong, and if we don't publish Mr. Gong's interview, everyone in the industry will make fun of us for letting such a good opportunity slip away." Yuling becomes so jealous that she angrily says, "I don't know what she did to get this interview, but I know Mr. Gong. He's not the kind of person you think he is." Then Yuling, fuming with jealousy, walks out of Miss Shu's office. Yuling goes to Zhengshu and accuses her, "Did you spend all your money to interview Mr. Gong?" Zhengshu replies, "I've always wanted to interview Mr. Gong, and he called me himself to do the interview." Yuling says, "I know it's not just luck. You used your beauty to get this interview." Zhengshu says, "Even if I am relying on my beauty, you should worry about yourself. Do you think you're still doing a good job?" Just then, Miss Shai arrives and takes Zhengshu to her office. Zhengshu tells Miss Shai that Shiyan has agreed to do a special report with her. Miss Shai, pleased, says, "You should start working on the Mr. Gong interview as soon as possible." Zhengshu replies, "Don't worry, I will revise the interview and give it to you in 2 days." Later, while working, Zhengshu sends messages to Shiyan, but he curtly replies, "I'm busy." Still, Zhengshu asks if she can take him to dinner to thank him. Meanwhile, Shiyue's mom visits, and during lunch, Shiyue casually mentions, "You must remember my senior, the one I went to the concert with?" His mom responds, "Yes." Shiyue continues, "Today, Zhengshu interviewed Uncle Gong, and our chief editor was thrilled about this interview. Zhengshu said it's her luck that she got this interview." Shiyan smiles when he hears this, but when he comes back with water, Shiyue is telling her mom, "Zhengshu is beautiful, and she's so passionate about her work. Since I've been working here, so many boys have come to chase Zhengshu." Shiyan becomes jealous when he hears this. Then he says, "You've talked too much. You should shut up." With that, he goes outside, but later reads Zhengshu's message that the weekend will be good for dinner. Both of them are excited for this dinner. As Zhengshu gets ready, her mom suddenly arrives home, much to Zhengshu's surprise. Her mom insists on taking her to meet Yu. While Zhengshu's mom praises Yu, Zhengshu is silently thinking, this meeting will take too much time to end. Her mom keeps pushing her to engage with Yu, but Zhengshu feels awkward. Meanwhile, Shiyue messages Yu, "A great movie just came out. Will you go with me tonight?" During lunch, Yu replies, "I'm really busy today, so let's watch it another time." Zhengshu is furious because her mom's arrival ruined her dinner plans. Shiyue is also frustrated by Yu's reply, thinking, "But I've already bought the tickets." Then she quickly messages Zhengshu, "Will you go to the movie with me today?" But Zhengshu replies, "I'm with my mom, so I can't go to the movie with you." Then she tells her mom, "Mom, should we go home now?" But her mom refuses. On the other hand, Shiyan is taking out clothes for dinner when he suddenly gets a message from Zhengshu, "My mom has come here, so I won't be able to go with you today." Shiyan doesn't like this. Now Zhengshu has come to the mall with her mom and Yu, and as soon as they see the movie theater, she quickly tells both of them, "You both should watch the movie together." She shows them the tickets, saying, "I've already bought the tickets." Seeing this, Zhengshu says, "It's not good to watch a movie so late." But mom doesn't listen. Just as Zhengshu's mom is about to hold Zhengshu's hands with Yu says, "Wait, I'll get some water first." At that moment, Zhengshu snaps a picture of the movie poster and posts it on her WeChat. Afterward, Zhengshu and Yu are watching the movie, but she doesn't seem interested at all. Meanwhile, Shiyan messages Zhengshu asking, "Are you watching the movie with your mom?" Shu replies, yes. Shi Yan asks, is the movie good? Shu says, why don't you watch this movie with me? Shi Yan responds with an emoji and Shu wonders, does this mean yes? Now Yu is checking his phone and suddenly, Shi Yue posts the entire story of the movie on her WeChat. Seeing this, Yu starts looking around and spots Shi Yue sitting there watching the movie. Yu notices Shi Yue too. When the movie ends, Shu sees Shi Yue leaving, so she quickly says goodbye to Yu to avoid being seen by Shi Yue. As Yu comes out, he meets Shi Yue. Shi Yue asks, it's very late. Will you drop me home? Yu agrees. As they are heading back, Shi Yue finds a lipstick and she asks Yu, do you have a girlfriend? Yu responds, how do you know it belongs to my girlfriend? When Shu finally reaches home, her mom calls and asks, did you drop you? Shu quickly replies, Yu's house was far, so I didn't ask him to drop me. At that moment, she notices Shi Yan standing there waiting for her. As soon as she approaches, Shi Yan starts asking, who didn't you ask for a ride from? Shu quickly says, we're just friends. She adds, how bright the moon is today. Shi Yan grabs her hand and comes closer. Suddenly, Shu feels like he's about to kiss her. Shi Yan is surprised to see her like this. Shu is also embarrassed to see herself. Then he covers her ears and says, where's your hat? It's very cold. Shu asks, were you just passing by or did you come here to meet me specially? Shi Yan replies, it's 12 o'clock now, and my family lives in Yunwan, so how could I be just passing by here? Hearing this, Shu starts smiling. Shi Yan then asks, have you prepared the bulletproof for the special report? Shu says, don't worry about that. I guarantee there will be no mistakes in my work. She adds, you don't need to supervise my work. Shi Yan looks at her carefully, then comes closer and asks, who did you watch the movie with after all? Shu says, with my mom. Just as Shi Yan is about to ask more about her mom, her phone rings. It's her mom calling. Shu picks up and her mom asks, why haven't you come upstairs yet? Shu quickly tells Shi Yan, my mom is waiting for me. Saying this, she leaves. And now, the interview about Mr. Gong has been published. Shi Yan is sitting in his office, reading Uncle Gong's interview too. Suddenly, Shi Yan calls in his assistant and tells him, I want to talk to Shu about the interview. Just as the assistant is about to leave, Shi Yan stops him saying, don't tell her who is going to interview her. Just tell her that he is one of my friends. When the assistant calls Shu to inform her about the interview, Shu says, I don't have time this month. There's a colleague of mine who is a very good reporter. I can send you her number. The assistant replies, okay. Then, the assistant tells Shi Yan, Shu can't do this interview because she's very busy, but she's arranged it with her colleague. Hearing this, Shi Yan becomes jealous and angrily tells the assistant, go and prepare for the meeting. On the other hand, Shi Yue again has come to attend Yu's lecture, but while lecturing, Yu notices Shi Yue sitting there, sketching her. After class, Shi Yue tells Yu, let's go have lunch, but Yu responds, I have a class, so I can't go with you. Just then, Yu's colleague arrives, asking him about lunch. Seeing this, Shi Yue starts thinking, maybe Yu really has a girlfriend. In the next scene, Shi Yue comes to meet Yu and gives water to him. Then Yu says, there's no need for this. I have some. Shi Yue tells him, if you're free, can we go have dinner? Yu says, if you want to ask any questions, you can ask me in class. So Shi Yue says, I want to ask you some emotional questions. So Yu says, maybe you don't know that I'm 30 years old, so I can't answer your emotional questions. Shi Yan says, to answer these kinds of questions, we need to know each other. But Yu says, I have a class. Saying this, he leaves, and Shi Yue feels very upset. Later, Shu uploads a post on her WeChat while heading back. Shi Yan is looking at Shu's post, which says, today was very busy. Seeing this, Shi Yan starts wondering, what could she be so busy with? In the next scene, Shu is sitting with Si Wei, supervising her draft. After Si Wei finishes her work, Shi Yan messages her, saying, how was your day today? Si Wei replies, today was good. Shu is back and guided me step by step at work. Later, Si Wei tells Shu, I'm heading home now. Meanwhile, Shu is still working. Suddenly, Shu gets a call from Shi Yan asking her to come downstairs. As soon as she steps out of the office, an employee from the nearby restaurant hands her some food and says, you've been working for so long, I thought you might not have eaten, so I brought this for you. Shu hesitates, but the boy insists, so she takes the food. He then asks, are you waiting for the bus? It's not safe to wait alone. I'll wait with you. Just then, Shi Yan arrives and starts taking her away. He quickly asks, did you pay for this food? Shu replies, no. So Shi Yan quickly pays and leads her away, clearly jealous. Shu asks, why did you come here suddenly? Shi Yan says, I was just passing by, but then adds, "Zeng Shu, you're quite famous around here." As they approach the car, Shi Yan carefully observes Zeng Shu and starts fixing her hair. Zeng Shu asks, "Do you want to eat this food?" Shi Yan dismisses it, saying, "It's too late to eat." Zeng Shu tries to sit in the back seat, but Shi Yan shuts the door, saying, "Will you treat me like a driver now?" Meanwhile, Yuling happens to see Zeng Shu getting into the car with Shi Yan and is shocked to see them together. As they drive away, Zeng Shu's stomach growls, revealing her hunger. Shi Yan glances at her, noticing. Zeng Shu eyes the food in the back and asks, "Where are we going anyway?" Shi Yan smiles and says, "We're going to have a midnight snack." Hearing this, Zeng Shu is very happy and says, "I want to eat noodles." They head off to enjoy some late-night noodles. When Zeng Shu's order arrives, she asks Shi Yan, "Are you really not going to eat? Trust me, it tastes very good." But Shi Yan tells her, "You eat." Zeng Shu insists, "You can't just order these noodles, you have to come here to eat. People wait in lines for these noodles." She then remembers that she used to come here with her ex-boyfriend, but she trails off and starts eating. Suddenly, she notices her ex-boyfriend Xing approaching with his friends. She quickly tells Shi Yan, "I have to go to the bathroom." She leaves just as Xing and his friends arrive. Xing's friends start teasing him. "How did your breakup with Zeng Shu happen?" Hearing this, Shi Yan listens closely. Xing says, "She broke up with me, but it's normal." His friends joke, "The people Zeng Shu meets these days have a much higher status than you." This angers Xing, and he leaves from there. When Zeng Shu sees that Xing has left, she returns to the table, looking a bit upset. Shi Yan tells her, "Look up." Zeng Shu checks on her phone and asks, "Did something get on my face?" But then she smiles and says, "It's as beautiful as before." Shi Yan tries to ask her about Xing indirectly, but Zeng Shu avoids giving a clear answer. Shi Yan then asks, "Won't you eat your noodles?" Zeng Shu responds, "I don't feel like it anymore." Hearing this, Shi Yan leaves. As they're heading back, Zeng Shu notices Shi Yan's mood and wonders why he seems so down, but she soon falls asleep. When they reach her home, Shi Yan wakes her up. As Zeng Shu is about to go inside, Shi Yan asks, "Don't you want to eat something before going to sleep?" Zeng Shu replies, "Sleeping without eating can disturb my sleep." She says goodbye to him, and Shi Yan also says goodbye before leaving. At home with nothing to eat, Zeng Shu sits down to order food. Meanwhile, Shi Yan is heading to the market. Zeng Shu, impatient, wonders, "Why hasn't my order arrived yet?" Just then, there's a knock at the door. When Zeng Shu opens it, no one is there, but a tiffin is lying on the ground. She picks it up, puzzled. "I didn't order this." At the same moment, she gets a message from Shi Yan. He sent the food and he's the one who delivered it. As Shi Yan texts her, he's actually standing outside her house. His coat is dirty because he went back to the noodle shop, ordered the noodles for her, and packed them in the tiffin. While doing this, his coat got dirty. When Zeng Shu looks out her window, she sees Shi Yan walking away. As she eats the noodles, she feels so happy knowing how much Shi Yan cares for her. She sends him a thank you message and they chat for a while over text. Today, when Yu is giving a lecture, one of his students starts recording it, making Yu feel a bit awkward. Then, Cua receives a call from Yu. Surprised, Cua says, "You called me yourself for the first time today." But Yu replies, "Don't send anyone to record in my class in the future." Cua quickly apologizes. "I'm sorry, Yu." Yu continues, "The lecture you attend is a very basic course. If you don't have time, study it at home. And if you don't understand something, you can come to me at college and ask. But don't do this again." Despite the reprimand, Siwei is happy that Yu called her himself. Later, Zeng Shu tells Shi Yan, "I'll take you to dinner tomorrow to thank you." Shi Yan agrees. "Okay," Zeng Shu adds. "Then you come to pick me up after work." Shi Yan sends an okay message. As Zeng Shu and Shi Yan are on their way, Zeng Shu discusses Siyue's work. Shi Yan comments, "Your intern is quite interesting." Zeng Shu, surprised, thinks, "He has never praised me." So she responds, "Siyue is very motivated to work. She often goes to the University of Finance and Economics just to listen to Professor Yu's lectures." She continues, "I've also attended some of Professor Yu's lectures. I couldn't stop myself after the first one. If there were a handsome teacher like Professor Yu at my college, I'd definitely study finance." Hearing this, Shi Yan becomes jealous, and Zeng Shu is clearly doing it on purpose. Shi Yan asks, "Do you like Professor Yu too?" Zeng Shu playfully replies, "How can anyone not like him?" Annoyed, Shi Yan takes a U-turn and says, "You like lectures so much? Fine, I'm taking you to the one you missed." Shi Yan, still jealous, brings Zeng Shu to his place to show off his awards and certificates. Zeng Shu, amused by his jealousy, happily looks at them. Shi Yan also shows her his sports medals. Zeng Shu is impressed and says, "You're very brave for following your dream. "You're doing a great job." Shiyan, feeling good, smiles and asks, "So, what's my reward for this?" In response, Zhengshu kisses him. But just then, Shiyan gets a call from his office. He tells Zhengshu, "I'm going on a business trip. Come with me." Zhengshu replies, "I'll have to check my schedule." Feeling embarrassed, she quickly leaves. The next day, when Shiyan reaches the airport, he also sees Zhengshu there. After seeing Zhengshu, he sends his assistant back. Shiyan goes to Zhengshu and grabs her bag. Zhengshu starts saying, "What a coincidence that I also have to go on Chungbei's business trip." Now, as both of them are heading out, Shiyan gets a call from Yu, who is telling him something about work. Shiyan tells Yu, "Reporter Zhengshu is with me on this business trip, and she is sitting right next to me." Hearing this, Yu is very surprised, and Shiyan hangs up the phone after saying this. Zhengshu asks him, "Who were you talking to?" Shiyan casually responds, "The one you love to talk about." When they both reach the hotel, as soon as Shiyan gets out of the car, Zhengshu tells the driver, "Can you drop me off at my hotel?" Hearing this, Shiyan tells Zhengshu to get out of the car. So, Zhengshu steps out. Now she is looking at the hotel. Then Shiyan tells her, "What are you doing?" Zhengshu says, "I'm going to book a taxi to go to my hotel." Shiyan replies, "This is your hotel. This hotel is very close to your workplace, so you are staying here with me." Zhengshu is very surprised at this. How can she stay with him? But before she can say anything, Shiyan adds, "Don't you want this?" Saying this, he leaves. Later, Shiyan takes Zhengshu towards their rooms. Zhengshu feels so awkward about staying with him. But, surprise? She finds out they'll be in separate rooms. She quickly grabs her bag and rushes to her room. Meanwhile, Yu is at the university. Then, suddenly, he gets a courier from Shiyue. It's her mom's album, a limited edition and not available anywhere. But Yu is confused. Who sent it? Zhengshu texts Shiyan, asking for the whole schedule for this business trip. Shiyan sends it over. The next day, Shiyan and Zhengshu are out, heading to a temple. Zhengshu nearly falls down the stairs, but Shiyan catches her just in time. He says, "Careful." Zhengshu says, "I won't fall." Then, Shiyan takes her hand and leads her forward. It feels so good walking with him. Zhengshu holds his hand tighter. Both are smiling, so sweetly. Suddenly, a photographer nearby sees them and says, "You two, you're the perfect couple." Embarrassed, Zhengshu quickly lets go of Shiyan's hand, saying, "We're not a couple." Shiyan asks the photographer, "What's going on here?" The photographer replies, "Today's the last day the public can visit this temple. It's closing for 6 months after this." Then he says, "Let me take your picture. It'll be a wonderful memory for you two." Shiyan asks, "Do you want to take a picture?" Zhengshu replies, "I've come here for the first time. I don't know when I'll be back, so yeah, taking a picture would be memorable." They stand together in front of the temple, and the photographer starts snapping photos, but they're standing too far apart. The photographer says, "Get closer." Hesitating, they move closer, and the photos turn out great. The photographer shows Zhengshu the pictures, and she says, "Yes, these are very good." Then he says it's 99 yuan for one picture. Shocked, Zhengshu responds, "That's too much." He explains, "It's the couple package price." So Zhengshu asks, "What's the original price?" He answers, 51 yuan. But Shiyan quickly pays him the couple price. The photographer promises to send the pictures soon, then recommends another place they should visit. As they watch another couple arrive, hearing the same pitch from the photographer, they look at each other because they were fooled by him. They head upstairs, and Zhengshu goes to a stall, while Shiyan stands at another. Zhengshu joins him, and Shiyan hands her a cup with sticks. She shakes it. Out comes a stick with something written on it that she doesn't understand. An old man nearby reads it and says, "This is a sign of good luck? Your pair is destined. You two can have a great life together." Shiyan thinks she's already in love but doesn't realize it yet. When Zhengshu returns, Shiyan asks, "Do you really believe in this?" Zhengshu responds, "Yes." Looking at the time, Zhengshu says, "We still have time. Let's go to the next place." Shiyan asks, "There's another place?" Zhengshu smiles. "I came with a plan." Shiyan laughs, and they head off together. Now they've arrived at a restaurant for dinner. Zhengshu orders noodles and Shiyan teases, "You really love noodles." Suddenly, Zhengshu gets a message from Shiyue asking, "When are you coming back?" Zhengshu replies, "Have you finished your script?" Shiyan says, "No, I'm still working on it, but I really need you." Zhengshu, smiling while messaging, catches Shiyan's attention. He doesn't like it? Who is she talking to? Their food arrives, then Shiyan gets a message from Shiyue asking, "When are you coming back?" She is telling him her usual stories of difficulty. Zheng Shu, noticing this, asks, "What was your niece saying?" Shiyan responds, "Just asking for gifts." Zheng Shu laughs, "Rich people are so funny. They have everything, yet still ask for more." This triggers a memory for Shiyan. His ex-girlfriend used to say, "Have you ever thought about us? You have so much, then why start a new company now? Am I even in your plans?" When Shiyan couldn't answer, she broke up with him. Shiyan then asks Zheng Shu, "Do you think I'm unreasonable?" Zheng Shu reassures him, "No, you're just passionate about your ideas." Then she adds, "Your vision is great. You chose me after all." Realizing what she just said, she quickly corrects herself. "I mean, you chose me for your special report." Shiyan smiles. "My vision is indeed very good." He looks at her closely. Later, in the office, Shiyue wonders, "Why hasn't you contacted me yet?" He didn't even ask about the courier. Impatiently, she messages him, "Are you free?" Yu replies, "Yes." Shiyue invites him to dinner, but Yu declines. She jokes, "Having dinner with your girlfriend?" Yu replies, "I don't have a girlfriend." Hearing this, Shiyue smiles. Yu adds, "Don't waste money on dinner." Shiyan jokes back, "Professor Yu spoke to me. I could take you to dinner 10 times just for that." Yu suggests, "If work is stressing you, play some games or even change your job." Shiyue feels disappointed. Yu isn't talking to her the way she hoped. After dinner, they return to the hotel. Zheng Shu says, "I had a great time today, thank you." But Shiyan doesn't respond, leaving Zheng Shu puzzled, thinking, "I thanked him. Shouldn't he have said, 'You're welcome'?" Just as she's about to enter her room, Shiyan reaches for the door handle, about to say something, when his phone rings. Zheng Shu heads to her room. After that, the photographer sends Shiyan their pictures. Shiyan looks at them, smiling. They both send each other a goodnight message. The next morning, both of them get ready and are waiting for Shiyan's driver. Zheng Shu asks, "Where's the car?" Shiyan explains, "Master Fang can't come." Zheng Shu suggests, "Then let's call a taxi." Shiyan retorts, "I don't travel in other people's cars." Zheng Shu asks, "So we'll just keep waiting?" Shiyan, walking ahead, says, "You can go." Zheng Shu asks, "Are you really leaving like this?" Zheng Shu and Shiyan are walking. Zheng Shu says, "This place is very comfortable and a great place for retirement." Shiyan responds, "You are at the top of your career and you are already thinking about retirement?" Zheng Shu says, "I don't know. Suddenly I'm thinking about the future while walking here with you." Hearing this, Shiyan stops and asks her, "What are your plans for the future?" Zheng Shu thinks for a moment and starts feeling cold. So Shiyan quickly takes off his coat and gives it to Zheng Shu. While she is putting on the coat, Shiyan looks at her very carefully. Shiyan is about to come closer to Zheng Shu when he gets a call from Shiyue. Shiyan picks up the call and says, "Call me only when you have a problem." Hearing this, Shiyue thinks, "Why is Uncle so angry at me for calling? He must be with a girl." Now Shiyue messages Yu and says, "Did you get the surprise I gave you?" Seeing the package, Yu says, "Yes, I got it. But this album is very expensive, so when you come to take my lecture again, I will have to return it." Shiyue says, "Price doesn't matter for a gift. You have just come back to China, so you haven't tried many restaurants. Why don't you go for dinner with me?" But Yu says, "I don't have time today." Shiyue messages Yu, "I can wait until you finish your work." But Yu doesn't agree to this either. On the other hand, both Zheng Shu and Shiyan have reached back to the hotel. Zheng Shu is about to take off Shiyan's coat, but Shiyan grabs his coat and says, "You haven't answered my question yet." Zheng Shu responds, "I haven't thought about the answer yet. I have an interview tomorrow, so I have to prepare the outline for it." She quickly says goodnight to him and goes to her room. Now, Yu is working. A delivery boy arrives and says, "Handsome and young Professor Yu's order has arrived." Hearing this, his colleagues start looking at him, and Yu feels embarrassed. Yu messages Shiyue thanks, so Shiyue says, "If you really want to thank me, then you have to take a picture of your food and send it to me." Yu sends her the picture. His colleagues come and start asking, "Did your girlfriend send this?" Yu tells them, "No," but his colleagues don't believe his denial and leave. Shiyan has guessed from the picture what food Yu likes. She messages him, "You will definitely like this food. We will go to eat there next time." Yu replies, "These things are not important to me. I hope you find someone who will be very happy to do all this with you." She gets very upset because she has been rejected once again. Now, Zheng Shu is working. Shiyan sends her a draft and says, "I have sent this to you so that you can save some time while preparing the outline." Seeing this, Zheng Shu is very happy. The next morning, when she comes out of her room after getting ready, Xu Yan is waiting for her. When both of them come to the parking lot, Master Fang gives Zheng Shu coffee and says, "Xu Yan specially ordered this for you." Xu Yan looks at his driver angrily because he shouldn't have mentioned his name. When Zheng Shu reaches the interview place, she thanks Xu Yan for the coffee and goes inside. Xu Yan waits for her. When Zheng Shu comes out of the company, her client's assistant is giving her some gifts, which Zheng Shu is refusing to take. Just then, Xu Yan comes to take her. Zheng Shu tells him, "I will take you to dinner today." As both of them are heading towards the car, Zheng Shu gets a call from her mom who says, "Whenever you get a chance, you should take Yu to dinner." Since Xu Yan is with her, she quickly hangs up the phone after hearing this. Meanwhile, Shi Yue has come to Yu's class again. As soon as the class is over, she tells Yu, "Can you go to lunch with me?" Yu says, "Come to the office with me." Yu returns her mom's album to her, saying, "This is very expensive." Shi Yue says, "I saw you at Song Yu's concert, so I thought she was your favorite singer. So I booked this album for you. And trust me, it's not expensive at all." Yu says, "Music is heard from the heart, but if you are giving this to me just to please me, then you take it back." Shi Yue says, "I'll take it home and keep it safe for you because you'll realize in the future that this is not expensive for me at all, but I gave it to you with my happiness." Yu says, "I appreciate your feelings for me, but we are not suitable for each other." Shi Yue says, "We can give each other time to know each other, but I think you can't start relationships by thinking about the results. Right now, you just have to give me a chance to know you." Yu gets a call and goes to take it. But today, Yu is lost in thought after hearing Shi Yue's words. After this, Shi Yan returns from the business trip. Zheng Shu has come to meet Mr. Q, Shi Yan's company. Chen Li also works here. When she finds out about Zheng Shu, she tells her colleague, "Mr. Chu is in a meeting right now. Make her wait a little bit in the reception area." Now Zheng Shu sits down to wait. She has been waiting for a long time. Shi Yan's assistant is passing by and sees Zheng Shu. He comes to her and asks, "What are you doing here?" Zheng Shu says, "I came here to meet Mr. Q, but he's in a meeting." After hearing this, the assistant goes to tell Shi Yan everything. Shi Yan asks, "How long has Zheng Shu been waiting?" The assistant says, "She's been waiting for a long time, but when I went to ask, Mr. Q didn't have any meetings today." Shi Yan says, "Okay, now you can go out." Then Shi Yan makes a call, after which Mr. Q immediately comes to meet Zheng Shu. He apologizes to Zheng Shu for making her wait so long and then takes her to his office. Now Mr. Q has been personally called by Shi Yan. When Zheng Shu is going to Mr. Q's office, she sees Chen Li working there and starts thinking, Shi Yan has kept her in the finance department. Chen Li is very surprised to see this. Why is Mr. Q taking Zheng Shu to his office himself? After Zheng Shu's work is done, she says goodbye to them and leaves. After Zheng Shu leaves, Mr. Q calls Chen Li to his office and starts asking her, "I had a meeting with this journalist at 3 p.m., but why did you arrange my other meeting first? How long has she been waiting here?" Chen Li replies, "I thought the bank meeting was more important." Hearing this, Mr. Q starts shouting at her, "You are not in a position to decide which meeting is important for me and which is not." After coming out, Chen Li is very angry at Zheng Shu. Zheng Shu is leaving when she meets Shi Yan in the elevator. After getting into the elevator, Zheng Shu thinks, "What is he doing here?" As soon as the elevator stops, Shi Yan grabs Zheng Shu's hand and starts leading her away. Everyone is surprised to see them like this. Shi Yan takes her to his office. Now both of them sit down to work, and along with this, lemonade comes for Zheng Shu, which Shi Yan has ordered. Now both of them keep working until night. Zheng Shu comes out and tells the assistant, "I want to have lemon water made for Shi Yan." So the assistant says, "We don't make this drink in the company." Hearing this, Zheng Shu is surprised. So the assistant tells her, "This drink was prepared especially for you because Shi Yan found out that you had drunk a lot of coffee while sitting downstairs." The assistant also tells her, "Shi Yan knew how long you've been sitting downstairs waiting." Hearing this, Zheng Shu is very happy. Now, as Zheng Shu is coming inside with lemonade for Shi Yan, she collides with Shi Yan and the lemonade spills on his legs. Zheng Shu apologizes to him, so Shi Yan says, "It's okay." Zheng Shu asks him, "Have you finished your work?" Shi Yan replies, "No." Zheng Shu says, "Then what were you coming out to do?" It is shown that Shi Yan noticed that Zheng Shu had been out for a long time, so he was coming to check on her. But he tells Zheng Shu, "I was coming out to get coffee." Zheng Shu says, "Drink this instead of coffee." Shi Yan drinks the lemonade and tells Zheng Shu, "You'll have to wait for me a little longer." Then, Shi Yan says to Zheng Shu, "Work is done, so let's go eat somewhere." Zheng Shu replies, "Where are we going?" Shi Yan answers, "We will go to the place you suggested." Now, Zheng Shu takes Shi Yan to a place, and Shiyan looks around carefully. Zheng Shu takes him inside and says, "This place is really good, you should try it." After entering, Zheng Shu asks Shiyan to sit down, but Shiyan does not sit. Zheng Shu cleans the seat for him, but Shiyan still finds the place dirty. He starts cleaning the table with a tissue. Shiyan is about to eat the hot pot that Zheng Shu specially made when he receives a call from Xiu. She is upset and asks her uncle to come quickly. Shiyan tells her, "Relax first and tell me what happened." Xiu explains, "I'm near the University of Finance. An old man came in front of my car yelling and fell down. I told him I would help, but he said he couldn't move and wouldn't let me call the police." Shiyan says, "Don't worry, sit in your car." Then he says to Zheng Shu, "I'm going." Zheng Shu asks, "Where are you going in such a hurry?" Shiyan replies, "My niece needs me, so I have to go." Zheng Shu gets upset and says, "Go ahead, I'll finish this hot pot alone and go home myself." Although Shiyan knows she's overreacting, he still sits down to eat with her. Meanwhile, a crowd gathers near Xiu and her car. Xiu tells the old man, "I stopped the car gently, I didn't hit you. I'll call an ambulance and the police, everything will be clear." The old man replies, "I don't have money to go to the hospital." Xiu asks, "What do you want then?" The old man says, "Give me money and I'll take care of everything myself." Yu, passing by, sees Xiu standing there. Xiu says, "I won't give you money." The old man argues, "You're so rich, what will it hurt to give me some money?" Xiu responds, "I'll just call the police. Let's see if they arrest me or not." The crowd urges her, "End this by giving him money. The road is blocked because of you." Xiu insists, "It's not about money, it's about responsibility. If it were my fault, I'd give whatever money you wanted." At that moment, Yu steps in and tells the man advising her to pay, "If it's just a few dollars, why don't you give it to the old man?" Hearing this, the man walks away. Yu then says to the old man, "This can be solved with CCTV footage." Upon hearing this, the old man says, "My leg doesn't hurt as much now," and leaves. Xiu thanks Yu. He replies, "No need to thank me. I was just doing my job." With that, Yu leaves. When Shiyan comes home, he asks Xiu, "What were you doing at the University of Finance?" Xiu replies, "I just went to meet my friend." She smells Shiyan's coat and asks, "Did you go eat hot pot today?" She adds, "Who else could take you to hot pot besides my mom?" Shiyan doesn't answer, so Xiu teases, "It must be your future wife." Shiyan tells her, "You did a great job today, now go to sleep." Xiu says, "My uncle has never praised me like this before. He must be seeing someone." In her room, Xiu thinks, "You helped me a lot today, so I should invite him for dinner." Then Yu receives a message from Xiu saying, "You helped me a lot today, so I want to take you out for dinner." This time, Yu agrees to the dinner, and Xiu is very happy after seeing his response. The next day, when Zheng Shu arrives at the office, Xiu is already there. Surprised, Zheng Shu asks, "What are you doing here so early?" Xiu replies, "I was very excited today, so I came to work early." Zheng Shu asks, "Why are you excited?" Xiu tells her the whole story and says, "I called my uncle, but he didn't come. Instead, a man from the crowd helped me." Zheng Shu asks, "Do you like that man?" Xiu responds, "Yes." Zheng Shu asks, "Is he interested in you too?" Xiu says, "It might be." Zheng Shu then says, "But I'm surprised at your uncle's behavior. He should have definitely come to help you." Xiu responds, "I won't blame my uncle for this. If I should blame anyone, it's my uncle's girlfriend." Hearing this, Zheng Shu feels a bit awkward. Nian then comes to Zheng Shu and Xiaoyu and says, "I am meeting some of my friends on Friday. Do you want to celebrate New Year with them?" Xiaoyu responds, "I celebrate New Year's Day with my family." Zheng Shu adds, "I am also very busy and haven't thought about it." Later, Zheng Shu messages Shiyan, "Can we go camping this Friday?" Shiyan replies, "I am going on a business trip tomorrow, but we will do this when I come back." Reading the message, Zheng Shu becomes happy. The next morning, Zheng Shu messages Shiyan, "I miss you." Shiyan also messages her, "I miss you too." On New Year's Day, Zheng Shu is out shopping with Shen and Xiu. Xiu tells Shen, "I want to meet the person I like." Shen responds, "I will tell you some tricks." Hearing this, Xiu becomes very happy and takes Shen aside. As soon as Zheng Shu opens her phone, she sees that Shiyan has sent her a picture of a starry night, knowing that she wanted to see it with him. Seeing the picture, Zheng Shu smiles. When the three of them come out of the mall, Xiu says, "You both go back. I haven't bought anything for myself today, so I will go back and have a look." The two of them say, "Happy New Year" to Xiu and leave. Now Xiu sees Yu in the mall while shopping and immediately goes to him. She asks, "Have you also come here to shop alone?" Yu replies, "My cousin is getting married, so I came here to get a wedding gift for her." Xiu offers, "I can help you choose a gift because I know this mall very well." Yu agrees and says, "Give me your bags." Shu happily hands her bags to Yu, and now Shu helps Yu buy perfumes. Yu chooses the perfume that Shu likes. When Yu is paying the bill, the worker says, "You have shopped for more than 400 wen, so we are gifting mugs to couples." Yu refuses to accept it, but Shu agrees to take it. When they come out of the shop, Shu gives Yu a mug, and Yu says, "You can keep both of them for helping me today." Shu responds, "If you want to thank me, you will have to take me out for dinner." Yu replies, "I have to go to the railway station after this, so it will be very late." Shu says, "Okay, we will have dinner after you come back." Later, when Shu and Shen reach home, Shen suddenly stops and tells Shu Shi Yan is here. Shu says, "How can he be here? He is abroad." But when she looks, Shi Yan is actually waiting for her outside her house. Seeing this, Shu becomes very happy, and Shen leaves. When Shu approaches him, Shi Yan takes all the bags from her hands. Shu asks, "You said you wouldn't be back until next week." Shi Yan replies, "There was a very important task here as well." Shu asks, "Didn't Assistant Chen come with you?" Shi Yan says, "Why do you want to meet Chen?" Shu comes close to him and says, "You're jealous as usual." Shi Yan doesn't answer. So Shu says, "If there's nothing else to talk about, I'm going home." Shi Yan stops Shu and takes her to the car. Shu asks, "Where are we going?" Shi Yan says, "We're going to see the stars." Shu says, "But I didn't prepare anything." Shi Yan responds, "I've prepared everything." Now, the two of them arrive at a restaurant for dinner. Shu sees his preparations and asks, "Did you come here specifically to celebrate New Year with me?" Shi Yan replies, "Yes." Knowing this, Shu feels very happy. Meanwhile, Shuyue is at home, messaging Yu for New Year. Yu reads Shuyue's messages when his mom calls him for dinner, so Yu goes to dinner with his mom without replying. On the other hand, Shu Yan and Shu are enjoying their dinner a lot. After they finish, the manager comes to them and says, "It's 12 o'clock now, and you both should go to the terrace outside to see the fireworks." Shu, excited to see the fireworks, goes outside with Shi Yan. After stepping outside, Shu feels cold, so Shi Yan covers her with his coat. Shu points to the stars and asks, "Were you watching stars daily while you were abroad?" Shi Yan replies, "It feels better to watch them today." Shu smiles at his response. At 12 o'clock, the fireworks begin, and Shu and Shi Yan enjoy them together. Shi Yan is about to say something to Shu, but she suddenly speaks her wish aloud. "I want to be very successful in my career." Shu looks at Shi Yan, about to say something, when a waitress arrives and says, "Mr. Shi Yan, the flowers you ordered have arrived." Shi Yan tells the waitress, "Send these flowers to my parents' house." Seeing this, Shu feels strange and asks, "You ordered these flowers for your sister?" Shi Yan says, "Yes, she likes roses very much." Now, Shu regrets that she only wished for her career while being with Shi Yan. She asks him, "What did you wish for?" Shi Yan replies, "I wished the same thing, that you will be successful in upgrading the digital magazine." Shu responds, "Thank you for giving me your wish." Both of them look upset, and Shi Yan holds a card in his hand, which he probably intended to give Shu. Meanwhile, Shuyue enjoys the fireworks and messages Yu, "Can we enjoy fireworks together next time?" Yu replies with a question mark, so Shuyue asks, "I mean, can I persuade you to date me?" But Yu simply replies, "We are not suitable for each other." Reading this, Shuyue becomes upset. Her mom comes over and asks, "Did you wish your uncle for New Year?" Shuyue says, "I forgot, I'll message him now." Later, Shu returns home. She thanks Shi Yan for today and heads toward her house when Shi Yan stops her and says, "Happy New Year!" Then he leaves. Later, Shu talking to Shen. Shen asks Shu about her wish, and when Shu tells her, "I wished for my career," Shen angrily responds, "How can you make such a mistake?" Meanwhile, Shuyue asks Yu, "Where are you going?" Just then, Shi Yan approaches her and says, "Get ready, we're going for a horse ride." Shuyue protests, "I won't go." At the same time, Shu and Shen also arrive for a horse ride. Gonzi says to Shi Yan, "I went to a temple a few days ago and brought a good luck charm from there." Shi Yan looks at it carefully and it reads, "Whatever you want will come to you." Reading this, Shi Yan starts thinking when Shu and Shen arrive. Shen stops upon seeing Gonzi, and when Shi Yan sees Shu, he starts smiling, realizing his wish had been fulfilled. Gonzi, surprised to see them, Shen says, "But we didn't know that you two would also be here, so now we're going back." Gonzi replies, "There is no need. This race course is very big, so no one will disturb anyone." Gonzi tells Shen, "This is your first time here, so I will show you around this race course." Shen goes with Gonzi. Shu goes with Gonzi and Shen while Shi Yan stays back. Gonzi says, "I'll bring you guys horses." Gonzi tells Shen, "This horse has been my favorite since childhood, and I brought it especially for you." He adds, You guys go change first. Shi Yan approaches Zheng Shu and asks, what are you doing here? Zheng Shu replies, this is not your race course. Shi Yan says, but if I want, I could keep you from coming here. Ganzi laughs and says, that joke was really funny, then adds, since Zheng Shu is Shen's friend, she's also my friend. Ganzi says, I'll take you both to the dressing room. Zheng Shu ignores Shi Yan and follows Ganzi and Shen. Shen asks Zheng Shu, what were you doing with Shi Yan? Zheng Shu says, I don't know what's wrong with him. Shen comments, but I can see that Shi Yan cares about you a lot. Shi Yan, standing nearby, tries to overhear their conversation. As Zheng Shu and Shen continue talking about Shi Yan in the dressing court, Shi Yan listens in. After a while, Ganzi arrives to call Shi Yan, and they realize someone was eavesdropping. Shen hears the door close and says to Zheng Shu, I'll go clarify everything to Shi Yan that I was joking. Zheng Shu responds, there's no need because if he doesn't believe it, he'll talk to me himself. And if he asks for an explanation of these little things, then there is no need to explain anything to such a person. Shen then asks, if it goes on like this, how will you move your relationship forward? Zheng Shu responds, it has been a little while since we met, and I don't know him well, and I'm not able to know him either. As soon as Shen pulls her curtain back, she sees Shi Yan standing in front. She is about to say something, but Shi Yan stops her. Meanwhile, Zheng Shu is tying her belt when Shi Yan approaches and starts tying the belt for her. He says to her, you messaged yesterday asking why I was looking strange? Zheng Shu, shocked, looks at him but doesn't respond. Shi Yan asks, won't you answer? When she still doesn't reply, Shi Yan leaves. Later, Zheng Shu arrives, ready to ride. Shi Yan brings a horse for her, and Zheng Shu starts recalling her previous experience. Shi Yan asks her to sit down, but Zheng Shu says, I've just come to watch today. Shi Yan asks, will you sit yourself or should I help you? Hearing this, she sits on the horse herself. This time, Shi Yan guides the horse comfortably, but Zheng Shu feels awkward because Shi Yan hasn't spoken to her for a long time. As evening falls, Zheng Shu and Shi Yan sit together, and Zheng Shu says, today's ride was quite good compared to my first experience. Shi Yan responds, at that time you were chasing me for the interview, so I was trying to chase you away. Zheng Shu adds, at first I was chasing you for the interview because that interview was very important to me. Shi Yan asks, what do you think now? Zheng Shu, not giving a proper answer to Shi Yan's question, stands there watching the sunset. Seeing this, Shi Yan says, I will wait for the day when you can share your heart with me. Shi Yue asks Yu, will you have dinner with me today? Yu replies, I haven't come back yet. Shi Yue responds, okay, I will wait for you to come back. At home, Zheng Shu is thinking, I like Shi Yan, but I don't have the courage to tell him because I don't want us to become strangers. On the other hand, while having dinner with his mom, Yu's mom says, Zheng Shu is a good girl. You should meet her more so that you both can get married soon. Yu tells her, Zheng Shu and I are just good friends. But his mom insists, I think you're interested in Zheng Shu, so you should think about it. Later, when Yu returns to his room, he messages Zheng Shu, how was your new year? Zheng Shu replies, New Year was good. At home, Shi Yan is drinking and looks quite upset. Shi Yue notices and asks, Uncle, what happened to you? Shi Yan responds, go to sleep. Shi Yue insists, I am also a girl, so I can understand girls better than you. But Shi Yan doesn't share his thoughts with her, so Shi Yue guesses, she lied to you because she loves you very much. She's worried that if something upsets you, her image might suffer in your eyes. Hearing this, Shi Yan starts recalling what Zheng Shu was saying to Shen while changing. He then tells Shi Yue, you have to go to work tomorrow, so go and rest. Saying this, Shi Yan leaves. The next morning, when Zheng Shu arrives at work, Yu Ling is praising her. Surprised, Zheng Shu asks, what happened to her? Nian replies, no one knows. Then Nian adds, there are only 10 days left until the Spring Festival. Hearing this, Zheng Shu says, I should book my ticket to go home quickly. While booking the ticket, Zheng Shu receives a call from her mom. Her mom asks, are you meeting Yu? Zheng Shu responds, Mom, I don't have time for blind dates because I'm very busy. Besides, I have a boyfriend. Her mom presses, who is your boyfriend? As Zheng Shu is about to answer, her mom interrupts, I've never seen him with you. So Zheng Shu asks, why don't you believe me? Her mom replies, okay, then bring him home with you during the Spring Festival. Zheng Shu hesitates. He will be busy. Her mom insists, then send me a picture of you two together. Zheng Shu says, I'll send you a picture later, and hangs up. Afterward, Zheng Shu takes a picture of Shi Yan from the internet and sends it to her mom. Despite this, her mom still doesn't believe her and suggests she go on a blind date with Yu. Upset, Zheng Shu messages Yu, are you free this weekend? I want to take you out for dinner. Noticing her distress, Shi Yue asks, why are you looking so upset? Zheng Shu replies, my mom wants to send me on a blind date. Yue advises, if you don't want to go, then don't go. Shu says, you can't understand my difficulties. She thinks that he and I are very suitable for each other, so they want us to get married. Yue asks, what does he do? Shu answers, he's a university teacher. Yue says, what does he teach? Shu replies, he teaches finance. Yue comments, your interests match, but what about the one you like? Shu starts thinking, if I tell Shiyan that I'm going on a blind date, he'll just tell me not to go. In her imagination, Shu tells Shiyan, I can't refuse my mom's wishes, so I have to go on a blind date. Shiyan replies, I'll explain everything to your mom, then she won't send you on blind dates. But Shu doesn't like the idea and thinks, if I told him, he'd probably just say, go ahead, I don't care. Turning to Yue, Shu says, you wanted to take me to eat, right? Will you have another dinner with me? Now, Shu has brought Yue with her. Yue says, why are you bringing me to your blind date? I don't think it's right. Shu responds, if I were alone, nothing would feel right. Shu and Yue arrive to meet Yu. As soon as Yue sees Yu, she asks, Professor Yu is your blind date? Shu replies, yes. Introducing them, Shu says, this is my intern. Yue feels awkward meeting Yu. During dinner, Yu compliments, the last article you wrote was very good. It has benefited my friends a lot in business. Meanwhile, Yue is uncomfortable, thinking, he replies to me very thoughtfully, but he's talking to Shu so nicely. Shu explains, my mom forced me to have this dinner today. Actually, I don't want to start any relationship right now. Yu agrees. My mom is pressuring me too, but I don't want to start any relationship right now either. Despite this conversation, Yue still feels uneasy. Then she receives a call from her grandpa who asks, have you gone out for dinner with your senior? Yue responds, yes, I have come with my senior on her blind date. Shiyan overhears this. When Yue returns, Shu is in the bathroom, so she asks Yu, do you like Shu? Yu says, I like Shu, but I don't have any feelings for her. Yue asks, do I have any chance? Before Yu can reply, Shu comes back. Shu then receives a message from her mom saying, you're going on a blind date with Yu next week too, and I've planned everything for you. Shu tells Yu, my mom wants you to go to the exhibition with me next week, but don't worry, I'll find a way to convince her. Yue suggests, your mom is forcing you, so my advice is that you should go to this exhibition. Shu says, if we both go alone, I don't think it will look right. Yue responds, why don't the three of us go together? Shu is happy to hear this. Later, when Yu drops Shu home, he suggests, why don't we both make a deal? If our families accept that we've rejected each other, then they'll find another blind date for us. Shu agrees. This is a very good idea. As Shu approaches her house, she finds Shiyan already standing there waiting for her. Surprised and worried that he might have seen Yu, she asks, what are you doing here? Shiyan responds, what do you think? Shu quickly explains, the one you saw now is the son of my mom's colleague. We used to study together in high school. Shiyan says, I thought you were on a blind date. Shu says, how can I go on a blind date? Anyway, I meet my friends on weekends only. Shiyan says, you have enough time to meet your old friends. Shu thinks, now he is jealous again. At that moment, snow begins to fall. Shiyan tells Shu, I can't wait any longer, and then he kisses her. Smiling, Shu asks him, are you jealous? Just then, Shu receives a call from a beauty salon offering a special New Year deal to their old customers. They ask her, are you free this weekend? Shu replies, yes, I am free this weekend. The beauty salon books her appointment for next week. Shiyan comments, you are so free, then you can come to work overtime for special report next week. Shu thinks to herself, I thought you would take me out on a date, but you're calling me to work. Shiyan covers Shu with his coat. Shu tells him, wherever I am with you, I will feel like I am on a date. She then asks, since when have you been waiting for me here? Shiyan responds, why do you always have so many questions to ask? Shu replies, being your girlfriend, I should know about everything. Shiyan is about to say something when Shu receives a call from her mom. She tells Shiyan, my mom is calling. Shiyan says, go inside because it's very cold here now. Shu says goodbye to Shiyan and goes inside. After talking to her mom, she comes to her room and sees that Shiyan is still standing outside. Later, when Shiyan comes home, he is in a very good mood. Shiyan notices and says, Uncle, you look so happy today. What's the matter? She jokes with him, and for a change, Shiyan responds to her joke with a joke. Surprised by her uncle's changed attitude, Shiyue wonders what happened. The next day, when Shiyan wakes up, he says good morning to Shiyue in an unusually cheerful way. Normally, Shiyan doesn't greet her like that. Shiyue then heads to the office, and Shu also greets her with a cheerful good morning. Shiyue thinks to herself, what happened yesterday that everyone looks so happy? Meanwhile, a boy is shown sitting on a plane, reading about Shiyan. Later, Shiyan meets with Yu and Gonzi. Gonzi is discussing the report, but Shiyan just smiles at it. Surprised, Gonzi and Yu exchange glances. Shiyan notices their stares and asks, what are you looking at me for? Have you finished this report? Gonzi remarks, you look very happy today. You should share this good news with us too. Shiyan responds, investing in this new company is good news. That's why I am very happy. But Gonzi and Yu don't seem convinced. Meanwhile, Shu is having lunch and Shiyan messages her asking about her meal. Shu sends him a picture of her lunch. Shiyan replies, my girlfriend should eat more lunch. Shu playfully suggests, then you can take me out for dinner. Shiyan messages back, I'm busy tonight, so I'll take you out this weekend. Hearing this, Shu is very happy and agrees to the plan. Shiyue notices Shu messaging someone and asks, are you messaging you? Shu replies, I just consider you as my friend and nothing else. Shiyue comments, the one you like is actually suitable for you. Shu, happy to hear this, responds, I think you and you are also quite suitable for each other. Shiyue in turn becomes very happy. Later, while Shu is having dinner, she asks Shiyan, have you had dinner? Shiyan responds, not yet. Shortly after, Assistant Chen arrives with an order for Shiyan. At the same time, Shu video calls Shiyan, and they both have dinner together via video call. When Shiyan came home, Shiyue was working. Seeing this, Shiyan remarked, your senior is teaching you very well. Saying this, Shiyan went to his room. The next day, someone came to the office to meet Shu. When Shu approached him, they both looked at each other carefully. The boy introduced himself. My name is Yonggi. He showed Shiyan's interview and said to Shu, I also want to do an interview like this with you, but I have one request, that this interview of mine will be published in your company's digital magazine. Shu showed him her schedule and replied, I can't take your interview this week. Yonggi said, I can wait. Shu began, I don't even know you well, so I don't think I will be able to do it. Yonggi suggested, there is going to be a conference this Friday. I invite you there. Shu wanted to refuse, but Yonggi insisted, so Shu started searching for this press conference but couldn't find anything online. Later, when Shiyue went to take Yu's class, a boy named Yu Chung asked her, I only see you in this class. You are not seen in the rest of the classes. Shiyue replied, I am a reporter and I come to take Professor Yu's class only. At that moment, Yu arrived and the class began, but Shiyue couldn't find the page that Yu had asked everyone to open. Yu Chung helped her, and seeing them so friendly, Yu didn't like it. After this, Shu messaged Shiyan asking, are you working overtime today too? Shiyan replied, yes. Shu said, okay, then we will meet this weekend. Shiyan agreed and they both became busy with their work. Later, when Shu was tired after working and was about to order something for herself, her order arrived. The delivery boy said to Shu, your boyfriend sent this order. He cares about you so much. He explained to me for 10 minutes what I should and shouldn't put in your noodles. Seeing this, Shu felt very good. She sent a picture of the noodles to Shiyan, thanking him and saying, I like this special delivery very much, but I still want to eat with you. On the other hand, Shiyan smiled after reading Shu's messages. The next day, Shu came to meet Yonggi. It was a live stream, and Shu was a little surprised. Yonggi explained, I like this medium more because it can reach more people with your message. He introduced himself as Jackson Yi at the beginning of the live stream. Shu said, this name seems familiar, and quickly started Googling it. She found out that he was a genius who started his company. With this, Yonggi called his partner Bruce, which surprised Shu. Meanwhile, Shiyan received a call saying, Bruce has left your company. Later, Yonggi was talking to Shu about the interview date. Shu replied, I will give you an answer after thinking about it. Saying this, she left. While going back, Shu messaged Shiyan asking, how is everything going in the company? But the situation in the company was quite serious, so Shiyan didn't see Shu's messages. Shu came to Shiyan's company, where Assistant Chen told her, Shiyan has already left from here. Shiyan was sitting at home, drinking, and he looked very worried. At that moment, Shu arrived. As soon as she reached him, she hugs him. Shiyan asks, what are you doing here? Shu replies, nothing, I just missed you. Then she asks, were you drinking just now? Shiyan responds, yes. So, Shu said, why were you drinking alone? Let's do it together. Shiyan tells her about the problems he is facing in the business. Zhengshu holds his hand and says, "You are an investor. It's not your fault. Bruce has left your company. Those who don't fail never succeed either." Shiyan tried to say something, but Zhengshu doesn't let him speak and adds, "Now I am with you too." Shiyan says, "You should talk less." Zhengshu replies, "Okay, then tell me what you are thinking." So, Shiyan kissed Zhengshu. Next day, Zhengshu received a good morning message from Shiyan. She also messaged Shiyan, "Good morning." Shiyue calls, and upon seeing it, Zhengshu says, "I completely forgot that I had to go to the art museum with you and Shiyue today." When Zhengshu picks up the call, Shiyue says, "I'm ready. Shall I come to pick you up?" But Zhengshu refuses. Now Zhengshu is about to tell Shiyan about all her plans, but she thinks, "I will find some way to finish all my work as soon as possible and go to Shiyan." Both of them arrive at the art museum, and Yu is already waiting there for them. They enter the art museum, and while looking at all the paintings, Shiyue shares her extensive knowledge about them. Zhengshu asks, "Your knowledge about art is very good." Shiyue replies, "I have been reading about all this from some sources." She is happy about this because she is able to impress Yu by doing so. Shiyue is standing with Yu, watching a painting, when Zhengshu receives a message from her mom, asking her about the exhibition. Zhengshu goes to Shiyue, who is showing her a picture. Shiyue asks, "Whose picture is this?" Zhengshu responds, "This is Yu's mom's picture, and the painting that you were telling Yu about is made by his mom." Seeing this, Shiyue feels very embarrassed. So Zhengshu says, "It is not necessary for you to know about art too." But Shiyue is still embarrassed because she has mixed up the information of all the paintings while trying to impress Yu. Later, Zhengshu tells Yu, "I have to go to work overtime today." Yu says, "No problem, I will drop you off." Zhengshu responds, "No, I will go myself." Saying this, Zhengshu leaves. After Zhengshu leaves, Yu looks at his watch, so Shiyue shows her mobile phone and says, "When I was booking tickets for the art museum, I also booked 2 tickets for the movie, so let's go and watch it." Yu replies, "You should have booked 3 tickets." Shiyue feels embarrassed again, realizing she made a mistake, but Yu says, "I am free, so I will go with you to watch this movie." Shiyue is very happy to hear this. Shiyan sits in the office checking Shiyue's WeChat, where he sees art exhibition posts and asks her, "Who did you go to the art exhibition with?" Shiyue replies, "I came to the exhibition with Zhengshu and her friend." Shiyan asks her, "Which friend?" Shiyue answers, "The one with whom Zhengshu went on a blind date last time." After seeing this message, Shiyan is lost in thought. Now, Zhengshu arrives at the company and messages Shiyan, "I've come here." Shiyan tells her, "First, go to the air floor and take information from Mr. Zong, then come to me." Seeing this message, Zhengshu says, "Why is he treating me like his assistant?" Now, Zhengshu comes to Mr. Zong to take the information, and is surprised to see so many files. Meanwhile, Xiu and Yu are sitting together watching a movie. Xiu pretends to fall asleep while watching the movie, and tries to lean on Yu's shoulder, but Yu receives a message. She tries again, but Yu moves to the side to get water, causing Xiu's head to hit Yu's shoulder. Yu asks Xiu, "Are you sleepy?" Xiu replies, "Yes, I am a little sleepy." Yu says, "Then I'll drop you off home." Xiu is surprised, having not expected that answer. On the other hand, Zhengshu arrives at Shiyan's office after seeing all the papers. Shiyan is talking on the phone, so Zhengshu sits down to read the files. Seeing Zhengshu, Shiyan says, "This dress looks very good on you. Where did you go before this?" Zhengshu says, "I specially came here dressed up for you." But Shiyan doesn't respond to that. Instead, he asks, "Are you hungry?" Zhengshu replies, "No." Shiyan then says, "Then why are you looking at me?" Zhengshu responds, "You are not even looking at me. How do you know that I am looking at you?" Hearing this, Shiyan starts looking at his file. Zhengshu comments, "You are too good at teaching people." Hearing this, Shiyan sits down next to Zhengshu and tries to tease her by coming close to her. Zhengshu says, "I have to come here and work overtime too." Shiyan says, "Now I'm actually hungry." Zhengshu laughs and replies, "We can't eat at our workplace in our company." Shiyan laughs at her remark, and at that moment, food arrives for Zhengshu. After they finish eating, Shiyan says, "I have to go to a meeting, so you can stay here for a while." As he is leaving, Shiyan asks, "If you want to eat cupcakes, then..." He's about to say something when Zhengshu interrupts and refuses, and Shiyan leaves, smiling. After Shiyan leaves, Zhengshu messages Shen. Shen asks Zhengshu, "What happened?" Zhengshu replies, "Things are not going as I thought. At first, I was approaching Shiyan just for special report, but now I don't care about other people. I'm sure that Shiyan likes me very much, and that's why I want to stay with Shiyan. Whatever happens in the future, I want to face it all together with him. After sending this message, Zheng Shu lies down. When Xian comes into his office with his managers, he sees Zheng Shu sleeping there, and his managers feel very strange. Xian asks them to leave for a while, then fixes Zheng Shu's posture and covers her with his coat. He looks at her for a moment. When Zheng Shu opens her eyes, she sees Xian coming out of the bathroom and asks, "What are you doing here?" Xian replies, "This is my office." Zheng Shu is surprised to see him because Xian, seeing the files lying on the table, says, "You are treating my office like a hotel." Hearing this, Zheng Shu quickly gets up to work. After seeing this, Xian leaves and she messages Shen, "Because of you, all my work was going to get spoiled. Xian was about to hear your message." But as Xian is walking away, he remembers what Shen said because he heard everything. After leaving, he thinks, "Zheng Shu, did you approach me only for this?" Xian is a little angry after remembering those things. Meanwhile, Shiyue is with Yu. She asks him, "Do you have a girlfriend?" Yu replies, "No." Shiyue then asks, "What do you think of me?" He answers, "You are very good." Hearing this compliment, Shiyue feels very happy. Now, Xian comes back to the office, where Zheng Shu is talking to someone on the phone about her work. Xian asks her, "There is going to be a chip conference in next week. Aren't you going there?" Zheng Shu replies, "I want to go there, but I can't." Xian says, "Why? Don't you want to go? Or do you want to work with your old friend?" Zheng Shu is unable to respond, so Xian asks, "Doesn't the chip conference seem attractive to you?" Zheng Shu says, "I find this conference attractive too, but what is more attractive for me is that I'm going there with you." Xian says, "Okay, then I have made all the plans." Zheng Shu says, "I have a small request. If you are free on Friday, can we go to Wucheng first? Would you like to walk with me there?" Xian replies, "Okay." Today, Yonggi comes to Zheng Shu's company to meet her. At that moment, Yuling approaches him and tries to convince him to let her interview him, but Yonggi says, "Can you help me send Zheng Shu to me?" Hearing this, Yuling doesn't like it and walks away. After a while, Zheng Shu arrives. Zheng Shu asks Yonggi, "Why do you only want to have your interview with me?" Yonggi responds, "Because I like you very much. If you interview me, you'll get to know me better, and I'll also have a chance to show you my strengths." Zheng Shu replies, "But I don't think we are suitable for each other." Yang Yi starts, "You are rejecting me because you already have a boyfriend." Zheng Shu nods in response, so Yang Yi continues, "Take my interview, then you can compare me and him and choose the better option for yourself." Zheng Shu replies, "I have a boyfriend, and we are not breaking up. But your interview invitation is a good opportunity. I will think seriously about it." Later, Zheng Shu and Xian are out for a walk. Zheng Shu is about to fall, but Xian catches her and says, "Why aren't you paying attention while walking?" Zheng Shu replies, "You are with me, aren't you?" Xian asks, "Isn't it boring to date me?" Zheng Shu responds, "I was thinking about work." Xian comments, "Even though you are with me, you keep thinking about your work. Your work is probably more valuable to you than me." Zheng Shu explains, "Yang Yi wants me to interview him, and he wants to publish it in the digital magazine. But the problem is, he likes me." Hearing this, Xian is shocked, and Zheng Shu says, "But I rejected him at that time, saying I will never break up with my boyfriend." Xian says, "You said it very well." Then Zheng Shu adds, "He wants me to interview him, then compare you and him so I can choose a better option for myself. I don't want to lose this interview opportunity, and I don't want this interview to spoil our relationship." Xian says, "Whatever decision you make, I will support you. And anyway, if you haven't done the interview yet, who knows, you might end up liking me." Zheng Shu responds, "This is the first time you are praising me like this. I'm going to record it." Xian continues, "You like your work very much, and that's why I was attracted to you." Zheng Shu smiles and then kisses him, saying, "I will always love you like this." Afterward, they both start their walk. In the next scene, Zheng Shu is packing her belongings because she is going Wucheng with Xian. She gets a call from Xian who asks, "Are you ready?" Zheng Shu replies, "Yes." Xian tells her, "I sent my driver. I will wait for you." She is about to get into the car when her ex-boyfriend Xing shows up. Zheng Shu sees him and starts to leave, but Xing says, "I need to talk to you." Zheng Shu replies, "But I don't want to listen to anything you have to say." After much insistence, Zheng Shu agrees to listen. Xing Zhao asks, "Is your boyfriend married?" Angrily, Zheng Shu says, "I don't want to hear from you. And anyway, someone is waiting for me." When Xing sees her car, he is shocked. As she leaves, she says, "In the future, we will be relatives, so you should respect your elders a little." Zheng Shu gets into the car. After driving off, she receives a call from Xian, who tells her, "We will meet today." Someone calls Xian, so Zheng Shu says, "You are busy. Do your work." We will meet tonight. Later, she arrives at the hotel and messages Xiyan asking, "Where are you?" Xiyan is having lunch with everyone else when assistant Chen comes and informs him that Zhengshu has arrived. On the other hand, Zhengshu is waiting at the hotel, wondering why Xiyan hasn't come to meet her yet. At lunch, the group is discussing Xiyan and Yang Yi. Meanwhile, Zhengshu have been waiting for Xiyan since morning, sending message after message. When Xiyan sees the messages, he leaves immediately, but Yang Yi watches him carefully as he leaves. On his way back, Xiyan calls Zhengshu and asks, "What are you doing?" Zhengshu replies, "I am having fun here," and hangs up the call. Zhengshu goes out to buy food. A boy approaches her, asking her to drink with him. Zhengshu pulls her hand away and tries to leave, but two more boys block her path. As Zhengshu is about to leave, the man grabs her again. She struggles to free herself when suddenly Xiyan appears, twists the man's arm hard, pushes him aside, and grabs Zhengshu's hand, pulling her away. When they reach the elevator, Zhengshu pulls her hand back and asks, "What are you doing?" Xiyan, angry, responds, "Why did you go out alone at night?" Zhengshu explains, "I went to buy food for myself because you forgot me here after calling me." As they enter the lift, Xiyan says, "You didn't need to dress up so well to go out." Zhengshu says, "Will you teach me this now too?" Xiyan replies, "Don't you know how attractive you are?" Zhengshu smiles and says, "Are you attracted to me too?" Xiyan takes her hand, places it on his heart, and says, "You will feel it." Then Xiyan kisses her. They remain there until their floor arrives, and two girls call out to them, causing Zhengshu to quickly run away. Outside her room, Zhengshu asks, "Can you kiss me again?" "I couldn't feel anything." But Xiyan opens her door and says, "You should go to sleep." Still insisting, Zhengshu looks at him intently, but Xiyan says nothing more. When Xiyan is returning from Zhengshu's room, when he meets Shiyue. Seeing her, Xiyan asks, "What are you doing here?" Shiyue responds, "I'm here to learn more about my industry, and I came with Gonji." Xiyan replies, "Okay then, study properly," and leaves. Later, Xiyan sends a text to Zhengshu, "My niece is here. If you're interested, would you like to meet her today?" Zhengshu responds, "I'm here to work, so I'll meet her next time." Meanwhile, Shen is getting ready. Gonji sends her a text, "I am here." When Shen steps out of her room, she notices Gonji talking with Shiyue. She gets upset upon seeing them. When Shen goes to meet Zhengshu, Zhengshu mentions, "You know Chen Li is also here. What if we run into each other?" Shen reassures her, "This hotel has a lot of floors. I don't think we'll run into each other that easily." Xiyan finishes his work and sends Zhengshu a message saying that I am returning. Seeing this, Zhengshu thinks, if I meet Xiyan, I might have to meet Chen Li too. So, she texts Xiyan back, "I'm going to sleep. It's very late. You should sleep too." The next morning, Zhengshu exits her room ready for the day and finds Xiyan waiting for her. They go to have breakfast together, where Zhengshu asks, "What is your niece doing here?" Xiyan says, "She's here to enhance her knowledge at this chip conference." Zhengshu finds this a bit strange. As they prepare to leave, Zhengshu thinks, what if I meet Chen Li at the conference? If Xiyan finds out about my relationship with Chen Li, he might think I used him to get revenge to her. How can I explain? Noticing something off, Xiyan asks her, "What's wrong?" Zhengshu replies, "I'm not sleeping well due to the change in environment." Xiyan says, "You can rest now." Zhengshu rests her head on Xiyan's shoulder. Meanwhile, Yuling massaged Zhengshu. "Zhengshu, you came to the chip conference, but you told me you're going with your dad." Zhengshu's phone was connected via Bluetooth and he heard the conversation. Xiyan asks, "Why are you keeping it so secret from me?" Zhengshu doesn't reply to Xiyan and feels embarrassed. Xiyan doesn't say anything, just smiles. Then, both of them arrive at the chip conference. Zhengshu tells him, "You go inside first." Xiyan says, "Won't you come with me?" Zhengshu thinks, "I want to, but because of Chen Li, I can't." She tells Xiyan, "My friend is here. I'll find her first." Xiyan says, "Okay, I'll meet you in the lecture hall." Then, he leaves. Zhengshu is looking for Chen Li, but Shiyue comes to her. Zhengshu is surprised to see her. Shiyue says, "I'm here to learn." Zhengshu thinks, if I go inside with her, it's a great way to avoid Chen Li. Zhengshu tells Shiyue, "When you come back, give me a detailed report on this conference." But Shiyue is not listening and looking at Yu. After seeing Yu, Shiyue tells Zhengshu, "I'm going to the washroom." Then she goes to meet Yu. Yu asks her, "What are you doing here?" Shiyue replies, "This conference will help with my internship, so I asked Ganji to bring me along." Yu asks, "Do you know Ganji?" Shiyue says, "Yes, we're good friends." Yu doesn't like it and leaves. Xiyan is waiting for Zhengshu in the lecture hall. As soon as Zhengshu comes, Yu and Yongyi come to her too. Seeing the three together, Zhengshu feels awkward. She asks, "What are you doing here?" The three say in unison, "Come sit with us." Zheng Shu says, "I came on Mr. Shi Yan's invitation, so I have to sit with him." Zheng Shu tells Shi Yan, "I'm going to get coffee." Yu says, "I also want coffee. Let's go together." Seeing this, Shi Yan feels jealous. Zheng Shu tells Shi Yan, "I'm suddenly not feeling well. I'll go later." Yu asks Zheng Shu about her coffee and leaves. Then, Yongyi sits next to Zheng Shu. This makes Zheng Shu feel awkward. Yongyi calls out to Zheng Shu, and Shi Yan immediately holds Zheng Shu's hand. As Zheng Shu is getting messages, she releases Shi Yan's hand to check them. Shiyue is waiting for her coffee order. Yu comes to get coffee. Shiyue gets excited seeing him. Yu approaches Shiyue and says, "I always call you Professor Yu. It sounds weird. It's like we don't know each other." Yu says, "You can call me by my name." Shiyue gets happy and says, "Then you will also call me by my name?" Yu is lost in thought and asks, "Where is Ganji?" Shiyue says, "We both came together, but he left me at the hotel and went somewhere." Yu's order is ready, and he gives Shiyue a coffee. Shiyue is very happy to receive the coffee. Shen is preparing a report for her company. Ganji sees her and says, "Let's go inside together." Shen says, "I have a lot of work, and I'm from the media. We can't sit together." Ganji says, "I can arrange that." But Shen says, "It won't look good." Then she leaves. Yu and Shiyue are about to enter the hall when Shiyue remembers she told Ganji that she needs a seat far away from her uncle. Seeing this, Shiyue feels bad because he is sitting in the front row. Then, the chip conference starts. During the conference, Zheng Shu doesn't understand a technology concept. Yongyi starts explaining it to her, so Xian feels jealous again. During the conference, Zheng Shu feels unwell. Seeing this, Xian holds her hand and asks, "What's wrong?" Zheng Shu says, "I need to go back to the hotel." Xian says, "Okay, tell me when you reach the hotel." Just then, Assistant Chen comes and tells Zheng Shu, "I'll take you to the hotel." Xian tells Zheng Shu, "Give me your notebook and recording pen. You rest at the hotel." Zheng Shu leaves with Assistant Chen. Xian writes the remaining conference points in her diary. When the conference ends, Assistant Chen tells Xian, "When I took Zheng Shu back to the hotel, I saw some painkillers with her." Then, Xian goes to see Zheng Shu. Zheng Shu sees him and asks, "What are you doing here?" Xian says, "If I didn't come, would you have stayed alone?" Zheng Shu is happy and thinks, "Xian came to see me. How much he likes me." Xian asks her, "Where are you feeling pain?" She tells him, "I am having my periods." Xian says, "You shouldn't wear a short skirt. Go to sleep. I'm right here." Xian sits with her, and Zheng Shu falls asleep. While Zheng Shu is sleeping, she receives a call from her mother. She picks up the call, and her mother is asking her to go on a blind date. Zheng Shu says, "Mom, I told you I'll introduce you to my boyfriend on New Year's. I even sent you his picture," but her mother doesn't believe her. When the call ends, Shu Yan asks Zheng Shu, "Is your family pressuring you to go on blind dates?" Zheng Shu says, "No, my mom was asking me to choose a dog." Shu Yan asks her, "What kind of dogs do you like?" Zheng Shu says, "Chinese garden dogs." Shi Yan laughs. Zheng Shu tells Shi Yan, "You have a meeting. I'm fine. You can go for the meeting." Shi Yan checks the time and tells Zheng Shu, "If you need anything, message me." Then he leaves. After that, Zheng Shu gets a call from her college classmate who invites her to his wedding. Zheng Shu says, "I'm so happy to hear this. I'll definitely come to your wedding." Her classmate says, "I learned from your social media that you and Xing are not together. I was very close to Xing in college." Zheng Shu says, "No problem, you can also invite him." Her classmate says, "I called Xing this morning. He's coming with his girlfriend to my wedding." Hearing this, Zheng Shu is shocked. When the conference ends, Yu is leaving. He sees Shiwei sitting there and goes over to her. Shiwei says, "I didn't understand a lot of things at the conference today." Yu takes her diary and looks at her notes. He says, "You don't need to know all these technical terms because you have to write an article on financial matters. If you still don't understand something, you can always ask me." Shiyue is happy with this. Yu is leaving when he hears that Shiyue has to wait for 40 minutes for a taxi, so he offers to take her. Shiyue is happy and goes with Yu. Zheng Shu texts Shiyan wanting to talk to him. Shiyan replies, "Change your clothes, we're going out." Zheng Shu asks, "Where are we going?" Shiyan replies, "We're going to watch a movie." Then both of them leave to watch the movie. Zheng Shu posts a picture of the movie ticket on her social media. Shiyue sees this post. Shiyan compliments Zheng Shu's post. Zheng Shu is happy that Shiyan complimented her. Shiyue sees it and thinks, "Can my uncle compliment someone?" Shiyue makes a guess about her uncle and thinks, "Maybe my uncle only likes Zheng Shu." Is Zheng Shu watching a movie with you? She says, "Instead of guessing, I should just go and find out the truth." Shiyue goes to Yu's room. She starts to knock on the door, but then thinks, I don't think it's appropriate to go into Yu's room at this time. So she steps back and thinks. Just then, the reception calls Yu and says, there is someone standing outside your room. We saw them through the camera, so we called to remind you to lock your door before sleeping. Yu looks through the door and sees Shiyue standing there. He sees that Ganji has come out of the room across from him. Yu thinks that Shiyue came to meet Ganji, so he leaves. In the movie, there is a scene where the male lead tells the heroine that she betrayed his feelings and then leaves her. Seeing this, Zhengshu thinks, if I told Shiyan the truth, would he react the same way? Because Shiyan is watching this movie very intently. After watching the movie, Shiyan and Zhengshu return to the hotel. Zhengshu sees Ganji and Shen and tries to pull her hand away from Shiyan, but Shiyan doesn't let her. As soon as Shen sees Zhengshu, she calls out to her, and Zhengshu quickly pulls her hand away. The four are all in an awkward situation. Zhengshu asks Shen, what are you two doing here? Shen replies, I just met Ganji. Zhengshu says, what a coincidence. We all met here coincidentally. Shiyan is angry after hearing Zhengshu's statement, and Ganji takes him away. Shiyan is looking at Zhengshu as they leave, and Zhengshu thinks, I've never seen Shiyan so angry. Shiyue texts Yu about a movie saying, let's watch it together. But Yu replies, we have a meeting tomorrow, so we should rest. Shiyue is upset after reading the message. After returning to his room, Shiyan thinks, why doesn't Zhengshu want to tell anyone about our relationship? Next day, after meeting, Yu is leaving when Shiyue sees him and runs towards him, but bumps into a man. She is about to fall, but Yu catches her. Shiyue asks Yu, do you have any other plans? Yu says, no. Shiyue says, let's have lunch together. Yu agrees, and the two leave. Yu and Shiyue arrive for lunch. Shiyue says, finally, we're having lunch. Yu says, why were you so excited to have lunch with me? Shiyue says, you've helped me a lot. Also, food brings people closer. Yu says, you're my student, so it's my duty to help you. Zhengshu is at the office when Shiyan texts her inviting her for dinner. Zhengshu sees the message but doesn't reply. Everyone has gone back. Zhengshu is looking at Shiyan's message. She then texts him, I'm working overtime so I don't know when I'll be free. Shiyan waits outside Zhengshu's office and reads the message. Shen calls Zhengshu. Zhengshu tells her, I'm having dinner with Shiyan tonight, but I'm scared I'll hurt his feelings. Shen says, my advice is, if your relationship is not stable, you shouldn't tell him. Give it some time. Your relationship will get stronger. Then if you tell him, he will say, I love you, I've already forgiven you. Now we're together. That's what's important to me. So try things that make your relationship stronger. Zhengshu says, I'll try. Zhengshu coming out of work. When Shiyan is waiting for her, Zhengshu tells Shiyan, I'm very hungry, but I'm too tired to open my door. As soon as she says this, Shiyan opens the car door for her. When Shiyan gets into the car, he gives her milk tea. As soon as Zhengshu takes it, she thinks, Shiyan has been waiting for me here for a long time. She feels good seeing this. Later, Zhengshu texts Shiyan at the office. My house is very close to the railway station, so you don't need to drop me off. Shiyan replies, I'm very close to your house. It'll only take half an hour. Now Zhengshu goes to the mall and buys gifts for her parents. She is looking for a watch for her dad when she finds a watch she likes. Just then, Chen Li comes with her friend. Seeing her, Zhengshu buys the watch. Chen Li says, the easiest way is to find a rich boyfriend. You can buy whatever you want. Zhengshu then receives a message from Shiyan. He asks, what time will you leave tomorrow? Zhengshu replies, I'll leave at 7 a.m. for the railway station. Shiyan says, I'll drop you off. Zhengshu sends a voice message to Shiyan for Chen Li to hear saying, I'll be waiting for you. Then she takes the watch and leaves. As Zhengshu is leaving with the watch, she tells Chen Li, what's the big deal if my boyfriend is rich? When you meet him, you have to respect him. With that, she leaves. Shiyue comes to the university to meet Yu. Yu asks her, what are you doing here? Shiyue says, you're going back home, so I came to say goodbye. Yu says, you came to say goodbye to me specifically. Shiyue sees the cat Yu is holding, and she likes it. She grabs it. While doing this, the cat scratches Shiyue's hand with its claws. Yu sees Shiyue's hand and asks, does it hurt a lot? Shiyue says, no. Yu says, I'll take you to the hospital. Yu is taking Shiyue, holding her hand, when Shiyue is happy even with this injury. After getting a bandage, Shiyue tells Yu, thank you for bringing me here. The doctor told me to get vaccinated. She asks Yu, are you going back to your hometown? Please remind me. Yu says, okay, I'll remind you every time. Shiyue is happy to hear that. The next day, Zhengshu leaves home with her luggage and Shiyan is waiting for her. Shiyan comes to her and takes her luggage and starts taking her to the car. Then, both of them arrive at the railway station. Shiyan tells Zhengshu, I'm sad. Zhengshu says, I'm also sad because I won't see you for so many days. Shiyan hands Zheng Shu her luggage. As Zheng Shu is leaving, she thinks, "You should stop me and say that you're going to drop me to my hometown." But Shiyan doesn't stop her, and Zheng Shu leaves. Zheng Shu has arrived home and her parents are very happy with the gifts she brought them. Zheng Shu then receives a message from Shiyan. Seeing the message, she goes to her room. Shiyan asks her, "Did you reach home?" Zheng Shu says, "Yes, I'm at home. Since I came home, one thing has been on my mind and it is you." Shiyan smiles after reading her message and then checks his schedule. Shiyue is looking at her phone, that Yu will remind her to go to the hospital, and Yu also set a reminder on his phone. Seeing this, Yu texts Shiyue. Shiyue is happy after reading the message and says, "Are you worried about me? I don't want to get the injection alone. Will you take me next time?" Yu is thinking about it, and then texts Shiyue, "Okay, I'll go with you next time." Zheng Shu gets a call from Shiyan. He asks her, "Did you have dinner for New Year?" Zheng Shu says, "Not yet, did you?" Shiyan says, "No, not yet. I miss you." Zheng Shu says, "I miss you too. I want to see you." Zheng Shu is talking to Shiyan when her mother calls her for dinner. She says goodbye to Shiyan and hangs up. Then, Zheng Shu celebrates New Year with her family and tells her parents, "Let's take a picture together." Later, Zheng Shu is watching TV with her family when she gets a call from Shiyan. She goes to her room to take the call. Her parents are surprised to see her go to her room for a phone call. Her parents are shocked and say, "We should go and see." Zheng Shu is talking to Shiyan on video call and tells him, "My college senior's wedding is coming up." Zheng Shu's parents hear this and her mom says, "There is something wrong. She doesn't talk to anyone this lovingly on the phone." Her dad says, "We should go." Zheng Shu asks Shiyan about his niece, and Shiyan says she is busy with her activities, and adds, "Come back soon." Zheng Shu says, "Okay, if my parents go to sleep early, I'll call you." Shiyan indirectly tells her, "I don't go to sleep so early." Zheng Shu says, "I understand." Now both of them are looking at each other. Zheng Shu asks, "Why aren't you hanging up?" Shiyan says, "I'm waiting for you to hang up." Zheng Shu wishes him Happy New Year and hangs up. Then Shiyue sees Shiyan and says, "You went out to make a call? You were talking to someone for more than 10 minutes. You won't talk about work on New Year's. You were talking to a girl, weren't you?" Shiyan says, "I was talking to my girlfriend." Everyone is surprised to hear this. Zheng Shu sends Shiyan pictures of 2 dresses and asks him which one he likes better. Shiyan asks her, "Where are you going?" Zheng Shu replies, "I'm going to meet someone important." Seeing this message, Shiyan tells his family, "I have some important work," and leaves. Zheng Shu is ready to go to the wedding. Then she goes to her senior's wedding. After meeting her senior, she's about to sit at the table when her friends come to take her. They forcefully take her away. At the table, her friend asks, "Do you have a boyfriend now?" As she's about to answer, Xing and Chen Li arrive. Everyone turns to look at them. When the bride throws the bouquet, it lands at Zheng Shu's hand. Everyone asks Zheng Shu if she has a boyfriend, and she says, "Yes." Hearing this, everyone claps for Zheng Shu. Zheng Shu then sends a picture of the flowers to Shiyan. Shiyan asks her, "Did you have fun at the wedding?" Zheng Shu says, "No." Shiyan asks her why, and Zheng Shu says, "Because I met someone here that I don't like." When they are all having dinner, Chen Li is showing off to Xing in front of Zheng Shu. Everyone is irritated by her actions. Zheng Shu's friend asks her about her boyfriend, and hearing this, Chen Li says, "Zheng Shu's boyfriend is very rich and handsome, but he's just a bit older than her." An argument is about to start between the two, but Xing stops Chen Li. Meanwhile, Zheng Shu receives a voice message from Shiyan that says, "If you're not happy here, come outside, I'm waiting for you." Hearing the voice message, Zheng Shu says goodbye to everyone and leaves. When Zheng Shu comes outside, Shiyan is waiting for her. When both of them sit in the car, Chen Li and Xing also come out and watch Shiyan's car intently. Zheng Shu rolls down her window and asks, "What are you looking at so intently?" Chen Li is surprised to learn that Shiyan is Zheng Shu's boyfriend. Master Fan asks Chen Li, "What are you doing here?" Chen Li replies, "Uncle, I came for the wedding." Zheng Shu is shocked to know that Chen Li's uncle is Master Fan, not Shiyan. Just then, Zheng Shu's senior comes and says, "I'm sorry, I didn't handle everything properly." Everyone behind them starts gossiping about what happened inside. Shiyan also hears all this and gets angry. Seeing this, Master Fang makes Chen Li apologize to Zheng Shu in front of everyone. Zheng Shu is very awkward because of this situation. Then they leaves. Later, Shiyue and Zheng Shu go to the spa. Shiyue asks Zheng Shu, "Why are you in such a bad mood?" Zheng Shu says, "Because of New Year." When both of them change their clothes, Shiyue asks Zheng Shu, "What's the status of your relationship with the guy you're chasing?" Zheng Shu replies, "It's complicated. I can't explain." Shiyue says, "I'll introduce you to my uncle." Zheng Shu says, "I don't want to know any other uncle." Shiyue says, all right, let's take a selfie. Then she posts the selfie on her social media. As both of them are leaving, Zhengshu sees Xian coming towards them. Zhengshu is surprised and thinks, how is it possible that Xian is here? As soon as Shiyue sees Xian, she calls out to him, Uncle! Zhengshu is shocked to hear this. Xian tells Shiyue, go back to your room. Xian is looking at Zhengshu intently, and she feels awkward. Then, Xian takes Zhengshu away. Shiyue sees them leaving. Xian takes Zhengshu to a restaurant. Xian asks her, why are you upset because of me? Zhengshu tells him, when I first saw you with Shiyue, I thought you liked her. But now I know that you're Shiyue's uncle. If you had clarified this earlier, I wouldn't have thought so much. Xian asks Zhengshu, how much do you like me? Zhengshu is about to answer but then stops. But Xian doesn't let her go and asks, how much do you like me? More than your ex-boyfriend or not? Zhengshu says, I like you more than him. Xian says, I believe you. Zhengshu is about to tell Xian something when she receives a call from her dad asking about her to return home. Zhengshu says, don't worry, I'll be back soon. Zhengshu is leaving after telling her dad when Xian stops her and says, don't you know I came here for you? Zhengshu wants to stay, but she doesn't and leaves. Xian returns to his room, where Master Fan is standing and Dee says, I came here to apologize to you on behalf of my niece. It all happened because of a misunderstanding. Xian asks, what misunderstanding? Master Fan says, Chenli's boyfriend thought that you were Chenli's uncle, so he left Zhengshu. Xian then remembers what he heard Shen saying to Zhengshu. He says, if you didn't want money, then why were you chasing me? Xian is angry after hearing all this. He has already booked a restaurant for tomorrow with Zhengshu. The manager calls to confirm it. Xian says, it's not needed now. He's upset with all of this and goes to his room to drink. Xian receives a call from Shiyue, who says, I have a lot of pain in my stomach. Xian says, change your clothes. I'll take you to the hospital. Both of them arrive at the hospital. Shiyue has a fever. She is constantly saying her uncle to talk to Zhengshu, but Xian tells her to rest. Shiyue then takes a picture of her hand and posts it on social media saying, I'm in the hospital emergency room. The next morning, Zhengshu wakes up, thinking something. Yu sees Shiyue's WeChat post and leaving his house. Meanwhile, Shiyue and Xian spend the night together at the hospital. Shiyue looks at her phone and says, Yu hasn't come yet. Xian tells Shiyue, you should rest a little, then we'll go back home. Shiyue says, we just came here yesterday. Xian says, you're sick. Then both of them leave the hospital. Yu arrives running and asks at the reception about Shiyue. The nurse tells him that Shiyue has left after her checkup. Yu texts Shiyue, are you all right now? Yu wants to ask her where she is, but he doesn't send the message. Zhengshu reaches the aquarium and waits outside for Xian. She waits for a long time and wants to text him, but she doesn't. Meanwhile, Xian is sitting in his car outside the aquarium. He's watching Zhengshu. After waiting for a long time, Zhengshu calls Xian. Xian picks up the call and she asks, are you coming or not? Xian says, should I act with you too? Hearing this, the flowers in Zhengshu's hand fall. Zhengshu is about to say something when Xian hangs up the call. She starts remembering Shen's words that a good interview requires understanding. Xian heard everything. Zhengshu says, I'm sorry, and starts crying while standing there. Next day, Yongyi arrives at Zhengshu's house. Zhengshu's mom opens the door. Understand. Zhengshu comes out of her room and is surprised to see Yongyi there. She asks him, what are you doing here? Yongyi wishes her happy new year. Her mom tells him, he came from far away. Take good care of him. Then her mom leaves. Zhengshu says, this city is not that big. I have some work, so I can't go with you. Yongyi asks, are you hungry? Then he prepares food for Zhengshu. Zhengshu tries the food and it's really good. She asks Yongyi, what are you doing here? Yongyi says, don't you know that I came here for you? Zhengshu says, stop it. You should go back. Yongyi asks, is it really so hard to break up with Xian? Zhengshu doesn't reply and starts eating. Yongyi says, after dinner, will you take me to your high school? Then both of them arrive at Zhengshu's high school. Zhengshu says, the gate is closed, so we should go back. Yongyi stands there and looks at the school. He says, I hope you'll think about me seriously. Zhengshu says, there's someone else in my heart. Yongyi says, I know, and he's already taken a step back from you. Zhengshu says, even if he's gone, I can wait. Then he sees bicycles and says, let's ride them. Both of them start riding bicycles. Zhengshu says, thank you for today. Yongyi says, if you want to thank me, give me a chance. But Zhengshu refuses again. Then, the New Year holidays are over, and Zhengshu returns to work. She says to herself, my priority is work, and I'll only focus on that. Shiyue texts Zhengshu, I'm not feeling well, so I won't come to the office today. Meanwhile, Shiyan is at his office and checking WeChat when he sees this. He is shocked. In the next scene, Yu's assistant comes to Shiyue and gives her a book. Yu sees them talking. He says to her, will you not come to classes again? She says, I will definitely come. Now Yu comes to them. The assistant says to Shiyue, Professor Yu is very nice. Why don't you tell him that you will be late? Saying this, he leaves. Shiyue is about to leave, but Yu stops her and says, do you have time? Will you go to lunch with me? Shiyue says, okay. Now they are having lunch. Yu says to her, why did you suddenly come to the university today? She says, I needed notes. He says, if that was the case, you could have told me. She says, I just didn't understand the course. He says, then you should attend classes. The topic I am teaching is also relevant to your work. If you don't understand anything, you can come and ask me. Shiyue thinks, why has he suddenly started caring so much for me? Maybe because I came to the university after so many days, she tells him. I was sick, so I couldn't attend classes. Then when she comes home, Shiyan is already sitting at home. He says to her, why are you so late? She says, I was with my friends. Shiyan looks very sad. Shiyue says to him, Uncle, don't be sad. It's not your fault. You were just delayed. He says to her, you don't need to go to work anymore. Shiyue thinks, I was making some progress with you today, but now I have to quit my job. Next day, she goes to Zhengshu and says, I need leave. My family says that until I am well, I should rest at home. Zhengshu says, okay. Then Zhengshu asks her, does your uncle know that you are taking leave? Shiyue says a little shyly, my uncle said so. Zhengshu says, then okay, you rest. Zhengshu thinks, Shiyan, you are keeping people associated with you away from me. Next day, she comes to meet Shiyan, but his assistant says, boss is busy. She says, I will come tomorrow. But he says, the boss says that the cooperation with your company should be stopped. Zhengshu says, can you let me meet Shiyan for once? He says, I am sorry. The boss has forbidden you from meeting him again. Now Zhengshu sadly leaves from there. While leaving, she messages Shiyan, forgive me. I shouldn't have lied to you. I wanted to tell you this for a long time, but I didn't know where to start. She is very sorry. Shiyan reads Zhengshu's message. She messages him, if possible, I want to apologize in person. I don't want any problem in our company's cooperation because of us. Reading this message, Shiyan gets angry. She also says, I care about you a lot. But this message is not delivered to Shiyan, so she sadly starts crying. Going to the office, she emails Shiyan, I don't want any damage to both companies' projects because of me. So I'm sending all the details of this project. Now my colleague will handle this project. Shiyan gets even angrier. Now Zhengshu's boss finds out about her leaving the project. She gets angry at her and says, how can you do this? She says, if I don't leave this project, both companies cannot work together. Zhengshu's boss understands that there is some fight between them. She says, okay, I will think about it, but you also think about this project. After this, Zhengshu talks to Shen in the office. Shiyan has blocked me and is not responding to my emails. Shen encourages her, saying, you shouldn't think too much. Go home and rest. Yuling is also listening to Zhengshu's conversation. After this, Zhengshu goes to her boss and says, I cannot do this project. Her boss agrees. Then Yuling comes to Zhengshu and says, I will not create a special report on Shiyan according to your plan. She says, what are you saying? She says, I know how you obtained this special report from Shiyan. Then she proudly says, I will use this special report in my name. The next day she comes to Shiyan's company and says, I am here for the special report. Shiyan says, the cooperation between your company and our company is over. She says, I will only take a little of your time. Shiyan says, I will not give an interview to 2 journalists, and then leaves from there. In the next scene, Young-gi takes Zhengshu for boxing, and after practice, he asks her, how did you feel? She says, I felt quite good. The next day also, Yu doesn't see Shiyue in class, so he messages Zhengshu to meet. Zhengshu is sitting sadly, so he says, you look tired. Doesn't your intern help you with your work? She says, Shiyue has taken a long leave. Now Zhengshu notes that Yu is worried about Shiyue. She says, nothing happened to her. She was just a little sick, so her family asked her to rest. Zhengshu asks Yu about Shiyan's company. So he says, are you and Shiyan together? She says, everything is over between us. Yu says, Shiyan doesn't get angry easily. If he is doing this to you, it means he cares a lot about you. If you explain it properly, he will understand. Zhengshu says, I apologized to him, but he blocked me, so I cannot contact him. Yu says, how did you apologize to him? Zhengshu tells him everything. Yu says, Shiyan is angry that you care more about your work than his feelings. She says, you are right. It's all my fault. He says, now you know what to do next? She says, yes, and thanks for your help. In the next scene, Shiyan has come for a walk. His assistant calls him. I have found out Jungshu herself left the project. Now Jungshu also comes there for a walk, but they leave without seeing each other. At night, Shiyan is standing sadly, so Shiyue asks him, are you sad? What is the reason? He says, if a girl is chasing you and suddenly she stops contacting you for some reason, what could be the reason behind it? She says, sometimes the girl gets tired of doing this, so the boy should take the first step himself. Shiyue asks him, is there any misunderstanding between you and Jungshu? At that moment, Shiyue receives a message from Yu. Can she go with him for vaccination? She becomes happy and asks Shiyan, what is the most important thing in a relationship for you? Shiyan says, the most important thing in a relationship is truthfulness, and two people treat each other sincerely. If they don't think about the base of the relationship, they separate after some time. Saying this, Shiyan goes to his room, while Shiyue comes to her room and thinks about his words. She receives messages from Yu. You haven't come to class for a few days, so I have put all the work on the site. If you don't understand anything, you can call me anytime and also come to see me. Hearing this, she becomes happy. Then she remembers Shiyan's words, so she messages him. Thanks for your notes, but I will go for the vaccination myself. Reading this, Yu is thinking, what happened to Shiyue now? In the next scene, Yoongi introduces Jungshu to all the people he had talked about. Jungshu is very happy after interviewing them. On the other hand, Yu is reading Shiyue's article, and he praises her. Shiyue happily thinks that she has found the purpose of her life. Now Shiyue has come to attend Yu's class. She thanks the assistant because he kept a place for her. She gives him juice to thank him, which Yu doesn't like at all. As soon as the class ends, Yu comes to Shiyue and asks her, what did you not understand? She says, I didn't understand these points, so he says, yes, read the notes I gave you. If you still don't understand, I will explain it to you. Now Shiyue thanks him and is about to leave, so Yu says, I don't have any class, so why don't we both go for lunch? Shiyue agrees. Then they are going to the canteen when a student comes and says, the seniors' graduation ceremony is going to happen. We want you to lecture there. Shiyan says, I will leave. You talk comfortably. But Yu says, no need to go, and says to the student, I will talk to you later. She asks him, is she your girlfriend? He doesn't answer. Shiyue says, why didn't you explain that I am not your girlfriend? He says, I didn't feel the need to explain. Now they both start smiling. In the next scene, Jungshu receives a message from Yoongi. He talks about taking her to a charity dinner. She is thinking about replying to him. Yoongi is passing by talking to someone that Shiyan is also coming to the charity dinner. Now she accepts Yoongi's invitation. When both of them arrive at the event, when Shiyan sees both of them together, he thinks, what is Yoongi doing with Jungshu? Then they both start looking at each other. Now Shiyan is about to go to Jungshu, but his ex-girlfriend arrives, which Jungshu doesn't like. Now Yoongi, seeing this, takes her for snacks, and Shiyan sees her leaving. While Shiyan is looking at her, his ex-girlfriend asks, do you know her? He says yes. Now Yoongi gives Jungshu cake to eat, but Jungshu wasn't hungry. She was only looking at Shiyan. So Yoongi takes her outside, and Shiyan also sees her leaving. Now outside, both are having drinks. Yoongi says to her, do you think I can be a good boyfriend? She says, you can be a good boyfriend, but it has no connection with me because I like someone else. On the other hand, Shiyan's ex was saying to him, can't we give each other another chance? He says, it can't happen. She says, you have broken up with your girlfriend. He says, when did I say that I am breaking up with her? Yoongi says to Jungshu, if you like him so much, why aren't you with him? She says, it's my fault. Now Yoongi is about to take Jungshu away. Coming out, Shiyan is looking for Jungshu. He sees that Jungshu and Yoongi are climbing a tree. He says to Jungshu, come down. She says, I don't want to see you. Yoongi is asking her to come up to show her the view, while Shiyan is telling her to come down. She says, I will not come down until you call me affectionately. Now Shiyan affectionately calls her fairy. Hearing this, Jungshu comes down, and Shiyan catches her lest she fall. She says, I feel very bad when you ignore me. Yoongi tells him to leave Jungshu. He says, whatever Jungshu needs, I will give it to her, and then starts taking her with him. He seats her in the car and sits down, giving her his coat. Jungshu says to him, don't go. I miss you a lot. Now she repeatedly takes Shiyan's name, so he says, I am here. She hugs him and says, I want to come to you. He says, then you have to answer one question of mine. Do you have feelings for me in your heart? Jungshu doesn't answer. He looks at her and she is asleep. He lets her sleep. Then they leave from there. At night, Shiyan unblocks her. In the morning, Jungshu receives a message from Yoongi. Are you feeling better now? She starts asking him, who dropped me home last night? But she doesn't ask him and thinks about last night, but she doesn't remember anything. Then when she comes to the office, Her colleague tells her that Yonggi sent fruits for you. She asks them to distribute them among everyone. Then she receives a message that a parcel is coming. She goes to check, and it is a skateboard. Yonggi has written a note in it. Hope I am with you while riding on this. Now she messages him to return the board. He says, what happened? You didn't like it? What can I do to make you happy in the end? She says, what happened after dinner yesterday? He says, if you want to know about it, you have to meet me. She says, I don't want to know about it. He says, as you please. Still, I will wait for you for lunch. The next day, Xu Yan finds out that Yonggi is chasing Zheng Shu. He doesn't feel good hearing this. The boss calls Yuling and says, you didn't do the work properly. If this continues, I will give this project to someone else. Now Yuling comes to Zheng Shu and says, first you were with Xu Yan, and now with Yonggi. That's why your reports are good. Her colleague says, you shouldn't say such things. Zheng Shu's reports are good because she is good at her work. Zheng Shu says, I will not admit something I didn't do. Yuling gets angry and leaves. In the next scene, Zheng Shu is telling her friend Shen, I drank a little too much on the night of the dinner, so I don't remember who dropped me home. I feel like Xu Yan dropped me home, but maybe it's my dream. Xu Yan was with his ex-girlfriend. Shen says, it could be Xu Yan. He might have come to meet you after that, and Yonggi is not bad either. You should think about it. She says, feelings are not like MCQs that we can choose anyone. In the next scene, Zheng Shu comes to Yonggi with the skateboard. He says to her, if you ride this board, I will tell you what happened that night. Zheng Shu gets on the board. Yonggi tells her, that night you were saying bad things about Xu Yan. After hearing that, Xu Yan got angry. Then he took you away from there. Zheng Shu says, what happened after that? He says, I don't know. After coming to the office, Zheng Shu thinks, so many days have passed. Why am I still thinking about it? In the next scene, Fei Ao Na comes to meet Xu Yan. She says to him, I know my dad and uncle don't support you, but I support you a lot. At that time, her dad arrives there. Fei Ao Na goes to her dad. He says to her, you shouldn't have come straight here from the airport. He says to Xu Yan, if you have any trouble because of her, please forgive her. He says, she is like my younger sister to me. Zheng Shu is eating noodles in a restaurant when she receives a call from Xu Yan. She goes straight to Xu Yan's office from there, saying, I should talk to him for once. Now she is about to get out of the car when she sees Xu Yan with Fei Ao Na. Seeing this, Zheng Shu feels bad. Then she leaves from there. In the next scene, Guanji and Shen have come for horse riding. Xu Yan also arrives there, so Shen doesn't feel good. She starts talking about Zheng Shu, saying, you have removed her from everywhere, and her project is being done by their company and another girl. Xu Yan says, that's not true. I still love Zheng Shu. Guanji says to Shen, help Xu Yan in this matter. Zheng Shu finds out that Xu Yan's company is not doing well. Her boss is scolding Yonggi. You go to Xu Yan's company every day, but you don't have any information. She says, I will try to do better from now on. But the boss says, you will not do this project. Now she comes out and says to Zheng Shu, the boss has called you to her room. Now she says to Zheng Shu, you should focus on the project by keeping your personal feelings aside at this time. Anyway, it's a difficult time for their company. So she thinks Xu Yan will be in trouble at this time. The boss is saying to her, through this post, you can improve your digital magazine. Zheng Shu says to them, thanks for giving me this opportunity. I will try to do better. Now she comes to Xu Yan's office, and both of them look at each other for some time. Zheng Shu says, thank you for your time. I am sure that article will bring some improvement to your company's situation. He is saying something further, but Xu Yan says, did you come here to say this to me? Now she doesn't say anything. Xu Yan says, reporter Zheng Shu, you leave from here. Then she leaves. At that time, Xu Yan's assistant comes and tells him, reporters have come downstairs. Xu Yan asks her to come down with him. Now he comes down, and all the reporters rush to him and start asking Xu Yan questions. Zheng Shu is standing aside watching all this. Xu Yan is saying to them, there is no result of whatever discussion has happened yet, so I cannot give you any statement. On a reporter's question, what will you say about those who are withdrawing shares from your company? He says, I cannot stay with those who don't have a pure heart. Now Zheng Shu sadly leaves. Then she comes to the office, and Yonggi is leaving in a hurry. She accidentally pushes Zheng Shu, so Zheng Shu sits down and starts crying. Yang gets worried and asks her, are you hurt? Now a colleague of Zheng Shu comes and asks Yonggi, what did you do to her? She says, I just bumped into her. She asks Zheng Shu, what happened to you? She says, I am fine. You leave from here. Then she wipes her tears and sits down at her table. She stays in the office until night. Then she is about to delete Xu Yan's number from her phone, but while doing so, she starts crying. Then she doesn't delete it and starts doing her work. On the other hand, Xu Yan has come to eat noodles. He is remembering Zheng Shu, so he starts reading their old chat. After many days, Xu Yue has come to attend Yu's class. After class, Yu's assistant is explaining some points to Xu Yue, but Yu doesn't like him doing so. After that, when both of them are going back, the assistant says to Xu Yue, "Do you have a boyfriend?" Xu Yue says no. He says, "Can I chase you?" Now Yu is also coming there and hears this conversation. Xu Yue says, "I don't think we are suitable for each other. Anyway, we don't know each other much." He says, "I like you, and we have time to know each other." Xu Yue is about to say something when Yu arrives there and asks them, "What are you both talking about?" The assistant says, "I just confessed my feelings to Xu Yue." Even in front of Yu, he says, "I like you very much. I hope you will give me a chance." But Xu Yue rejects him, so he leaves from there. Now Xu Yue is about to leave, so Yu says, "I want to take you somewhere." Now he brings her to his motorbike and makes her wear a helmet. Then they leave. Yu shows Xu Yue the view of the entire city from the top, which Xu Yue likes very much. Yu says, "We are not suitable for each other. You are quite young." Hearing this, Xu Yue gets angry. She says to him, "Did you bring me here to say this?" And she starts leaving. So Yu says to her, "I like you." Now hearing this, Xu Yue starts smiling. He says, "I have many questions that I want to ask." Xu Yue says, "You can ask me." He says, "These questions have been going on in my mind for a long time, so I hope you will choose me thoughtfully." Now Xu Yue starts telling him all the details of his bike. Yu is impressed and says, "How do you know so much about it?" She says, "I like such bikes quite a lot, and I have a weak point that you don't know. So we should increase our understanding by knowing each other. Because whenever we like someone, we also accept their likes and dislikes. And I also like you." Now Yu starts smiling. Xu Yue is happy that Professor Yu has become my boyfriend now. Then he comes to drop her home. Xu Yue kisses him goodbye and goes inside. Yonggi has come to buy bags with Zheng Shu. Zheng Shu says, "You didn't need to come here because you are busy." He says, "My business is going very well, and this is my free time." Xu Yue also came there with Yu, who seeing Zheng Shu with Yonggi thinks, why is she with them? Now she comes to the restaurant behind them with Yu. Seeing Zheng Shu, she says, "What a coincidence that I met you here." Zheng Shu is surprised to see Xu Yue's hand in Yu's hand. Now the food arrives, so Yonggi says, "Have dinner with us." So she sits with Zheng Shu. Then she sends a picture of the food to Shi Yan saying that Zheng Shu ordered this. Yonggi is giving Zheng Shu different things, which Shi Yan didn't like. Now Xu Yue puts something on Zheng Shu's plate and says, "My uncle liked these potatoes a lot in his hometown." Hearing this, Yonggi says, "Why didn't you tell me that such a good thing is available in your hometown when we met on New Year's?" Hearing this, Xu Yue feels even worse. She messages her uncle, "If you don't want to lose Zheng Shu, you will have to be active too." On the other hand, Shi Yan is sitting upset at home. Seeing Xu Yue's message, he gets even more upset. Then he goes to Zheng Shu's house. Zheng Shu is resting in her room. She wasn't feeling well, so her eyes open. It starts raining, so she goes to the balcony to take off her clothes. Then she feels worse, so she comes out to go to the hospital. Shi Yan sees her coming out. He calls out to her. She looks back, but because of her poor health, she can't see properly. She thinks this is probably her imagination. Then she starts leaving, so Shi Yan calls out to her again. She looks back again, and this time Shi Yan also comes out with an umbrella. Now he asks her, "Where are you going?" She says, "I am not feeling well, so I'm going to the hospital." Hearing this, Shi Yan asks her to get into his car. Now Zheng Shu is going to the hospital with Shi Yan, but she is quite upset. She doesn't have the courage to talk to Shi Yan because she feels that she has no right to talk to Shi Yan anymore. Thinking this, Zheng Shu starts crying. Shi Yan gives her tissues to wipe her tears. But seeing this, Zheng Shu starts crying even more. Now, after coming to the hospital, Zheng Shu has to get her blood checked. The nurse starts taking her blood sample. She says, "I have dehydration. Is it necessary to take blood for this?" The nurse doesn't say anything, but Zheng Shu is scared. As soon as the nurse draws her blood, Shi Yan puts his hand on Zheng Shu's eyes so that Zheng Shu cannot see it. When the nurse takes the blood, Shi Yan also leaves from there. Now both of them are waiting for the test results. He asks her, "Why were you crying so much in the car?" Zheng Shu is thinking something. If all that hadn't happened on New Year's Day, we would have been together. She says, "I was crying because I had to come to the hospital because I was sick." Shi Yan says, "If you weren't sick, you would have been at my house." Zheng Shu is surprised to hear this. She says, "Did I hear wrong?" Then she looks at Shi Yan and he says, "Didn't I say right?" Zheng Shu says, "Yes, you said right." At that time, Zheng Shu's reports arrive, and she goes to get them. On the other hand, Xu Yue and Yu have come to the same mountaintop. They are spending a lot of good time together. Xu Yue checks her mobile, and she gets angry that her uncle has not read her messages yet. She thinks, why haven't they read my messages yet? Now Yu says something to her seeing her. She says, "You must be thinking what gift I have brought for you." She then starts showing him some books. "I found these for you." Now Yu starts smiling, so Xu Yue says, what gift did you bring for me? He shows her a gift, which is a necklace. Shuyue is very happy to see the necklace. She says, why are you giving me this necklace? He says, before you came, I didn't know about emotional feelings, but before you came, I didn't feel where I was. Then he puts the necklace on her and kisses her cheeks. Now Shuyue also kisses you. Jungshu gets checked by the doctor and comes out, but Shuyan is not there. Now she's about to leave upset, but Shuyan comes from ahead. Seeing him, she is happy. He has brought hot water for her. Then he takes Jungshu home. When they arrive at Jungshu's home, he sees Jungshu sleeping. He doesn't wake her up. Then he receives a call from his ex, who is asking him to go out, but he cuts her call and looks at Jungshu, who has woken up. She asks him, will you go out with her? He says, what do you think, will I go with her? She says, why would I want you to go with her? He says, why don't you want that? She lies, the weather won't be good tomorrow. Shuyan is expecting some other answer, so ignoring that, he says to Jungshu, go home and sleep early. Jungshu gets out of the car, and Shuyan leaves from there. The next day, she has come for a drip because the doctor had told her to. She receives a call from Shuyue. She tells her, I want to come back to work. Can I come tomorrow? She says, I am in the hospital right now because I am sick. Shuyue says, is anyone with you? She says, no one is with me. Now she cuts her call. Shuyue tells Shuyan that Jungshu is unwell and is getting a drip in the hospital. Now Shuyan goes to Jungshu. She is sleeping, so he sits beside her. When Jungshu's eyes open, seeing him nearby, she says, why didn't you wake me up? He says, you came to get a drip alone in the hospital. She says, didn't you go to work because of me? Shuyan says, you create problems for me, so where can I go out? A girl sitting opposite says, who talks like that in the hospital? You should talk affectionately. Both of them hear this. Jungshu starts crying. He says, you have to stay here, don't go back. Jungshu gives him her coat and says, I won't be able to walk. Can you lift me up? He says, your acting has started again. She says, I am not acting. She tries to get up, but she really can't. Now Shuyan lifts her up. Now Jungshu clears Shuyan's misunderstanding. She says, first, I was approaching you for my work, but while doing so, I didn't even realize when I fell in love with you. He remains silent, listening to everything Jungshu says. When Jungshu tells him everything, Shuyan only says, So she asks him, are you still angry with me? Have you understood what I said? Shuyan just starts looking at her. Jungshu feels that Shuyan's anger is over. After this, when Shuyan is taking Jungshu home, Jungshu asks him, are you still angry with me? If you are still angry, I can even give you a test to prove it. Shuyan affectionately says to her, why would I take a test from you? She is about to go inside, so Shuyan starts showing her his mobile phone. Jungshu goes to him to take the mobile and he says, you are forgetting something. She says, what am I forgetting? Shuyan doesn't answer her. She says, maybe I forgot to thank you. Shuyan returns his mobile to her. Jungshu keeps looking at Shuyan. She starts remembering her first meeting with Shuyan. Seeing him standing, she says, why are you standing? I remember when you first offered me a ride in your car, I rejected it. Then I felt like I had refused the whole world and lost a huge chance. Shuyan says, who told you that was our first meeting? Jungshu says, what do you mean? Did you see me earlier in college too? Because I came to the city only during college. Shuyan starts opening the window. So Jungshu says, tell me, when did you see me for the first time? Shuyan doesn't tell her anything and leaves from there. Coming home, Jungshu thinks, that day I deleted Shuyan's number. Now she takes Shuyan's number from Shiyue and messages him. Seeing her message, Shuyan replies to her, and their conversation starts. They both talk for a long time. They don't realize the time. She says to Shuyan, since you messaged me, you will get the news. A beautiful girl jumped from a window and killed herself. Shuyan smiles, seeing her message. Next day, when she comes out of the office, Yonggi is waiting for her. He asks about her health, and she says, I'm fine. Then both of them go for lunch, where Jungshu tells him, my matter with Shuyan is solved. He says, how can that be? His company's situation is very bad. Jungshu thinks, even in such tough times, Shuyan was taking care of me. He says to her, I still won't stop chasing you, and my competition with Shuyan in this matter will continue. Jungshu says, whatever he says, my love for him will never decrease, and I will never think about you. After coming to the office, Shuyan receives a message from Jungshu. She says, I am thinking about you. He says to her, will you work with me on the project? She says, yes. Jungshu says to him, I can do overtime with you this weekend. He says, yes. Seeing this message, Jungshu starts smiling. After this, a weekend scene is shown. Jungshu comes to Shuyan's office and says, I have arrived. But Shuyan is so busy with his work that he doesn't pay attention to her. Jungshu comes to him and says, can you see me? He says, can you go and sit aside? Now Jungshu sits aside for a long time. She was getting bored, so she starts wandering around his office. Shiyan calls someone to book movie tickets. Jung-shu gets excited. Shiyan comes near her and she says, "What are you looking at me for?" Shiyan holds her hand and says, "Let's go to watch a movie." Then both of them go to watch a movie. Now there they see Fei Aona, who says to Shiyan, "Why haven't you come to meet me for so long?" But Shiyan ignores her and says to Jung-shu, "The movie has started." Now they are watching the movie. Jung-shu says to him, "Will you eat popcorn?" Shiyan refuses. Fei Aona is sitting behind them. She says to Shiyan, "Shall I order a drink for you?" Shiyan says, "There is no need for that." Seeing this, Jung-shu is feeling jealous. Then Jung-shu starts feeding Shiyan popcorn with her hand. First he refuses, but on Jung-shu's insistence, he eats it. After the movie ends, Jung-shu hands Shiyan the popcorn and goes to the washroom. Now Fei Aona comes out and says to Shiyan, "This girl is very sweet." Shiyan says, "Yes, she is very sweet." Fei Aona doesn't like this. Now Jung-shu arrives and seeing Fei Aona says, "Won't you introduce her to me?" Shiyan introduces both of them to each other. Fei Aona says, "Nice to meet you." She extends her hand for a handshake, but at that moment, Jung-shu deliberately starts holding Shiyan's bag, then shakes hands with her. Then both of them leave from there. When both of them come to the car, Jung-shu says, "What a nice weather today." He says, "What do you want to do now?" She says, "Can you walk with me for a while?" Hearing this, Shiyan angrily says, "Do I work for you?" She says, "That wasn't my intention." Then seeing his anger, she says, "Suddenly, I feel like getting into the car." But Shiyan stops her. He puts his hand on Jung-shu's neck. Jung-shu closes her eyes happily. Now Shiyan puts a necklace on Jung-shu. She is looking at her necklace when Shiyan says, "Did you think I was going to kiss you?" She says, "Can I think so?" Shiyan says, "I don't like doing that in public." Jung-shu gets angry and starts to get into the car. Shiyan stops her and starts kissing her. Now in the car, Yonggi asks Jung-shu to have dinner together tomorrow. She refuses, but Yonggi keeps messaging her. Shiyan puts her phone aside. Jung-shu reaches for her phone, but Shiyan catches her and doesn't let her go forward. Jung-shu smiles at him and says sorry because she realizes that Shiyan has minded. He says, "I think all the men in the world are interested in you." She says, "Aren't you interested?" Now, in the course of their conversation, Jung-shu tells him that they are going on a business trip. Shiyan gives her the mobile phone and says, "Send me all the details of your hotel." Jung-shu immediately sends him the information. In the next scene, Shiyan has come to Jung-shu's house. She gets a call and he says, "I have a meeting, so I can't drop you at the airport, but I will ask Shiyue. She will go with you." Jung-shu gets upset hearing this. Shiyan comes to lovingly console her. Now seeing Shiyan like this, Jung-shu starts smiling. Jung-shu's stomach is rumbling, so Shiyan starts leaving. She asks him, "Where are you going?" He says, "I am going to make noodles for you." Jung-shu is happy. Next day, Jung-shu goes to the office, and Shiyue has also come. She says to her, "I missed you a lot." After that, both of them go on a business trip. After interviewing the person they had to interview, both of them come out for a walk. They enjoy together a lot and also click many pictures. Jung-shu also sends these pictures to Shiyan, who is smiling while looking at them. Shiyan calls them and says, "How was your interview?" She says, "My interview went very well." Shiyan says to her, "I miss you a lot, so come back soon." Jung-shu also says to him, "I miss you too." After this, both of them have returned, and the driver comes to pick up Jung-shu and Shiyue. Shiyue says, "I won't go with you." After they leave, Yu arrives there, and she hugs him. Then both of them leave happily from there. The driver arrives to drop Jung-shu home and sees someone trying to unlock Jung-shu's door. The driver beats him up, knocks him down, and leaves. Sitting inside the house, he starts messaging Shiyan. Shiyan is in a meeting. Seeing the message, he immediately leaves. When Jung-shu opens the door, the man is outside. Seeing him, Jung-shu tries to close the door, but he prevents her from closing it to talk to her. Shiyan arrives, throws the man out, and closes Jung-shu's door. Inside the house, Shiyan starts kissing Jung-shu. She hugs him. He says, "I'll just check outside." She says, "Are you leaving me alone again?" He says, "Don't sleep, I'll be back." After going outside, Shiyan warns the man, "If I see you near Jung-shu again, I will deal with you severely." The man leaves. Jung-shu waits inside for Shiyan. When she looks outside, Shiyan is approaching. After coming inside, she asks, "What are you doing in my house?" He says, "I'm your landlord." Jung-shu thinks, "Oh, he owns this property too." But he is talking about Jung-shu. While talking, Shiyan gets closer to Jung-shu, and she realizes Lao Shiyan has been drinking. She says, "Have you been drinking?" He says, "I haven't drunk much." He sits on the sofa. Jung-shu approaches him thinking, "I should take off his glasses." As soon as she removes his glasses, Shiyan looks at her. She puts his glasses back on and says, "You probably couldn't see properly." He says, "I could see just as well as you can." Shu says, when a person's personality changes after drinking, so she says, call me baby. After she says it 2 to 3 times, Shiyan says it. She thinks, when you wake up in the morning, you won't remember anything. He hugs her and says, stay like this for a while, and then Shiyan falls asleep. Shu sees that Shiyan is uncomfortable, so she starts making honey water for him to sober up. Afterward, Shu is looking at herself in the mirror. He wakes up and asks, what are you looking at for so long? She says, I'm looking at my beauty. He starts looking at her. She says, why are you looking at me now? He says, I'm also looking at your beauty. Shu gives him honey water. After drinking it, he starts to leave. She says, you're going? He says, do you want to stop me? Shu says, I'm not saying that. I was asking if I could see you out because you've been drinking, in case you get lost. Anyway, I have only one boyfriend. Shiyan says nothing in response. He then grabs her face and says, I'm your boyfriend. She is happy. She asks for his phone, and he gives it to her. Then she types something on his phone and returns it. Shiyan leaves, and she smiles watching him go. The next day, Shiyan is having breakfast with his family. He receives a call, and baby is displayed on his phone. Shiyue says, tell us, who is this baby? Shiyan looks angrily at Shiyue, so she becomes silent. He answers Shu's call, and she asks about his breakfast. He says, I'm having breakfast. Shu says, I miss you. Shiyan ends the call. Shiyue looks at him intently. His dad asks, were you talking to your girlfriend? He says, yes. They say, bring your girlfriend to meet us sometime. Shiyan says, okay, I'll ask her. In the next scene, as Shu comes out of the office, Shiyan is waiting for her. Sitting in the car, she checks, is anything kept on the front seat? Nothing is there. Shu, mistaking Shiyan for a driver, orders, I have to pick up my friend. He says, I'm not your driver. Shu says, if you were my boyfriend, you would have brought flowers for me. Hearing this, Shiyan sighs. They have arrived at the airport. Shiyan gives Shu white roses he bought for her. Seeing this, Shu is happy. As Shiyan gets closer, Shu receives a call. Her friend says, Songlin is at this airport. Now she immediately gets out and goes outside. Songlin is Shiyue's mother. Now she gets into the car and leaves. Shu is talking to Shen about Songlin's personal life. Shen says, nobody knows if she's married or not. Now she comes to Shiyan's car, and Shiyan starts taking the bag from Shen. Shen prevents him from doing so. Shu says, give your bag to him. If he's not so gentlemanly, I'll have to find another boyfriend to pick me up. Hearing this, Shiyan smiles. Shen gives him her bag. As they are about to get into the car, Shiyan moves her aside and asks, are you such a big fan of Songlin? Shu says, I told you before that I like Songlin very much. Shiyan says, you said you liked me the most. Shu says, are you jealous of girls too? Shiyan doesn't answer, nor does he tell her that Songlin is his sister. Standing outside, she thinks, Liao, he will take revenge on me like I left him. He might leave me too in the future. After this, at home, Shiyan hugs Shu from behind and asks, what happened? She says, I think you haven't forgiven me yet, and you're still angry with me. He says, there's nothing like that. You are my girlfriend, and you will always be my girlfriend. Hearing this, Shu kisses Shiyan and starts talking about the same things again. Shiyan says, there's nothing like that. We are like girlfriend-boyfriend. She says, that's not true. Other boyfriends don't call their girlfriends by their full names. He comes close and says, yes, I know that. Then he leaves. After Shiyan leaves, Shu is happy. The next day, when she comes out after work, she is happy to see Shiyan's car. She opens the door and looks inside, but no one is there. She asks the driver about Shiyan, and he tells her that he has gone out for some work. Now Shu calls Shiyan and asks, where are you? And to tease him, she asks, I even checked the car. Now saying this, she is outside, and Shiyan is in front of her. Seeing him suddenly, she is shocked. She says to him, why didn't you tell me you were standing behind me? He says, you shouldn't disturb an actor while acting. Don't you watch dramas? She says, yes, I don't watch dramas. He says, it's okay, we'll watch together. Hearing this, Shu is happy. Then as they are leaving, Shiyan gives her the coffee he brought for her. Seeing the coffee, Shu is happy and says, this is my favorite coffee. Shiyan asks her, how much do you like this coffee? She says, if I get angry with you, if you give me this coffee, I'll immediately forgive you. She wants to sit with him, but there isn't much space in the car. She says to Shiyan, don't bring me in this car from now on. He says, why? She says, I don't like this car. Shiyan says, I like it. Then Shu holds Shiyan's hand. Shiyan starts putting a bracelet on her. Seeing the bracelet, Shu happily starts checking it properly. The next day, Shiyan sends many parcels to Shu's house. She asks him on a call, why did you send me so many parcels? He says, just like that. Shu says, shall we go out to eat? Then both of them come to eat. As soon as Jung-shu goes to the restroom, a waitress spills something on Shi-yan's coat. She starts to apologize to Shi-yan and says, "I'll pay for this." And she asks for Shi-yan's WeChat account. He says, "There's no need for that." Just then, Jung-shu arrives and gets jealous seeing the waitress being so apologetic. Seeing her, Shi-yan says to the waitress, "I don't want anything from you. You're blocking my girlfriend's way." Hearing this, she moves aside and leaves. Jung-shu says to Shi-yan, "You should have taken money from that waitress." Shi-yan smiles at her. He says, "You look even cuter when you're jealous." She says, "I'm not jealous. I felt bad about your coat." Just then, Shi-yan receives a call from his sister, who is asking about Shi-yue. He says, "She's not with me." She asks him, "Who are you with?" Shi-yan tells her, "I'm with my girlfriend." Hearing this, Jung-shu asks Shi-yan, "Who are you talking to?" He says, "I'm talking to my sister." She asks Jung-shu to say hello to his sister, but Jung-shu refuses. Shi-yan ends the call. She says, "If your sister hadn't called today, I wouldn't even know you have a sister." Jung-shu wants to know about his sister. Shi-yan says, "I can introduce you to her." But Jung-shu says, "I'm not ready to meet yet." Then, as they are leaving, Jung-shu asks him, "What does your sister do?" He says, "My sister sings and dances." Jung-shu becomes even more interested in his sister. She asks him to show her a picture, but Shi-yan says, "I don't have any pictures of my sister." She says, "How is that possible?" Shi-yan says, "You can open my phone and see. The password is your date of birth." Hearing this, Jung-shu is so happy she says, "I won't look. I trust you. And anyway, I'll meet her someday." He smiles at her words. Today, Shi-yue tells Jung-shu about the article she wrote in the office. "Aunt, you taught me this." Now a colleague also hears this and thinks Shi-yue's uncle is a married person, and she spreads this everywhere. Now the boss calls Jung-shu and asks, "Is your boyfriend older than you?" She says, "Why does everyone here think I'm dating an older man?" The boss says, "If you don't want to tell, it's okay." When she comes out of their room, her colleague starts showing her the rumor. Jung-shu realizes that no one but Yong-gi could have done this. She goes to him and says, "Did you spread this rumor?" She says, "I haven't even seen your boyfriend." Jung-shu says, "If you don't know my boyfriend, why did you spread this rumor?" Yong-gil says, "Yes, I spread this rumor. What will you do?" Jung-shu reads the chat on Yong-gil's phone with her own disk, proving that Yong-gil spread the rumor. Jung-shu gets angry, and Yong-gil starts leaving. Jung-shu stops her, and Yong-gil pushes her and leaves. Now Jung-shu's hand gets caught in the door. She is very upset and goes to Shi-yan's office. Seeing her like this, he asks, "What happened to you?" Jung-shu is asking Shi-yan for a hug, but seeing the bandage on her hand, he asks, "What happened to your hand?" She tells him, "It's my colleague's fault. My hand got caught in the door." He hugs her and asks, "Did you go to the doctor?" She says, "Yes, and the doctor told me not to do any work with this hand." Hearing this, Shi-yan says to her, "Come to my house to stay." Jung-shu starts leaving and he says, "Where are you going?" She says, "I'm going to pack my things." She starts to leave but comes back and sits down near Shi-yan. He asks her, "What now?" She says, "I want a kiss." Shi-yan says, "Why are you creating trouble in the office?" Hearing this, she starts to leave but the door won't open. She says, "Your door is broken." Shi-yan hugs her from behind and says, "The door isn't broken. You pressed the wrong button." Saying this, Shi-yan presses the button with Jung-shu's hand, and the door opens. Now Shi-yan is holding her, and she leaves embarrassed. Shi-yan comes to Jung-shu's house and packs her things. Then Jung-shu comes to Shi-yan's house. She is scared while coming there, so he says, "What happened? Before, you used to come here at any time of night." At night, Shi-yan makes dinner for her. He himself is eating very happily. Jung-shu wanted to tell him that he had promised he would feed her with his own hands, but Shi-yan wasn't understanding. Then Shi-yan starts feeding her, and Jung-shu feels very good. After this, Jung-shu is sitting outside, and Shi-yan brings fruits for her and starts feeding her. Now Jung-shu says to Shi-yan, "Tie my hair too." He ties her hair, and after that, he sits down to do his work. Jung-shu says to him, "I'm going to the shower." He says, "Do you still need my help?" She says no. To tease her, Shi-yan says, "You get all your work done by me." Jung-shu starts to leave and he says, "If you need my help, I won't help you." She says, "I won't need your help." And then she starts to leave, but coming to the washroom, she realizes that she needs Shi-yan's help. Now she calls him for help. He starts helping her. After that, she goes to take a shower. Then she comes out and lies down. Shi-yan comes near her and asks, "Is your hand aching?" She says, "Yes, my hand is aching." Shi-yan says, "Go to sleep, then your hand won't ache." Thus, both of them fall asleep. Then, while sleeping, Jung-shu hugs Shi-yan. Shi-yan kisses her. The next morning, when she wakes up, Shi-yan is not there. She receives a call from Shi-yan. She asks him, "When did you go to work?" He tells her, "I left at 8 o'clock. During the day, Jung-shu gets bored and tries to work, but because of her hand, she can't do anything. She messages Shi-yan, I can't do anything because of my hand. He says, I've told Shi Yue, she'll come to help you. Shi Yue arrives and starts working with her. They both become free. Then Shi Yan arrives. As soon as he arrives, he asks Zheng Shu about her hand. Shi Yue says, I have completed the task you gave me, but he doesn't look at her and tells her to leave. Shi Yue leaves angrily. At night, Shi Yan makes dinner, and after eating himself, he says to Zheng Shu, come and sit beside me so I can feed you. She sits on Shi Yan's lap. Seeing her so close, he gets nervous. Then he starts feeding her. Later, Shi Yan is working, and Zheng Shu comes wearing clothes to attract him. But even after looking at her, Shi Yan maintains control and says, take a painkiller before sleeping. Hearing this, Zheng Shu goes to her room upset. The next night, Zheng Shu is talking to Shen. Then Shi Yan comes there and is shocked to see her in that attire. He asks her, have you been drinking? She says, yes, and he leaves the room. Now he comes out and is thinking about Zheng Shu. Then, losing control, he comes into the room and starts kissing Zheng Shu. The next day, Yonggi learns about Zheng Shu's leave from her office and calls her asking, what happened to your hand? She says, I'm fine, but he says, I need to talk to you. Can we meet? She says, no, tell me now. Yonggi learns that Zheng Shu is at Shi Yan's house and ends the call. In the next scene, Zheng Shu is reading her article at home. She thinks, will this article cause any problem for Shi Yan? Just then, Shi Yan arrives, and she helps him take off his coat. Then she gives him water. Shi Yan says, what's wrong? Why are you behaving like this? She says, didn't my article cause any problem for you? He says, there's nothing like that. You've written a very good article. Coming closer, she asks, what can I do for you? He says, can you give me Yonggi's number? She gives it to him. Shi Yan lovingly kisses her cheeks and starts thanking her. A day later, Shi Yan meets Yonggi and asks him to work together. Yonggi agrees. Zheng Shu is settling down at home when she receives a message with a picture of Shui's parents. Zheng Shu doesn't know this, so she thinks her favorite singer has hugged Shi Yan's brother-in-law. Now she calls Shi Yan and asks, where are you? He says, Shi Yue had a car accident. She asks, which hospital are you in? He says, Shi Yue is fine, but Zheng Shu leaves for the hospital immediately after hearing this. Wu Yu is also waiting for Shi Yue. When she doesn't come for a long time, he calls Shi Yan and asks about Shi Yue, and he learns about Shi Yue's accident. He also immediately goes to the hospital. Zheng Shu arrives at the hospital running, and Shi Yan says to her, didn't I tell you not to come? She says, not everyone is like you, who remains so calm in every situation. After this, Zheng Shu asks him for a picture of Song Lin. She says, she's such a big singer, I can't believe she's hugging your brother-in-law. Shi Yan is listening to her, but he doesn't say anything. Just then, Shi Yan's sister arrives. Zheng Shu is shocked to see her. Shi Yan is enjoying seeing her like this. He says to her, speak to my sister. She speaks to her and says, your face matches Song Lin's quite a bit. She says, yes, many people say that. Then she starts going inside. Zheng Shu says to Shi Yan, do you want to say something? Song Lin turns back and says, I didn't tell my fans that I'm married. Now Zheng Shu is confirmed that she is Song Lin. Now Song Lin comes to meet Shi Yan. Shi Yue apologizes to them, saying, because of me, everyone knows you're married. Her mother says, it's not your fault. I should have told people. Zheng Shu says to Shi Yue, if you need anything, tell your uncle. Now Yu is sitting with Shi Yue's parents. She asks him, are you Shi Yue's professor? He says, you can say that because Shi Yue only comes to university to attend my class. He is nervous while saying this, but Shi Yue's dad smiles. Shi Yue's mother starts to leave, and Zheng Shu says to her, I had a misunderstanding. If I had known, I wouldn't have said that. Song Lin says, it's okay, it's my fault. She asks Shi Yan, didn't you tell Zheng Shu about me? Shi Yan doesn't say anything. She leaves. Now Zheng Shu is not calling Shi Yan. He is trying to appease her. She even refuses to go to his house. She is going to her house. Shi Yan follows her. She comes to her house and opens the door, but it doesn't open, and she doesn't have the keys. She thinks, I won't go to Shi Yan's house. She starts going towards Shen. Now she goes to Shen's house, where Shen is with her boyfriend. Then she goes to Shi Yan's house. Shi Yan says to her, I'll make dinner for you. Tell me what you want to eat. She tells him some dishes and says, if the food is not tasty, I'll never forgive you. After this, both of them are sitting for dinner. Zheng Shu likes the food made by Shi Yan. She says, I've forgiven you this time. Next time you lie to me, I won't forgive you. Shi Yan says, I didn't lie to you. I just didn't tell you that Song Lin is my sister. Yes, Then Jung-shu remembers Shi-yan's words that he had mentioned his sister sings. Remembering this, Jung-shu gets angry and goes inside, and she also closes the room door. She says to him, "Will you sleep outside the room tonight?" She is telling Shen on call that Song Lin is Shi-yan's sister. Meanwhile, Shi-yan opens the door with the key and comes inside. Jung-shu starts pushing him out of the room. Shi-yan lifts her and lays her on the bed and says to her, "How relaxed you've become." Shen's voice comes, "Do whatever you want to do. Why are you asking her?" Hearing this voice, both of them are shocked because Jung-shu hadn't ended Shen's call. In the hospital, Shiyue is trying to hold her tablet, but she can't. Yu starts helping her. Then Shiyue rests her head on Yu's shoulder and looks at the tablet. Shiyue's grandpa and mother, standing outside, are happy to see this. They say, they look perfect for each other. In the next scene, Jung-shu is talking to her mother. Seeing Shi-yan's picture, she says, "Isn't this your boyfriend?" She says, "If you don't want to believe it, don't believe it," and goes to take a shower. Her mother calls again. Shi-yan tells her, "Your mother is calling," but she doesn't respond. Shi-yan answers the call. Jung-shu's mother is shocked after talking to him. Jung-shu comes out of the shower and asks Shi-yan, "Were you calling me?" He says, "Your mother was calling, then I received it." She asks him, "Whose call was it?" He says, "It was your mother's call." Jung-shu is surprised. She says, "What did I talk to my mother about?" He says, "Call your mother and ask her yourself." Jung-shu calls her mother, and she asks her to come to her. Jung-shu asks Shi-yan about this, but he refuses. Jung-shu refuses to let her mother come. The next day, Shi-yan takes Jung-shu to meet his family. Before going inside, Jung-shu asks Shi-yan, "Do I look good?" Shi-yan says, "You look fine." She says, "What if I don't impress your sister?" He says, "If you like me, my family will like you too." Now he starts taking her inside. Shi-yan's sister and dad welcome Jung-shu very well. Then they have lunch. Even during lunch, Shi-yan's sister talks to her a lot. When they are sitting after lunch, Shiyue also arrives. Seeing Jung-shu, she gets very excited. She says, "Little aunt has also come." Then she quickly changes the subject. She starts taking Jung-shu outside. Yu says to Shi-yan, "Little aunt, come back soon." Now, both of them come out. Jung-shu asks Shiyue, "How's your work going?" She happily says, "I'm feeling good, and I know who I like." Jung-shu talks about Yu, and Shiyue smiles. After this, when Jung-shu comes home, she has made some dishes for Shi-yan. Just then, Shi-yan arrives there with her mother. He is surprised to see his mother. Jung-shu goes inside with the luggage. Jung-shu starts showing the house to her mother. Her mother says, "You didn't tell me you're staying here." She says, "You also hide things from me. Last time you went to Singapore, you didn't tell me." Now her mother doesn't say anything. After eating, Jung-shu's mother starts leaving. She says, "I came to see Jung-shu. I liked meeting Shi-yan." After this, Shi-yan drops Jung-shu's mother off and comes back. Jung-shu asks him, "My hometown is small, there's no airport there. How did you bring mother so quickly?" Shi-yan doesn't want to tell Jung-shu that he specially sent a car to bring her mother here. In the next scene, Shi-yan comes home, and Jung-shu closes her laptop and starts leaving. He asks her, "What's wrong? Tell me, or I won't let you go because I want there to be no secrets between us." She says, "I called your assistant today and I learned about your company's situation and that you're not giving any interviews." She hugs Shi-yan to make him relax. She says to him, "Everyone else wants to talk to you about the company, but I won't talk about that. I'll just listen to you." Hearing this, Shi-yan starts smiling. After this, Jung-shu writes a very good article about Shi-yan's company, which stops the people who were spreading negative things. In the office, Shi-yan is also smiling after reading the article. At night, when he comes home, seeing Jung-shu in the kitchen, he hugs her from behind and, after kissing her cheeks, thanks her. Happily, she says, "What will you do to repay me?" He says, "I can help you interview some people." Jung-shu is happy about this. In the next scene, when Jung-shu comes out of the office, Shi-yan is waiting for her. Then she goes to Shi-yan and hugs him. He starts kissing her there and asks her, "Why are you upset?" She says, "I failed in my work." Shi-yan says, "I'll talk to your editor so that," smiling, she says, "Then go and do it now." Shi-yan starts going to talk to the editor, but Jung-shu stops him because she thinks he shouldn't talk to the editor like that. Now, coming home, Jung-shu is sitting sadly, and Shi-yan tries to cheer her up. She gets angry and laughs sarcastically. He comes closer to appease her, and she puts a bunny hairband on him and says, "Take some selfies with me and my mood will improve." Shi-yan makes a very strange face. "What have you made me wear?" Jung-shu starts taking his pictures. The next day, Jung-shu is getting ready to go to work when she receives a call from her colleague. Shi-yan is staring at her intensely. After the call, he asks her, "Whose call was it?" She says, "It was my colleague's call." He says, "Many people call you." Jung-shu says, "But my love is for you." After kissing her cheeks, she leaves. In the evening, after coming home, she falls asleep on the sofa. Shi-yan is lovingly stroking her hair. Then it starts snowing. Shi-yan wakes Jung-shu up, and she quickly gets up and starts watching the snow fall. Shi-yan hugs her from behind, and both of them start watching the snow. He says, "If a couple watches the first snow of winter together, they stay together forever." Shi-yan kisses Jung-shu's cheeks, and she starts kissing him too. Then Shi-yan lifts Jung-shu and starts carrying her. The next day, Jung-shu gives Shi-yue an article that was published on the front page. Seeing this, Shi-yue is happy. Yu is with Shi-yan and Guanji when the doorbell rings. He opens the door and Shi-yue has arrived. She kisses him and shows him the news of her article being published. Then, seeing her uncle, she gets shocked and starts to leave, but Shi-yan stops her from leaving. She now holds Yu's hand. Shi-yue asks her to call Yu uncle because he has become her uncle too. On this, everyone starts smiling. After this, an award event is shown, in which Jung-shu receives the Best Journalist Award. After this, a party scene is shown where Jung-shu starts taking a drink, and Shi-yan comes and gives her dessert and puts her hand in his pocket, which has a ring. He is going to officially propose to Jung-shu. Shi-yan asks Jung-shu, "Will you marry me?" And holding her hand, starts putting the ring on her finger. Jung-shu pulls her hand away and says, "Did you give me your work report?" and starts to leave. Shi-yan doesn't understand her. He goes after her and asks, "Why are you doing this?" She says, "Who are you to hold a pretty girl's hand like that? I already have a husband," meaning Jung-shu had indirectly accepted Shi-yan's proposal. Then she starts smiling. Yes, Shi-yan becomes very happy and starts twirling Jung-shu around. And this is where the drama ends. How much rating would you give this drama, and which was your favorite scene? Let us know in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share the videos.